The world is divided into several realms. A dragon looms over a castle while beasts gather in the demonic realm below. The narrator explains they refuse to reincarnate after being the first historical human sacrifice. Glowing hands reach out in the darkness as the narrator reflects on their offering. The narrator notes that since gods do not accept sacrifices and dragons were distant, their death was meaningless. A group of hooded mages inside a tower celebrate the success of their secret experiment. A single eye of a girl opens, awakening for the first time. The girl feels the weight of her new physical form. The girl is shocked to realize she now possesses a physical body. The girl stands, appearing confused and startled by her surroundings. A hooded mage addresses the girl, inquiring if the masterpiece feels any discomfort. The hooded leader smiles at the girl, who sits surrounded by observing hooded figures. The girl remains silent, causing the frustrated mages to panic about their failed investment. The girl questions if the mages are calling her a doll. The leader expresses relief and calls the girl a powerful, tenacious doll. The leader explains they transferred her soul into a manufactured shell to bypass the impossibility of creating ego. The girl glances toward the side, observing her surroundings. Other prisoners in chains are shown in the background as the mages discuss the girl's potential. The leader assures the girl that she is superior to humans and will not feel pain. The mages gather around the girl, confirming her soul and shell are perfectly synchronized. The girl asks if she's being used as a test subject, but the mages insist she has no choice. Blue flames erupt around the chamber as the girl asserts her consciousness. The mages are stunned that the girl is active before the power transfer is complete. The girl stares intensely at the hooded figures. A massive dragon spirit manifests behind the girl, terrifying the surrounding mages. The girl examines her hands, satisfied with her new body's ability to contain her power. The mage leader trembles in fear, realizing they have made a grave mistake. The leader desperately commands his fellow mages to kill the girl immediately. The girl touches her body and remarks that this is why she refused to reincarnate. The girl commands her power to destroy the mages. A surge of destructive energy obliterates the tower. The mages scream for help as they are consumed by the girl's overwhelming power. The tower stands in ruins after the explosive release of energy. The girl sits alone among the rubble, lost in thought. Surrounded by blue flames, the girl wonders what she should do next. The girl reflects on her lack of desire to travel anywhere despite her freedom. The girl laments that humanity would never accept a doll that cannot die or suffer. The girl examines her own body, realizing she is trapped in a porcelain form forever. The girl opens her eyes as an unexpected visitor arrives.
The girl asks the newcomer if they were the one who caused the destruction.
Demon Lord Cardell introduces himself to the girl. The girl stares intently at Demon Lord Cardell. Demon Lord Cardell asks if the girl's grandfather is named Chester. The girl explains that Chester was her great-grandfather and asks how the demon knows him. The girl points out that her relative frequently boasted about his grandson in the spirit realm. Demon Lord Cardell looks visibly distressed by the revelation. The girl reiterates that she is just a test specimen who was dragged here against her will. Demon Lord Cardell inspects the blue flames floating around the girl. The girl confirms the flames are an extension of her own power. The girl claims she is powerful enough to be considered immortal, impressing the demon. The girl reflects on her overwhelming power as a manufactured doll. A man smiles, revealing he has a son. The man asks the girl to be his son's butler, but she refuses. The man explains that a demon's powers include absorption, seduction, and destruction. The man notes his son possesses destruction, and the girl wonders if he is bragging. The girl acknowledges Chester's lineage process. The man promises to grant the girl death once his son ascends the throne. The girl is startled by the precursor. The girl questions the man's sincerity. The man confirms his promise, conditioned on her serving his son until he rules. The girl admits she is unfamiliar with reading documents or the duties of a butler. The man offers an advisor to handle tasks, tasking her only with protection and discipline. The girl realizes she can avoid paperwork and discipline the servant as needed. The girl questions if the son is her path back to the spirit realm. A flashback shows the girl and man shaking hands while Chester looks on approvingly. The man identifies his son as Julian. The girl plays along, feigning sincere admiration for the name. The girl thinks the situation is a fruitful game as energy surrounds them. A close-up shows the girl's focused eyes. The man and the girl stand before a grand coffle. An elf asks the girl for her race. The girl asserts she is a doll, which the elf disputes as not a reeks. The girl insists she is a doll, leaving the elf speechless. The elf reluctantly accepts doll as a classification and asks for her name. The girl states she does not have a name. The elf is frustrated and breaks his pen in irritation. The elf struggles to contain his annoyance. The girl shrugs off her forgotten human identity. The elf sighs in confusion and frustration. The elf warns the girl not to mention awakening, noting the boy hasn't in 200 years. The elf explains that demons undergo 3 phases of awakening. A diagram illustrates how babies awaken into children and then adults. The elf explains that physical power amplifies at the 3rd phase. The girl mockingly encourages the boy to be strong enough to kill her. The girl finds the situation amusing despite the elf's disapproval. The elf introduces the incubus siblings, Leon and Leah. The elf abruptly pauses in Mahale. The elf commands the girl to present herself well before the siblings. The girl wonders why the elf is looking at her with pity. The elf instructs the girl to call Julian young master and notes his mental age is 5.
The elf reassures the girl that a nanny is present to handle the boy.
The boy asks the girl who she is.
The elf introduces the girl to the boy as the new Butler.
The elf impatiently demands the girl bow before the young master.
The girl formally greets the boy.
The girl bows politely to the young master. The elf excuses himself to attend to other matters.
The girl is surprised that the elf is leaving so suddenly.
The girl contemplates how to interact with the boy to find her answers.
The girl notices a leaf on the boy's head.
The girl's hand reaches out to remove a leaf from the boy's head.
The girl questions if the boy is actually a dog rather than a demon. The girl playfully ruffles the boy's hair while he struggles in her grip. The boy lets out an incoherent, frustrated noise while scowling at the girl. The girl scolds the boy for trying to speak while his mouth is full. The girl holds the boy aloft, mockingly inviting him to speak clearly now. The boy shouts at the girl, demanding that she stop touching him immediately. The girl insists she is only touching his clothes, while the boy continues his protest. The girl tells the boy he was already biting her before she could get close. The boy sits on the ground and argues that she should have put him down gently. The girl finds the boy's dissatisfaction with her performance as a butler quite difficult. The girl picks up the boy again despite his loud protest to be let down. The boy yells at the girl, demanding to know what she thinks she is doing. The boy makes a pained noise as the girl pinches his squishy, cute cheeks. The boy unleashes a surge of rage. The girl is caught in the shockwave of the boy's sudden violent power release. The girl stands unharmed in the aftermath while the boy stares at her in shock. The girl's head rolls on the ground, disconnected from her body after the blast. The girl picks up her own head, remarking that the boy is simply too feisty. The boy points at the girl in terror, demanding to know how she is alive. The girl explains she is a doll, while the boy remains baffled by her survival. The girl reaches out to comfort the boy with a soothing touch. The girl pulls the boy into a hug, much to his utter surprise. The boy wonders why the girl is being kind, noting he is a demon. The girl jokingly calls the boy a naughty child while bunnies appear around them. The boy protests, insisting that he is not a naughty child at all. The girl pats the boy's head, telling him to stop using power or the gardener will cry. The boy insists the gardener won't cry, but the girl claims adults always hide to weep. The girl muses on the risk of her head blowing off again for squeezing his cheeks. The boy insists again that the girl must not touch him, his expression pouting. The girl teases the boy for being forgetful about his head blowing off earlier. The boy stares silently at the girl, speechless after her teasing remark. The girl inwardly thinks the boy is acting like a smarty pants.
A new character, a stern woman, arrives on the scene shouting in anger.
The woman confronts the girl, demanding to know who she is and why she is there. The woman yells at the girl, furious that she would dare stand straight before the young master.
The girl looks at the woman with a confused expression, wondering what her problem is.
The girl identifies herself as the butler, shocking the nanny who wonders about her position.
The girl dryly wonders if nannies are truly important enough to be notified of new staff. The nanny screams for the guards, but the girl coldly dismisses her, stating it is too late. The girl unleashes blue flames that overwhelm the castle guards who have arrived to intervene. The girl wonders if the duty to tighten discipline within the castle includes the guards. The girl smiles and casts a massive spell, nonchalantly deciding she does not care either way. The girl's blue flame spell manifests as grinning spirits that consume the surrounding area. The elf arrives, shouting at the girl and the fallen guards, demanding to know what is happening. The girl tells the elf that she was merely following orders to discipline the castle grounds. The elf argues with the girl, stating that she is a butler and should manage the personnel. The nanny trembles in fear, barely able to process if the girl is really the new butler. The elf sighs, officially confirming the girl is now the boy's butler and hoping for peace. The girl offers a polite, pleasant smile, looking perfectly innocent despite the chaos around her. The butler stumbles back as she inadvertently touches the young master's sensitive cheek. The butler remarks on the weakness of the castle knights compared to her own power. The annoyed elf scolds the butler for recklessly deploying her dangerous summon spirits near the knights. The elf firmly insists the butler must act professionally and manage her duties to avoid further chaos. As the elf departs in frustration, the butler is left standing in the courtyard with the young master. The nanny rushes over to frantically apologize to the butler for her previous outburst and behavior. The butler dismissively accepts the apology, showing little interest in the nanny's sudden change of heart. The young master curiously asks the butler if she is a necromancer given her strange powers. The butler clarifies that her summoned spirits are not actual corpses, showing off a glowing blue wisp. The butler and the young master walk through the garden as floating spirits follow them. The butler reaches out as a blue wisp hovers near her hand, flickering with energy. The butler allows the young master to touch the cold mystical wisp, which fascinates the boy. The butler explains the nature of the will-o'-the-wisp as the boy reaches out to poke it. The young master's eyes widen with pure delight as he gazes at the glowing blue wisp. The butler impulsively pats the young master on the head, finding his innocent reaction genuinely cute. The butler briefly reflects on her unthinking action, realizing she let her guard down momentarily. The butler grabs the young master's hand, prompting him to demand she let go immediately.
The butler remains calm as the young master reiterates his command for her to let go.
The butler offers a polite apology before cheekily pinching the young master's squishy, cute cheeks again.
The young master asks what she is doing, while the butler inwardly muses on his cuteness.
The butler continues to pinch the boy's cheeks, teasing him by noting her hands are still intact. The young master becomes flustered and agitated, desperately demanding that the butler stop touching him at once. The butler tilts her head, innocently wondering why the young master is so upset by her touch.
The butler narrowly dodges a sudden violent surge of energy as the boy loses his composure. The butler inspects her own hand, which appears to have been slightly damaged by the boy's outburst.
The butler looks down at her hand with a neutral expression, unbothered by the minor injury.
Red, destructive energy tears through the castle hallway in the week following her arrival.
The butler reflects on the recurring violent outbursts that have plagued the castle for an entire week.
The butler observes that Julian's daily violent temper tantrums have finally begun to decrease in frequency. The butler takes credit for training the boy to control his destructive impulses, achieving a small victory. The butler scolds Julian for losing his temper during a meal and damaging the castle walls.
Julian asks the butler for her name, but she admits she does not have one.
Julian grows furious at the perceived lie, threatening to kill the butler if she continues deceiving him.
The butler calmly tells Julian to stop being angry and urges him to eat his meal. Julian questions whether the head butler or his father ever gave her a name to use.
The butler reveals that she was sold off as a sacrificial offering, explaining her lack of family.
Julian impulsively offers to give the butler a name, much to her surprise and confusion. Julian struggles to find a suitable name for the butler, clearly flustered by the task.
The butler smiles faintly and encourages Julian to choose a name for her.
Julian suggests the name Perry, inspired by the peridot gem that matches the butler's eye color. The butler looks taken aback by the sudden suggestion of a name. The butler clarifies the gem association, confirming that Julian chose the name based on her eyes.
The butler's eyes sparkle as the realization sinks in that the boy really did notice her eyes.
Julian suddenly jumps up from his chair, excitedly commanding the butler to follow him.
Julian grabs the butler's hand, pulling her along as they hurry through the castle together. The butler is startled by the boy's sudden physical contact, recalling his previous hatred for being touched.
The butler follows Julian, puzzled by the boy's contradictory behavior after his earlier protest.
Julian pauses abruptly in the hallway, looking hesitant or perhaps lost in his own thoughts. Julian impatiently demands that the butler hurry up as they walk through the grand hall. The butler and Julian enter his room, the boy looking eager to show her something. Various pieces of ornate jewelry and trinkets spill out of a small open chest.
The small blue-haired boy excitedly raises a hand adorned with a piece of jewelry.
The silver-haired woman holds the boy's wrist, noting that the jewelry they wear matches.
The silver-haired woman examines her own reflection in a mirror, adjusting the jewelry she wears.
The silver-haired woman questions why so much effort was put into appearance for a doll. The small blue-haired boy grins, smugly telling the silver-haired woman that he was right. The silver-haired woman praises the boy's sharp eye while he stands looking displeased nearby. The blue-haired boy insists that he does not need the item despite being offered it. The blue-haired boy throws a tantrum because the silver-haired woman tries to give him the etter.
The blue-haired boy suggests she keep it while she wonders if she should return it.
A surge of magical energy erupts as the silver-haired woman attempts to take the item off. The silver-haired woman calmly addresses the boy, asking him to stop lashing out in anger.
The silver-haired woman tells the boy he is adorable, dismissing his claims of being intimidating. The blue-haired boy asks what is good about being cute, then boasts of his power.
The blue-haired boy glares, intensely focused on the silver-haired woman's previous words.
The silver-haired woman gently touches the boy's face, assuring him she will not die.
The blue-haired boy fidgets, asking if this means she will never leave his side. The silver-haired woman confirms she will stay, noting the situation will change later on.
The blue-haired boy becomes flustered, warning her that he will kill her if she lies.
The blue-haired boy shouts that he will kill her if she is found to be lying.
The silver-haired woman smiles, realizing the boy has just set a death trap for her.
The silver-haired woman finds herself distracted, lost in thought as the boy calls her name. The silver-haired woman stops and turns around, questioning why the boy is calling her name. The blue-haired boy insults the silver-haired woman, asking if she has soiled herself like a baby. The silver-haired woman approaches a door where a maid is nervously waiting and pacing.
The silver-haired woman asks the maid why she is stalling instead of entering the room.
The silver-haired woman bursts into the room, throwing the large double doors wide open.
The silver-haired woman strides toward the bed to wake the sleeping blue-haired boy.
The silver-haired boy grabs the sheets, snarling like a puppy and demanding to be left alone. The silver-haired woman effortlessly lifts the small, struggling boy up into her arms. The silver-haired woman gazes at the boy who stares back at her with wide, confused eyes. The silver-haired woman carries the boy, who appears irritated by her sudden intrusion.
The silver-haired woman asks if the boy is awake while he calls her an idiot.
The maid stands nearby with a bowl, while the silver-haired woman refuses the water offered.
A close-up shows the bowl of water sitting on a small wooden table.
The silver-haired woman firmly grabs the boy's cheeks, trying to wash his face despite resistance.
The blue-haired boy trembles with intense frustration, visibly shaken after the washing attempt. The blue-haired boy breaks down in tears, crying out that he hates the silver-haired woman.
The silver-haired woman sighs, concerned about the boy's stress and potential health issues.
The blue-haired boy snaps at the silver-haired woman, demanding to know why she is talking. The silver-haired woman insists they must prepare for the upcoming luncheon session immediately.
The blue-haired boy sighs in annoyance as he jumps out of the bed to dress.
The silver-haired woman watches as the blue-haired boy stands before the mirror to dress. The blue-haired boy struggles to button his shirt, clearly bothered by the process. The silver-haired woman steps in to help the boy dress, noting he will be late.
The blue-haired boy shouts for her to stop touching him as a magical aura flares up.
The silver-haired woman persists in buttoning the shirt, calmly telling the boy to let her help.
The silver-haired woman suggests he should awaken faster if he dislikes being touched so much. The silver-haired woman tells the boy she will stop touching him if he behaves all.
The blue-haired boy stands silently, looking pensive and contemplative after their interaction.
The butler covers her mouth with her hands while looking down, seemingly deep in thought.
The girl with long white hair pauses, her expression shifting to one of sudden realization.
The seventh nanny embraces the butler, expressing joy that the young master has finally opened his heart.
The young master demands that the nanny stop embracing the butler, insisting he has not opened up. The young master yells that he hates it when the nanny touches the butler, claiming he is not a demon. The butler explains to the nanny and the young master that she is simply a doll.
A bright blue sky stretches overhead, framing the peaceful garden setting as the conversation continues.
The young master, surrounded by red energy, threatens the butler while she calmly claims she will not die. The butler tells the young master to believe her because she will not die and urges him to stop ruining her clothes.
The young master looks confused and mumbles to himself about the girl's strange declaration.
The butler invites the young master to sit on a chair, repeating that she is a doll. The butler brushes the young master's hair while he sits dejectedly on the chair.
The nanny apologizes for forcing the butler to do her job, but the butler insists it is fine.
Surrounded by soft roses, the nanny praises the butler and tells the young master he looks splendid.
The young master tells the nanny she is being too loud, clearly annoyed by the praise. The nanny mentions she has felt at ease since Miss Perry arrived and grabs the butler's hands. The young master coldly commands the nanny to let go of the butler's hands immediately.
The nanny quickly obeys the young master's command, pulling her hands away from the butler.
A close-up shows the butler's boots standing still on the dusty ground of the courtyard.
The young master makes a frustrated, incoherent noise, his face twisted into a pout.
The butler carries the young master in her arms and asks if he would like her to let go. The butler stands tall while the young master sits on the ground in the background. The young master screams in refusal, telling bystanders glance over as the butler carries the pouting young master, who finds the situation embarrassing. The nanny scolds the butler for carrying the young master in such an improper, unrefined manner. The butler looks confused as the nanny tries to explain the correct way to hold him. The nanny demonstrates how to carry someone by lifting a young boy into her arms.
The butler holds the young master awkwardly while watching the nanny's demonstration with a blank stare.
The butler adjusts her hold, clutching the young master closely as the nanny notes he looks tense.
The butler wonders about the logistics of carrying the young master, noting the inconvenience of the hold. The nanny tells the butler she cannot manhandle the boy in front of his friends, surprising her. The butler asks the young master if he is truly not a corpse while he insists he has friends.
The young master looks down, seemingly contemplating the butler's question about his nature.
The butler holds the young master as they both blink in confusion, questioning their own friendship.
The butler draws a diagram on the ground to define the criteria of being friends.
The butler uses a stick to draw on the ground while asking the young master about his feelings.
The butler continues to write on the ground, questioning whether his companions help him out.
The nanny and the young master watch as the butler concludes they are not friends. The young master insists they are friends because he helped them and they called him a friend. The butler tells the young master that his situation is what one would call a pushover.
The nanny is shocked and calls the term a vulgar word, asking the butler what it means.
The butler defines a pushover as an idiot who pours their hearts out to others.
The young master jumps up, shouting that he is absolutely not an idiot. The nanny flatters the young master, calling him the brightest demon, while the butler remains skeptical.
The butler teases the nanny, claiming her lies will cause a horn to grow on her forehead.
The nanny gasps in alarm, touching her forehead and insisting she was not lying. A table is set with a lavish feast, including lobster and chicken, waiting for the young master. A hand reaches out to dip a piece of food into a bowl of sauce at the table. The butler watches with a soft smile as the young master eats his meal with his hands. The nanny scolds the young master for using his hands to eat while the butler ignores her.
The white-haired butler offers a piece of meat to the young master, urging him to eat.
The young master grunts in visible frustration at the butler's persistence. The young master shouts in shock, realizing the butler has fed him a piece of broccoli.
The young master hurls the broccoli across the room in a dramatic display of culinary rebellion.
The butler calmly approaches the seated young master, addressing him as she prepares to intervene. The butler firmly places her hand on the young master's leg, asserting control during their meal. The butler warns the young master that being a picky eater will lead to foolishness. The young master demands to know the logic behind the butler's claim that avoiding vegetables is foolish. The young master looks at the floor with suspicion and annoyance, questioning the butler's strange lesson.
The nanny with a horn on her forehead cheers, agreeing that the young master should listen.
The butler observes the young master sitting alone, noting he only ate what he preferred. The young master reacts with panic and concern, worried that he might actually become stupid. The young master frantically commands his attendants to retrieve the discarded broccoli for him to eat.
The plate of broccoli sits isolated, awaiting the young master's reluctant consumption.
The young master chews the vegetable with a miserable expression, complaining about the bland taste.
The butler advises the young master to view the broccoli as a medicinal path toward intelligence.
The young master swallows the vegetable, appearing utterly defeated by the butler's persistent dietary demands.
The butler offers a sarcastic compliment, congratulating the young master on his newfound intellectual status.
The young master wonders aloud if his status as a smart person will persist into tomorrow. The butler points out that the young master previously failed to identify his true friends correctly.
The butler gestures toward the young master, who sits dejectedly while pondering his future meals.
The butler gently pats the young master on the head, offering a rare moment of affection. The young master recoils instantly, shouting at the butler to stop touching him. The young master leaps from his chair, declaring his intention to write a wire.
The butler smiles faintly, watching the young master as he prepares to compose his message.
The young master sits at a grand desk with the butler and the nanny observing nearby.
The young master writes with a quill, his hand moving across the parchment with focused intent.
The butler gazes at the writing, expressing internal surprise at her own ability to read it. The butler muses on the mystery of her literacy despite having lived long before alphabets existed. The butler stands with crossed arms, internally critiquing the young master's leisurely pace of writing. The butler observes the young master, noting the surprising eloquence of the words he is choosing. A close-up of the letter reveals the written threat of death, chilling in its simplicity. The young master asks the butler for the specific wording to describe dismemberment in his threat. The butler clarifies the phrasing for tearing off limbs, while the nanny reacts in visible horror. The young master smiles joyfully as he incorporates the violent phrasing into his letter. The butler reflects on the young master's eloquent but dark upbringing while watching him work. The young master declares he is finished and hands the completed letter to the butler.
The butler reads the letter, questioning if the young master intends to feed fingers to monsters.
The nanny lunges in protest, desperately trying to snatch the cruel letter away from the butler. The nanny expresses her moral outrage, gasping at the cruelty of the young master's written threats. The young master calmly states his intent to send the letter to a person named Lev. The nanny begs the young master not to send such a cruel letter to a friend. The young master snaps back, fiercely denying that Lev is a friend of his. The butler questions the identity of Lev, prompting the young master to label him a pushover. The butler inwardly scoffs at the idea of the young master being friends with a leech. The butler inspects the letter, pointing out a grammatical error in the young master's threatening prose. The butler instructs the young master on how to craft a more versatile and menacing threat. The young master looks up, tilting his head in confusion while asking the butler how to improve. The nanny screams in protest at the butler, demanding to know why she is helping him. The young master sits quietly, then reaches out to place his letter back on the desk. The butler points at the young master's letter while the nanny watches in the background. The nanny covers her face with her hands, clearly distressed that the young master sent the letter. The butler hands the letter to the young master, who holds it out to her on a silver tray. The nanny continues to hide her face in despair while the butler stands nearby holding the tray. The butler points at the nanny and tells her she should not leave a fight unprovoked, while the nanny argues about the danger of young Master Lev. The nanny exclaims in alarm, insisting that no one actually instigated a fight. The nanny looks horrified, questioning if the young master was the one who started it and worrying about his safety without his final awakening. A close-up shows the young master with his head bowed down, his expression hidden by his hair. The young master is surrounded by red energy as the nanny cries out that she did not mean for things to escalate this far. The butler questions if young Master Lev has already awakened, while the nanny frantically tells her not to use that word in front of him. The young master sits in his chair with his arms crossed, stating that Lev awakened 100 years ago and is an adult. The nanny looks concerned, insisting that the situation is not something that will end easily. The nanny shouts in shock, asking the butler if she was not worried about the Duke's son killing the young master. The nanny explains that she needs to share the truth about the demon world since the butler is unaware of its ways. The butler blinks and simply responds with a short, dismissive rejection. The butler explains that the demon world is not hereditary, and a stronger demon who eliminates the current king becomes the new ruler. The current demon king sits upon a throne flanked by 2 lit torches, looking down at his subjects. The nanny explains that elite nobles are targeting the young master because he has not yet reached his final, powerful awakening phase.
A close-up shows the butler's sharp, glowing eye as she listens intently.
The butler explains that the Demon King hires strong people like Miss Perry to protect the young master from the Duke's ambition. The nanny smiles brightly and tells the butler she understands her explanation.
The young master shouts at the butler, declaring that he knew she was behind this all along.
A close-up shows a hand resting firmly on a surface.
A floral background surrounds the butler as she vows to always stay by the young master's side.
The butler kneels before the young master, asking if they are together right now.
The butler tells the young master he should not be a weakling, but should instead force his enemies into submission. The butler kneels and promises to look out for him, provided he grants her permission to do so.
The young master stares wide-eyed as the butler rests a hand gently on his head.
A close-up shows the young master's hands clenching together tightly in his lap. The butler contemplates that while protection is her duty, the young master struggles with his dependence on her.
The butler reflects on how she had to ask for Julian's permission to protect such a fragile child.
The young master sits on his throne and tells the butler that he will allow her help because she keeps him from being a fool.
The nanny excitedly suggests informing the highness and calling the guards, but the young master immediately shuts her down.
A close-up captures the butler's focused, determined gaze. A messenger kneels before the Demon King, who sits on his throne inside a massive cathedral. The Demon King examines the young master's letter, noting how long it has been since his son wrote one. The Demon King listens as a subordinate notes that Miss Perry assisted the young master with the letter. The Demon King touches his face and smirks, remarking that he previously thought the butler was merely a gullible doll. The butler stands with a worried expression, noting that the letter gives the Duke a chance to move against the young master. The Demon King looks down at the letter and asks his advisor which human country is the most fearful. The Demon King is presented with the Soden Kingdom's crest, noting that their military makes them experts at hunting demons. The Demon King commands the immediate declaration of war against the Soden Kingdom.
The Demon King's advisor points out that they need a proper justification before the humans will dare to attack.
The Demon King coldly states that they simply need to provoke the kingdom into starting the fight themselves.
The advisor looks shocked, asking for clarification on how to proceed with such a plan.
The Demon King orders the advisor to obtain poison used against demons and plant it so it looks like the Soden Kingdom's work. The Demon King leans back, adding a command to release the poison onto the Duke's land as well. The advisor bows deeply, confirming he will send humans to carry out the poison plot. The advisor walks away from the throne room while the Demon King remains seated with his advisor in the distance. The advisor notes that if the Duke conquers the Soden Kingdom, it will grant him far too much power. A close-up of a golden demon eye stares intensely as a voice declares that neither side should win. The scene shifts to a bright garden where the nanny gestures toward the trees, introducing a game called Dungy Dungy. The nanny shows a list of common demon children's games to the butler and the young master, expressing her hope to play with him. The butler reacts with confusion and alarm at the nanny's sudden mention of having a wish. The nanny giggles, covering her mouth as she shyly admits she is just curious to see the young master's happy expression.
The young master looks visibly flustered, his face flushed with embarrassment as he listens to the conversation.
The young master clears his throat and tells the nanny that since he cannot touch him, she should be the one to do it. The nanny stands in the garden with the butler and the young master, who holds a paper while looking at her expectantly. A small blue fire spirit appears in the butler's hand and she calmly agrees to the request. The butler holds the paper up as the young master looks at her with an uneasy expression, asking what she is doing. The nanny holds the young master, and the text identifies the action as the first item on her wish list, Dungy Dungy. The butler reaches out with her hands, ready to lift the young master into the air. The butler shakes the young master up and down, causing him to cry out that he feels like throwing up. The young master shouts at the butler to stop, while the butler gazes at him calmly, seemingly confused by his reaction. The young master looks dejected as he asks if he is doing the game on.
The young master begins to vomit a rainbow-colored stream while the butler looks on and the nanny screams in shock.
The nanny yells at the butler that she is not making a cocktail while a fantasy image of a bartender appears behind her. The young master asks what a cocktail is, while the butler wonders if she is executing the move correctly. The butler holds a paper while the young master slumps in front of the nanny, who looks distressed. The butler examines the list, wondering if she should throw the young master higher, as she did when she first awakened him. The nanny labels the next item on her list as baby toss, while the young master looks at her hand in confusion. The young master is suddenly launched high into the blue sky with a cry of alarm. The young master flies through the air while both the butler and the nanny reach out toward him in horror. The butler looks up at the sky with a calm expression, while the nanny screams in terror. The butler reaches up and catches the young master midair, causing him to gasp for her to stop. The nanny screams at the butler that she has gone too far and that the boy is not a ball. The young master sits on the ground looking dazed, while the butler claims she only threw him lightly. The young master sits on the ground with a pout, his expression showing his frustration and displeasure. The nanny suggests they switch to playing tag and designates the butler as the tagger. The young master suggests that they should let the butler be the tagger, mentioning his desire for chocolates. The butler shouts to start the game, and the young master immediately begins running away across the lawn. A monstrous, shadowy figure looms over the young master, marking the third item on the nanny's wish list, play tag. The nanny calls out to the butler, who stands on the lawn, and asks why she caught the boy so quickly. The butler nods in agreement. The butler looks deep in thought, her expression focused and serious as she processes the game. The young master yells at the butler that she is the one who is actually bad at playing the game.
The nanny enthusiastically suggests they play hide-and-seek for the final round of their session.
The young master scoffs at the suggestion, complaining that the nanny will just play the game in a strange way again.
The nanny insists she will brief the butler properly this time, asking for confirmation from her.
The nanny instructs the others to close their eyes and count to 50, restricting the game to the castle garden. The butler begins the game by reciting the rock, paper, scissors chant as they prepare to hide. The young master stands alone in the garden, looking small as he waits for the others to hide.
The butler closes her eyes and begins to count aloud while the young master hides in the background.
A view of the garden shows the butler's feet as she walks, noting that there is nowhere to hide. The butler walks through the garden with a composed, elegant stride. The butler walks past a large leafy bush that is visibly shaking as if someone is hiding behind it.
The butler's eye narrows, suggesting she has spotted something suspicious near the bush.
The butler finishes counting to 50, her voice echoing in the quiet garden.
The butler holds up her hands, preparing to search for the young master.
The young master walks through the garden looking determined as he continues the game.
The young master spots his nanny hiding near a pillar and calls out to her. The nanny expresses surprise at being found, and the two decide to search for Perry. The young master realizes he has found Perry and reacts with a sudden start.
The nanny approaches the young master and asks if he has successfully located Miss Perry.
Perry appears from behind a wall of greenery and greets the nanny with surprise.
The young master shows clear distress, crying out for Leah as he trembles.
Leah arrives and reaches out toward the young master while he continues to sob.
The scene shifts to the castle under the moon, where Perry complains about being scolded by Leah.
Leah stands holding a massive, precarious stock of books on parenting and demon culture.
Perry sits on the floor organizing the pile of books while the young master watches.
The young master asks Perry if she is being punished for holding all those books.
Perry tells the young master not to worry about the books and to sleep instead.
Perry offers to sing the young master a lullaby to help him fall asleep.
The young master feels anxious, reaching out to grab Perry's arm to stop her. Perry asks the young master if he is feeling sleepy after their brief interaction.
A window slowly creaks open, letting in the night air and a soft, magical glow.
A will-o-wisp floats through the room near the open window, catching passing mosquitoes.
A gentle breeze blows through the curtains, creating a soft, wavering movement inside.
The moon shines brightly over the castle, bringing a rare sense of peace and quiet.
Perry puts on a pair of glasses and decides to use this leisure time for reading.
Perry studies the complex glowing formulas and magical diagrams floating from the open book.
The young master blinks while drifting off to sleep, whispering Perry's name in his dreams. The young master wakes up unexpectedly and tells Perry he is struggling to fall asleep.
The young master complains that he cannot find sleep and remains restless despite the hour.
Perry offers to read the young master a book to help him settle down.
The young master points to a specific book, claiming the other one seems uninteresting to him. Perry and the young master discuss the book about an adventure involving a princess and knight. Perry wonders aloud if the princess in the story fights her enemies with a sword. Perry flips through the pages of the book, observing the dense, ancient-looking text inside. Perry begins reciting the tale of a beautiful princess from a long time ago. The story depicts a romantic tale involving an ill-treated princess and a love-struck knight. Perry reads a passage, her expression shifting as she encounters a strange, unexpected plot turn. Perry's eyes widen in shock as she frantically flips through the pages of the book.
Perry slams the book shut in a panic, startling the young master sitting nearby.
Perry covers her face, blushing deeply as she realizes the book contains inappropriate adult content.
Perry insists that the young master go to sleep immediately, refusing to read any further.
The young master grows angry, shouting that he is not a child and demanding the story.
Perry tells the young master he is still a child because he cried earlier today. Perry brushes the young master's hair, telling him he must reach his awakening state to grow. Perry firmly commands the young master to go to sleep as he lies back down. The nanny suddenly peers into the room, watching as Perry hastily tries to hide something. Perry is caught by the nanny, who grabs her arm and questions what she is hiding.
The nanny asks Perry why she looks so flustered and what book she is holding.
Perry tries to deflect, claiming the book is a touching novel with very intricate details. The nanny asks why Perry would give such a specific book to the young master.
The nanny enthusiastically explains that the book is actually a bestseller in the demon realm.
The young master realizes the nanny is describing the same book Perry was reading.
The nanny becomes flustered, realizing she may have accidentally revealed the nature of the book.
Perry yells at the nanny to stop the young master from going on night adventures. Perry closes her eyes, exhausted, and asking the nanny to get rid of the book.
A maid enters the room carrying a large, precarious stack of books.
A hand reaches out toward the sleeping boy, prompting him to ask for more rest. The young boy sits up in bed, looking startled as the maid stands by. The maid comforts the boy, cradling him tenderly in her arms. The boy leans into the maid's embrace, appearing to accept her comfort.
The maid observes with satisfaction that the boy has grown accustomed to her presence.
The boy asks the maid how he can become an adult, but she admits she is unsure.
The boy questions the maid's logic, noting that she is already an adult herself.
The maid reflects on her short lifespan and recent transformation, denying she is a true adult.
The boy is surprised to learn that the maid is younger than he is. The boy swings his legs, pressing the maid for an explanation regarding her maturity.
The boy asks the maid if she actually desires to grow up into an adult.
The maid studies the boy's expression closely, silently contemplating his innocence. The maid internally notes that if the boy knew the book he had read, he would be different.
The boy looks at the maid and asks her to explain why.
The maid explains that her words mean he should feel embarrassed by his situation.
The boy reacts strongly, declaring that he feels completely humiliated by her assessment.
The boy expresses his frustration, lamenting that all his peers have already matured.
The boy grumbles that his former friends avoid him because they find his immaturity shameful.
The maid listens silently, mentally dismissing the boy's former acquaintances as unimportant.
The maid assures the boy that being a child is normal and suggests his friends were fake.
The boy asks the maid if it is possible for friends to be insincere.
The maid explains that fake friends abandon you during hardships, while true friends remain loyal.
The boy hangs his head, feeling dejected about his lack of genuine friendships.
The maid gently encourages the boy, suggesting he will make friends if he is kinder.
The boy yells at the maid, insisting that he is already a very kind person.
The maid continues to tend to the boy, advising that demons should not kill indiscriminately.
The boy asks if he is a bad demon for having no friends to turn to.
The maid smiles kindly at the boy, confirming his status as a misunderstood soul.
The boy ponders the maid's words, noting that even his rival has friends to rely on.
The boy asks the maid to identify what good qualities he possesses, if any. The maid considers the boy's character from her perspective, finding him adorable despite his temper.
The maid reflects on the potential danger of the boy sending her back to the spirit world.
The boy sits at the table, looking pensive and waiting for the maid's input. The maid attempts to engage the boy in play, but he coldly rejects her offer.
The boy glares at the maid, firmly repeating that she is not needed at this moment.
The maid recalls the boy's past volatility, noting how he has changed since she arrived.
The maid remembers the boy's former silence and his tendency to lash out at anyone.
The maid looks visibly startled as the boy's mood suddenly shifts toward aggression.
The maid gestures dramatically, asking if he plans to harm her even further. The maid covers her mouth, shaking with visible terror at the boy's dark threat.
The boy rests his chin in his hand, contemplating the memory of their first meeting.
A flashback shows the boy's past cruelty, where he harmed the maid for no reason.
The boy commands the maid to divulge everything she knows about his servant, Perry. The maid feigns ignorance, questioning how she could possibly know anything about the butler. The boy accuses the maid of reporting his private activities to a man named Henry. The maid trembles in fear, her eyes wide as she realizes she has been caught. The maid stammers, unable to find a coherent excuse to defend her past actions. The boy uses his powers to levitate the maid, demanding she speak the truth immediately.
The boy stares coldly at the struggling maid, asking if she truly needs her limbs to speak.
The woman with the horn coughs and struggles, desperately gasping that she will reveal the truth.
The young boy with horns demands an answer while shouting that Perry is a human-made doll. The horn-wearing woman explains that Perry has her own will and made a pact with the king. The woman with the horn continues to choke and struggle for air as her eyes well up. The young boy with horns uses magic to throw the woman against the floor with a thud. The horn-wearing woman coughs and questions if the boy is suspicious of the butler's true motives. The young boy with horns coldly denies the suspicion as the woman stares at him in disbelief.
The horn-wearing woman presses the boy for an explanation, demanding to know the reason for his actions.
A thought bubble describes Perry as often appearing vacant, as if she is drifting far away. Perry stands with her back to the viewer, her silver hair flowing as light feathers drift nearby. The young boy with horns sits in a room internalizing that Perry finds him cute.
The young boy with horns narrows his glowing eyes, deeply focused on a private internal resolution.
The young boy with horns resolves to adopt his behavior to whatever Perry likes to see. The young boy with horns instructs the nanny to keep their recent conversation a secret from Perry. The young boy with horns smiles, hoping to prove his goodness to Perry through his actions. Perry mutters in the castle corridor, annoyed that the young boys summoned her for something trivial. Perry knocks on the door and announces her presence to the young master, Julian. The young master, Julian, catches sight of Perry and calls out to her with sudden excitement. Perry stands in the doorway, confused by the intense joy the young master shows at her arrival. The young master, Julian, beams at Perry, radiating pure happiness as she watches him with concern. Perry feels lovely observing the pretty child smile, though she suspects he might be unwell. Perry catches the young master, Julian, as he leaps into her arms, apologizing for his behavior. The elf-like man sits at a desk, methodically writing a letter in the quiet study. Perry bursts into the study, carrying the young master, Julian, and declaring a serious problem. The elf-like man stands up abruptly, demanding to know what has happened to cause such alarm. Perry and the young master, Julian, inform the elf-like man that something is wrong with Julian. The young master, Julian, smiles brightly at the elf-like man to show him he is fine. The elf-like man reacts with utter shock, his glasses cracking as he stares at the pair. The elf-like man shouts for the king's presence, rushing out to retrieve him immediately. The young master, Julian, asks Perry if she finds him cute, pulling at her attention. Perry questions Julian's erratic behavior just as the windows of the room shatter completely.
A dark-clothed figure crashes through the window in a sudden, violent display of force. Perry and the young master Julian react in shock as the mysterious intruder lands before them.
A dark-haired, horned demon stands alongside the elf-like man, looking over the chaotic scene.
The dark-haired demon demands an explanation from the room's occupants while blue flames flicker nearby.
The dark-haired demon glares intensely as he surveys the room, his eyes sharp and focused.
The dark-haired demon roughly grabs a hooded attacker by the collar, lifting him off the ground. The dark-haired demon plucks a small, dark object from the intruder's mouth with his fingers.
The dark-haired demon inspects the small, mysterious object he retrieved from the attacker's mouth. The dark-haired demon orders the servants to imprison the survivors and dispose of the dead bodies.
Perry asks the dark-haired demon if the servants are truly capable of handling such a task. The elf-like man explains that the castle servants are as strong as knights, though inferior to Perry.
Perry watches as the servants efficiently clean up the bodies and debris left in the room. The elf-like man reassures Perry that the servants are reliable, and they both shrug at the situation.
A hand reaches out to cling to the sleeve of the elf-like man's clothing.
Perry looks down at the young master, Julian, who is tugging on her dress with a question. The young master, Julian, reaches out his arms, pleading with Perry to hold him once more.
The young master Julian warns Perry about the potential poison on him from the bat guy.
Perry lifts the young master Julian into a warm hug, comforting him despite his warnings.
The young master Julian tearfully admits to Perry that he was terrified she might die.
The white-haired woman swings a blade of magical energy, narrowly missing the small boy.
A sharp slice cuts through the air and a single word of refusal is voiced.
The young boy with small horns looks on with a wide-eyed, startled expression.
A shadowy silhouette reaches out as a desperate, echoing cry for Perry fills the space.
A magical circle marks the title of the story, The Demon King's Doll Butler.
The young boy. Two men observe the interaction, noting the boy's longing for a maternal figure, ignoring her.
The boy clings to the white-haired woman, emphatically declaring that she is not his mother.
A close-up reveals the young boy's face as he gives a determined, grumpy pout. The white-haired woman holds the young boy as onlookers claim ownership over her.
The two men watch the scene unfold, one appearing stunned and the other visibly troubled. Sweating nervously, the white-haired woman pleads with the boy not to look at her. The boy hugs the white-haired woman, asking for confirmation that she belongs to him.
The taller man with horns speaks, telling Julian that the woman remains his loyal butler. The boy's intense, golden eyes are captured in a brief moment of quiet focus. The white-haired woman firmly rejects the boy's claim as the two men look on.
The white-haired woman appears deeply embarrassed, asking the boy to tell Julian of her loyalty.
The white-haired woman sighs, remarking that it is easy for them to make such claims.
A brief glance passes between the white-haired woman and the small, clinging boy.
The tall man with horns tells the boy not to be so angry at her.
The white-haired woman questions who gave anyone the right to decide her true ownership.
The young boy beams with a bright, sunny expression while hugging the white-haired woman.
The two men watch in shock, confirming that the young boy is genuinely smiling.
The group agrees that this rare moment of the boy smiling warrants a national holiday.
The boy looks up at the white-haired woman as she resolves to reject his claims.
A soft, subtle grin appears on the boy's face, catching the woman's attention.
The white-haired woman holds the boy in a gentle, protective embrace amidst the flowers.
A flicker of concern or realization crosses the white-haired woman's eyes.
Walking down a dimly lit, purple-hued stone corridor, the white-haired woman and man talk.
The white-haired woman asks where they are headed as they walk through the dungeon.
They continue walking, and she confirms she is ready to interrogate the captured assassins.
The white-haired woman nods, noting that the intruders clearly targeted Julian rather than her. She reflects on the shocked expressions of the attackers and her own lack of knowledge.
The man with horns and perky ears warns her to cover her nose before entering. The white-haired woman observes that being a doll keeps the foul smells from affecting her.
She remarks on the state of the prisoners, noting many are barely considered alive. One of the prisoners hangs limp in his cell, looking completely defeated and broken.
The pair surveys the prisoners in the cells, confirming they sought to assassinate Julian.
The man with horns asks the white-haired woman if she understands the methods of torture.
The white-haired woman tilts her head, signaling her confusion or lack of such experience.
A brilliant blue flame ignites in her palm, showcasing her latent magical power. A mystical light reveals the core truth that all living beings possess a unique soul.
She explains that normally these souls depart when the physical body breathes its last breath.
She poses a haunting question about the fate of those who die in extreme suffering. A prisoner flinches in terror as he perceives the dark spiritual energy looming nearby.
Shadowy, monstrous spirits emerge from the darkness, shrieking as they terrorize the shackled prisoners.
One prisoner cries out in agony, his face twisted in tears as he begs for help.
The prisoner wails, begging for anyone to hear his desperate cries and save him.
The white-haired woman coldly explains that these spirits are the souls of his own victims.
The white-haired woman summons her power, threatening to make the prisoner regret his life. Morning light streams through a window, signaling the start of a new day. A small boy with red horns rubs his eyes and asks the woman where she has been. The white-haired woman explains she was in the dungeons, then asks why the boy is up so early. Standing before the prison cells, the woman states she was teaching bad demons a lesson, while the man notes she has begun a new chapter in the world of torture. As the woman places a bowl down, a voice asks if she killed someone, to which she calmly replies in the negative. The woman with teal hair and a red horn sniffs the air, wondering why it smells like blood.
A thought bubble appears as the white-haired woman wonders if the smell is truly that bad.
A thought bubble remarks that the smell is undeniably unpleasant.
The woman asks if the boy can wash up and eat breakfast by himself while she changes, but the boy adamantly refuses to leave her side.
The white-haired woman snorts as she contemplates the situation.
A view of the castle hall shows the woman walking toward a set of large doors as water drips into a basin. Standing in the hallway, the woman thinks about how Julian is likely waiting for her and reflects on their long time spent together.
The woman stands on the grand staircase, questioning internally if she has truly become attached to him. A floating thought bubble asks what the point is in becoming attached to Julian. As she stands on the stairs, a hand reaches out toward the white-haired woman. A blonde man whispers to the woman, greeting her and stating that they have finally met. The woman asks who he is, and the blonde man expresses surprise that she does not recognize him. The blonde man pulls the woman close, dancing with her as he asks if he may call her by her name. The woman slaps the blonde man's hand away and firmly repeats her question about his identity. The white-haired woman manifests a powerful, swirling aura of energy. The woman warns the blonde man that they are in the Demon King's castle and he must not use his powers recklessly. The blonde man expresses shock that the woman neutralized his energy with a single wave of her hand, while she coldly ignores him to focus on Julian's meal. The blonde man frantically asks if the woman is all right, questioning if her heart is racing, but she dismisses his concerns entirely. The blonde man sighs heavily while the woman stands calmly by his side. The woman walks away, prompting the blonde man to ask if she prefers women. A blonde woman smiles, remarking that she is always in the mood for someone like the woman Butler. The blonde woman stares at the white-haired woman, considering whether she should knock her unconscious despite her noble status.
The blonde woman brushes the white-haired woman's face, asking again if she may call her by her name.
The woman firmly says no and internally resolves to deal with the intruders before handling the repercussions. The white-haired woman uses her power to lift the blonde man and blonde woman into the air. The man with glasses and pointed ears runs toward the woman, shouting her title. The man with glasses pauses, confused, and asks the woman why she is holding those two demons. The woman tells the man to put them down and explain what happened as the two captives tumble to the floor. The man with glasses shows the woman a letter stating that all three captives gave the same confession.
The man with glasses and the woman stand together as she prepares to use her powers on the two captives, who flinch in terror.
The blonde man is kicked to the ground with a loud thud.
The man with glasses identifies the two intruders as Leon and Leah, the head maid and chamberlain, while poking the fallen blonde man.
The woman remarks that she has never seen them before and questions why they were not guarding the castle against the assassins. The blonde man mutters about how they were fine until blue monsters took them away, while the woman asks what they were just trying to do. The blonde man and woman laugh, admitting they wanted a special meal because eating human energy had become boring. The man with glasses kicks the blonde man while the woman flips through the pages of the letter. The woman holds the letter in her hands, reading its contents. The man with glasses pushes the blonde man's head down as he asks if the woman knows who Lord Ref is. The woman recalls a conversation where she learned Ref is the son of Duke Zerka, and the man with glasses wonders if the Duke was targeting Julian. The woman thinks to herself that the Duke likely does not have time for such schemes. Ravens fly over the dark, ominous silhouette of the castle as the woman notes the residents of the duchy have been dying in large numbers.
The woman looks at the letter, noting that Ref likely sent the assassins only to scare Julian, knowing a real attempt would fail.
The woman comments on the cowardice of Lord Ref. The woman feels a chill as she reads the letter, declaring that if Ref lacked the courage to fight, he should have stayed quiet instead of hiring assassins. Leon and Leah grumble about their predicament, wondering if they are strong enough to overpower Lord Ref. The silver-haired woman contemplates that while the assassins may be tough, their combined strength grants an advantage.
The silver-haired woman points to two blonde subordinates, informing Sir Henry they will be Julian's new guards.
The silver-haired woman assures Sir Henry, noting that Leon and Leah's presence makes the others redundant.
The silver-haired woman commands the two new guards to follow her as they approach the castle.
Young Master Julian, sporting small horns, maintains a stoic and cold expression.
Young Master Julian expresses disdain for the two new guards, but his attendant insists they must accompany them. The two guards jokingly tell the young master they will follow him around like silent shadows. Young Master Julian, visibly seething with dark energy, demands the guards leave his sight immediately. The two guards are swiftly swept away by a sudden, powerful gust of wind. The silver-haired woman checks on young Master Julian, asking if his moodiness is caused by hunger. The attendant points out that the young master's stomach has been growling, which he vehemently denies.
The silver-haired woman apologizes for asking a favor while he is hungry, noting a table nearby.
The silver-haired woman smiles warmly, asking if they can write one small letter before eating. Young Master Julian looks up at the silver-haired woman with a confused expression, asking about the letter. A view into a dark prison cell reveals the captured assassins who were sent by Lord Ref.
The silver-haired woman taps a blank piece of paper, asking the young master if he wants revenge.
Young Master Julian finishes his writing and the silver-haired woman prepares to review the document.
Young Master Julian asks the silver-haired woman if she is certain about sending such a letter.
The silver-haired woman stamps the envelope, dismissing the concerns about the previous attack on the master.
The male guard warns that people will surely realize what the young master is up to.
The silver-haired woman simply nods, acknowledging the potential risk of their plan. The silver-haired woman explains that demons awaken 3 times to reach their full potential.
A letter is dropped as the narrative explains the 100-year process of a demon's full awakening. The young master stands alone, pondering the dangerous reality of demon growth and power delays. The harsh landscape of a demonic world is shown, highlighting the danger of the current period.
The narrative suggests that the young master's safety has relied solely on his father's strength.
The silver-haired woman stares ahead, noting that the young master's safety is due to Cardell's power.
The attendant frets anxiously, worrying that the emperor would never approve of their current plan.
The silver-haired woman orders Leon to deliver the letter to Lord Ref using the shadows.
The male guard questions the silver-haired woman's decision, confused by her insistence on his participation. The silver-haired woman tells the attendant to stay behind and informs Sir Henry of their destination. The attendant stands alone in the room, looking visibly bewildered by the instructions she just received.
Dark chains wrap around the text, emphasizing that confrontation with Lord Ref is now inevitable.
The silver-haired woman stands protectively behind young Master Julian as ominous chains fill the screen.
The silver-haired woman leans toward young Master Julian, asking him for a serious promise. The silver-haired woman warns the young master not to use his powers, even if he faces death. Young Master Julian looks up at the woman, blinking in shock as he questions his own survival.
The silver-haired woman kneels before the young master, asking him if he truly trusts her.
Young Master Julian stares wide-eyed, confirming that he does indeed trust her implicitly. The silver-haired woman holds young Master Julian in her arms as they prepare for the trip.
The blonde guard teases the young master about how nice it is to have them around.
The group arrives at a grand estate where a figure awaits them with impatience. The young master hands a small, ornate box to the silver-haired woman, declaring it a gift. The silver-haired woman examines the golden box, questioning the nature of the gift.
The blonde guard appears touched and surprised that the young master would offer him a gift.
The silver-haired woman sharply reminds the blonde guard that the gift is for Lord Ref.
Young Master Julian identifies himself as the son of the demon king Cardell. A creaking sound echoes as the group arrives at the imposing gates of Lord Ref's castle.
The interior of the castle is revealed, with vibrant red flowers contrasting against the dark decor.
Lord Ref sits on a throne, waving his hand in a flamboyant and welcoming greeting.
A man with horns mocks young Master Julian, calling him a child and asking about his nanny.
The man asks if young Master Julian still kills everything, mocking him for failing to awaken. The silver-haired woman leans toward young Master Julian, reminding him of their previous conversation. The silver-haired woman gently pats young Master Julian's shoulder, offering him quiet reassurance. The silver-haired woman clarifies her role as butler while a text bubble mocks the young master. Young Master Julian looks away while a speech bubble calls him a troublemaker and critiques his guardian.
The horned man reclines on a sofa, casually asking the group to explain the bad news.
The silver-haired woman explains that they seek help following a mysterious attack on young Master Julian. The man smirks, questioning the silver-haired woman's claim that they are old friends of the master.
The silver-haired woman notes the man's violent past threats toward the master before presenting a gift.
The horned man questions the lack of a proper guard while the silver-haired woman claims strength. The horned man spits out his drink in laughter after hearing the silver-haired woman's odd claim. The silver-haired woman explains the gift is meant to soothe him after their previous letter.
The man toys with the box, sarcastically asking if the gift is meant to buy his silence. The silver-haired woman urges the man to open the box quickly, as it will spoil soon.
The man grumbles about the bother, warning he will demand a better gift if unsatisfied.
The silver-haired woman smiles, expressing her absolute certainty that the man will enjoy the gift. The man scoffs, his expression darkening with a mixture of annoyance and growing suspicion.
The man looks down, focused on the ornate box as he prepares to reveal its contents.
The man opens the box and a collection of dark beads tumbles out, confusing the man.
The silver-haired woman explains that the beads were salvaged from the gifts the man sent earlier.
The man twitches in realization while the silver-haired woman notes that most were already used. The man springs from his seat, shouting for his guards to seize the group immediately.
The silver-haired woman instructs Leon to lock the room down, prompting a nod from him. The guards react in panic as the doors slam shut, sealed by an intense magical force.
Young Master Julian stares intensely at the silver-haired woman, awaiting the next stage of their plan.
The silver-haired woman instructs young Master Julian to take a potion she has provided.
Young Master Julian drinks the potion in one swift, decisive gulp.
The silver-haired woman watches as young Master Julian gains the freedom to kill his enemies.
The silver-haired woman explains the function of the demonic power potion to a bespectacled aide.
The aide sternly warns the silver-haired woman not to even think about consuming the potion.
The silver-haired woman relents, telling the aide that she understands his concerns and agrees to stop.
Young Master Julian unleashes a violent magical strike, butchering the guards while demanding their deaths.
A guard falls lifeless to the ground, surrounded by a pooling mass of dark pod.
Young Master Julian stands amidst the carnage, his powerful aura sweeping over the fallen guards.
Dark energy swirls around young Master Julian as he stands over the remnants of his enemies.
The silver-haired woman smiles at a blonde woman, dismissing the bloody massacre as nothing special.
The silver-haired woman flinches with a hiccup, her expression momentarily shifting in surprise.
The horned man trembles in fear, curled on the floor while a dark energy surrounds him. Young Master Julian addresses Perry while guards lie dead across the floor of the room.
Young Master Julian wipes blood from his face, ordering that Ref be taken to the castle. The group walks along a bridge toward a castle under a dramatic, moody sunset sky.
The silver-haired woman and a man discuss the Duke's absence and the delay in the awakening. The group agrees that the Duke's presence would have been complicated for their current plans.
The horned man is carried away, lying limp and unconscious as the group makes their escape. The silver-haired woman glares at the unconscious man, questioning why he is behaving so strangely.
The silver-haired woman explains to the group that she used her own magic to neutralize him.
The castle looms under the full moon as a character screams in disbelief at the situation.
The silver-haired woman explains the events to the confused aide at the castle gates.
The silver-haired woman holds the young master, noting the blood on his cheek with a smile. A frantic aide in a suit gestures wildly, screaming for a doctor to help. The silver-haired butler stands near the young master, who claims he is not hurt despite the blood.
The young master looks solemn, flatly stating that he has killed them all.
A blonde guard shoves a dark-haired man aside while the silver-haired butler asks for an explanation.
The silver-haired butler looks at the defeated man on the ground, calling him a souvenir. The silver-haired butler thanks the young master for a water potion, shocking the aide, who confirms the master received it.
The aide yells in alarm, warning that the potion could strip the young master of his natural strength.
The silver-haired butler dismisses the danger, noting the young master's inherent demonic power, though the aide insists it remains unsafe.
The young master asks the silver-haired butler if he is in danger, looking up with wide, innocent eyes.
The silver-haired butler reassures the young master that he will be perfectly fine.
The silver-haired butler gestures calmly toward the young master while the aide continues to fret nearby. The young master smiles, happy that there is no problem with the situation.
The silver-haired butler shouts in concern, warning the young master against drinking substances given by others.
The young master defends the gift, stating it was given to him by Perry as a moonlit castle appears.
The silver-haired butler looks puzzled, questioning the young master's statement.
The silver-haired butler reflects that it is acceptable because the item originated from Perry.
The silver-haired butler looks down at the young master, who gazes back in quiet contemplation.
The silver-haired butler's eye twitches, betraying a sense of intense internal focus.
The silver-haired butler stands dizzily, holding his head as confusion washes over him.
A majestic, ornate hall stands grand and silent, lit by an ethereal light.
The silver-haired butler explains he has magically suppressed Ref while Ref lies defeated, asking what transpired.
The silver-haired butler sighs, explaining he must understand the situation, while the blonde guard carries the limp Ref.
The silver-haired butler touches his chin, nonchalantly claiming that the events were not particularly serious.
The silver-haired butler reveals that the young master absorbed all the demonic energy within the castle. The silver-haired butler collapses to his knees in shock, realizing the gravity of the news. The silver-haired butler shrugs it off as a simple squabble, while the aide despairs in the background. The silver-haired butler looks exhausted, muttering that he must attend to more pressing adult matters. The silver-haired butler gasps in pain as a splatter of dark blood appears behind him.
The young master stands alone, looking down at his blood-stained hand as a drop falls.
A voice shouts for the young master, echoing through the grand, deserted home. The silver-haired butler pulls the young master into a protective embrace, pleading for him to look at him.
The silver-haired butler stares ahead with a hazy, unfocused expression as his vision blurs.
The young master whispers the name of the silver-haired butler, his gaze intense and shadowed.
A powerful, swirling vortex of red energy erupts around the silver-haired butler and the young master. The silver-haired butler cries out in pain as the magical energy lashes out against him. The silver-haired butler reaches out with a desperate, outstretched hand toward the swirling light. A bright flash of magical energy consumes the silver-haired butler in the dark woods under the moonlight.
The silver-haired butler gestures toward the glowing lake, urgently ordering the young master to be brought closer.
A splash ripples the surface of the dark, glowing water. The young master floats serenely on the water surface, his eyes closed in a peaceful state. The silver-haired butler and the aide stand by the water, questioning the strange phenomenon.
The silver-haired butler identifies the body of water as the legendary Lake of Awakening.
The silver-haired butler realizes the profound implications of what he is witnessing.
The silver-haired butler watches as the young master remains submerged, confirming his second awakening has commenced.
A caption notes that an entire week has passed since the awakening began.
The silver-haired butler stares forward as a woman with a horn cheerfully approaches him with a bag.
The woman explains the different lakes associated with demonic powers, chatting happily while the silver-haired butler remains silent.
The silver-haired butler listens intently, confused as to why the young master is behaving so oddly.
The young master stands in the light, his back turned as he exudes a calm, mystical aura. The woman offers the silver-haired butler some food from her bag, urging him to meet. The story begins with a delicious spread of turkey meat pie and broccoli stew.
A silver-haired butler, Perry, looks on as the young master, Julian, demands she eat.
The title screen introduces the story of the Demon King's doll butler.
Perry is urged to try the broccoli with a demand that she eat more.
Julian insists that Perry must try the broccoli, despite her reminder that she is a doll.
Julian glares intensely, firmly commanding that Perry eat the vegetable. After Julian's insistence, Perry eats the broccoli and Julian asks how it tastes.
Perry spits the broccoli out, bluntly stating that it tastes terrible.
When Julian asks why she refuses to eat it, Perry reiterates that it tastes bad.
Julian warns Perry that refusing vegetables will turn her into a pushover like he once was. Perry tells Julian that he will still have to eat broccoli even after he awakens. Julian chews while Perry smiles, promising a treat from the pastry chef for his effort.
Julian stares intensely, implying he wants something other than a simple treat.
Julian expresses his desire to eat every single meal and snack with Perry from now on. Perry and an aide stand by a mysterious lake, deep in conversation about the future. The aide asks Perry if Julian will forget about her after his upcoming awakening. Perry explains that memories remain intact, and the second awakening happens to everyone, eventually. Perry contemplates an adult Julian, wondering what his future will look like.
The aide speculates on Julian's future height, comparing him to the majesty of an adult.
Perry imagines Julian with facial hair and is visibly disturbed by the strange thought. Perry reminisces about the first time Julian smiled and wishes she had captured it. Perry laments that she should have had an artist document every detail of him. Perry looks away when Julian asks her to eat more, her expression becoming pensive.
A steaming bowl of vegetable soup is presented, filling the air with a warm scent. Perry takes a bite of the vegetable soup, grimacing at the terrible taste.
A blonde man with a friendly grin approaches, greeting Perry with a cheerful wave.
Perry notes that 3 people have been taking turns visiting her at the estate recently. The blonde man admires the piles of books, identifying them as Leah's collection. Perry notes that Leah's taste in literature is quite juvenile and wonders if she gossips. The blonde man reveals he was banned from the underground dungeon for draining Ref's energy. Perry reacts with surprise upon learning that the man has been draining Lord Ref's energy.
The blonde man nonchalantly claims that a meal is just a meal, regardless of the source.
Perry glares in annoyance, prompting the blonde man to quickly claim he was just joking.
Perry expresses her concern that she's been overly kind to Julian lately.
The blonde man tries to comfort Perry, assuring her that Julian is doing just fine. Perry remains silent, deeply conflicted about the path ahead and the boy's future. A night sky appears, reflecting Perry's inner fears about Julian's future and her own failure. Perry continues to spiral, fearing she will be forgotten as Julian grows into a man.
Perry reflects on why she made Julian absorb the demonic energy despite her deep affection.
Perry stands near the lake, feeling the weight of her choice as the night deepens.
A mysterious voice commands silence as the group finally arrives at the Black Lake.
An armored knight steps forward, ordering his forces to raise their spears for the attack.
The knights gather in force, determined to kill the son of the Demon King now.
A knight notices a strange blue flame hovering in the air and stops in confusion.
The knights are startled as a figure walks toward them, demanding to know who goes there.
Perry stands before the army, calmly asking what they intend to do to Julian.
The knights laugh, mocking Perry for being the only guard despite her lack of aura. The knights initiate their assault, thrusting their spears toward Perry in the moonlight.
Perry summons a blue flame, asking the army to identify themselves before the battle begins.
A knight rushes forward to strike, but Perry grabs him by the throat, stopping him. A silver-haired woman grips the throat of a knight, questioning his intentions toward Julian.
A full moon illuminates the dark woods where the battle has taken place. Several armored knights lie defeated and motionless on the ground amidst the trees.
A single trembling knight stares ahead in shock, overwhelmed by the sight of the carnage.
The silver-haired woman hands the trembling knight a glowing ring, ordering him to deliver it. The knight, sitting on the ground, stares up in terror and asks the woman who she is.
The silver-haired woman wipes blood from her face, calmly identifying herself simply as a butler.
A message arrives at Padel Castle, announcing that a knight has returned from the lake. A man with horns looks up, confused by the singular reference to the returning knight. A door creaks open in the dark, signaling an arrival at the grand study. The horned man commands the trembling knight and his aide to provide a report. The horned man waits at his desk as the knight approaches to deliver the news. The horned man's eye twitches, showing a flicker of intense rage and agitation.
The horned man slams his desk, furious that an unarmed boy escaped and his knights died.
The trembling knight fumbles with his gear, trying to produce an item for the man.
The knight presents a glowing ring to the horned man, causing a bright green gleam.
The horned man recognizes the ring as belonging to the captain of the guard.
The Horned Man wonders who could be responsible and notes she called herself a butler.
The Horned Man expresses skepticism, recalling only one butler at the Demon King's castle.
The Horned Man notes the night is likely a warning and observes his visible fear. A memory flash reveals a fallen man in a gold-trimmed uniform lying in blood.
The Horned Man recalls a scene where all the servants in the room were slaughtered.
The Horned Man stares into the distance, seething at the name of the Demon King Cardell.
The Horned Man's aide asks if they should dispatch another order of knights to attack.
The Horned Man denies the request, demanding a full investigation into this mysterious new butler.
The Horned Man gestures toward the two subordinates, demanding a physical description of the woman.
The knight describes a silver-haired woman with light green eyes who is difficult to see. The knight confirms her name is Perry, leaving the Horned Man deep in thought.
The knight reports that she commanded blue flames that changed shape at her well.
The Horned Man is struck by the fact that he sensed no demonic energy from her.
The Horned Man ponders if this implies she is not a demon, which seems impossible. The Horned Man is startled by a sudden, ominous thought, his eyes widening in alarm.
The Horned Man asks in shock if she is a dragon, but immediately dismisses it.
The knight and the aide are visibly unnerved by the suggestion of a dragon.
The Horned Man notes that demons and dragons have been ancient, bitter archenemies.
The Horned Man considers the implications of the Demon King Cardell making such an alliance.
The Horned Man slams his hand on the desk, cursing the Demon King's reckless insanity.
The Horned Man orders an emergency meeting of all the Demon Dukes immediately.
The aide asks about the Horned Man's plan, noting the potential breach of territory.
The Horned Man realizes this intrusion into their world is enough to challenge his throne.
Perry stands in a sunny field discussing the previous night's events with a blonde man. The blonde man is shocked as Perry admits she killed all the attacking knights.
Perry reaffirms that she killed them all because they were trying to hurt Julian.
Perry looks at the lake, noting that Julian cannot use his powers while currently awakening.
Perry notes that Julian was able to start his second awakening because of her assistance.
Perry and the blonde man observe the lake, discussing the rules of the sacred site. Perry coldly reiterates her satisfaction with having eliminated all the knights who approached. Perry commands the blonde man to ban everyone from the lake except for their group.
Perry threatens that any demon who dares to enter this restricted area will be killed. The blonde man shudders, nervously asking if she truly intends to kill every intruder. A floating blue wisp inquires about the identity of the mysterious beings present.
Perry clarifies to the blonde man that she is a doll created by human sorceress.
The blonde man compliments Perry's beauty, noting her creators clearly had a refined aesthetic sense.
Perry responds to the blonde man's advances by firmly grabbing him by the throat.
Perry threatens the struggling blonde man with a beating, causing him to retract his words.
A powerful magical surge radiates as Perry continues to tighten her grip on the man. Perry reacts in shock, sensing a sudden change in the atmosphere around her. The blonde man gasps and wheezes as Perry refuses to release her hold on him.
A figure emerges from the water, causing a splash as he steps onto the shore.
Narrative text describes the figure's black hair, golden eyes, and small, hand-sized horns.
The figure with horns stands before Perry and the blonde man, looking poised and regal.
The figure, now taller and older, steps forward while calling out to Perry by name.
Julian pulls Perry into a warm, affectionate embrace, marking his transition after the awakening.
Julian stares intently at Perry, his intense gaze locking onto her as they remain close.
Perry gazes up at the transformed Julian, offering her sincere congratulations on his successful awakening.
Julian questions Perry and the blonde man regarding the nature of their previous interaction.
Perry strikes the blonde man on the head, scolding him to maintain proper respect.
Julian appears unimpressed and uninterested as he listens to the exchange between them. A sudden burst of blue flame erupts, drawing the attention of Julian, Perry, and the blonde man. Julian looks toward the flames, curiously asking Perry what those creatures are. Perry explains to Julian that they are intruders captured by the fire goblins she released.
Julian's eyes flare with a dark, intense rage as he glares at the helpless intruders. A wave of ominous red energy surges around Julian as he stands above the defeated captives.
Perry watches in silent concern as Julian's intimidating power begins to manifest.
Julian effortlessly lifts a struggling armored intruder into the air with one hand.
Julian commands the intruders to inform their masters that he has successfully completed his awakening.
The ominous energy culminates in a dark screen bearing a message of his completed evolution. Julian orders the blonde man to dispose of the bodies of the defeated enemies.
Perry looks on as the blonde man, identified as Leon, kneels obediently before Julian.
Leon happily accepts the order, cheering as he prepares to carry out the master's bidding.
Leon looks up at Julian, nervously asking for confirmation regarding the cleanup of the corpses. Leon glances at Perry, expressing his clear fear of her superior strength and intensity. Leon notices Julian's cold look and quickly flees the scene, shouting his goodbyes in terror. Julian turns to Perry, asking her why she chose to act that way toward Leon.
Perry replies that she acted because she is both stronger and more competent than him.
Julian frowns, telling Perry he dislikes her touching anyone else because she is his.
Julian emphasizes that Perry belongs solely to him, leaving her silent and observant.
Perry warns Julian that he should not be so possessive, regardless of his status. Julian turns away, coldly denying that he is being possessive of his butler.
Perry smiles to herself, noting that Julian hasn't changed despite his transformation.
Julian gently pats Perry's head, establishing a quiet, intimate moment between them.
Perry tells Julian that he must learn to treat his future demon queen with respect. Julian looks over a dark, barren landscape, questioning the necessity of a demon queen. Perry gently explains that, regardless of his current desires, he will eventually fall in love.
Julian pulls Perry closer, declaring that she is the only person he will ever need.
Julian and Perry hold hands, their connection deepening in the quiet forested tenor.
Julian and Perry stand together in the woods, the gravity of their bond evident.
Perry reminds Julian that affection is distinct from the complexity of true love. Julian gazes into the distance, reflecting on his deep, long-standing appreciation for Perry's presence. A flashback shows Perry holding the young Julian, highlighting how she alone reached him.
The screen displays a dark, moody background with a singular bubble questioning the nature of attachment.
Julian, with his horns visible, leans toward Perry and asks if he can love her.
Perry stands in silence, the emotional weight of his question reflected in her expression.
Julian holds a quill over paper, pausing as he prepares to address his father.
Julian asks his father to define love while standing in the ornate, opulent Ossex.
The father, with dark hair and horns, scoffs while noting his son has become a philosopher.
The father explains that love is a feeling for one's other half and future children.
Julian asks his father for clarification, questioning if love is different from simply liking something.
The father confirms the distinction, while Cardell, the silver-haired man, questions Julian's feelings for Perry.
Julian insists that he wants Perry by his side because she belongs to him alone.
The father urges Julian to understand the difference between true love and mere possessive attachment.
The father, still seated, points out Julian's immaturity and asks if he understands Perry's purpose.
Julian stares intensely, his golden eyes narrowed as he processes his father's cryptic words. A distant view shows Perry standing outside the large office doors, questioning the oddity of her role.
Julian taps his desk, looking toward his father while they continue their tense private conversation. Julian experiences a sudden chill, recalling a haunting moment where Perry expressed a desire to die.
Perry, outside the door, wonders about Julian's delay, noting that she is far too strong.
The father looks on with a smug, contemplative expression as he gauges Julian's reaction.
The father accuses Julian of maintaining an insolent gaze, demanding he stop changing the subject.
The father gestures toward Julian, frustrated that his son fails to grasp the severity of his situation.
Julian stands rigid in the center of the office, hearing his father's claim about his obsession. Julian flips through a document while the father explains that the object of his affection came to die.
The father leans back with a satisfied smirk, asking Julian what he thinks of the situation. Julian's expression darkens as he asks if he should end her life, his hand clenching tightly.
The father asks if Julian is disappointed by her, challenging his son's lingering emotional connection. Julian turns away, staring into the room as he quietly denies feeling any disappointment.
Cardell looks on, sweating nervously as he asks Julian what he intends to do with her.
Julian gazes forward with resolve, repeating his firm declaration that Perry belongs to him. Julian walks away from the conversation, his movement marked by a sudden, swift shift.
Cardell stands in the office, looking unsettled as the doors behind him slam shut. The father eyes him closely, asking what his son's behavior is if not pure obsession.
Perry waits patiently by the entrance, her expression calm as she remains poised near the doors.
A flashback shows Julian manifesting terrifying, destructive energy, a power visible to all around him.
Perry contemplates her situation, wondering if Julian could send her to the spiritual world now. A door creaks open and Julian exits, finding Perry waiting for him in the hallway.
Julian steps out of the office to find Perry, who asks him about his travel plans.
Perry nods in response to Julian's brief mention of their upcoming journey.
Perry's eyes widen in realization as she stares, processing the gravity of their situation.
Julian stares back with a somber expression, noting the trip must wait for his awakening.
Perry asks about their travel party, her face illuminated by the warm light of the hall.
Perry asks who will be joining them, looking directly at Julian for an answer. Perry looks surprised and concerned to learn that they have not yet finalized their plans. Perry gestures toward the office, suggesting she should speak with someone to get answers.
Cardell adjusts his glasses, announcing that the king has finally chosen Julian's travel attendants. Cardell informs them that Perry and Leon are to join Julian on his upcoming trip. Julian glares intensely upon hearing that Leon will be accompanying them on their travels.
Cardell prepares to deliver one final, crucial message from the king to the two of them. The father smiles slyly, his hand resting near his face as he prepares to speak.
Julian twitches slightly, reacting to the father's warning that he must act in moderation.
Cardell bows formally, signaling his departure and leaving Julian and Perry in the hall.
Julian asks Perry when they are leaving, to which she responds within a few vows. Perry asks where Julian is going, and he replies he is going to find Leon. Perry asks Julian if he wants her to ask Butler Henry to inform him instead.
Perry suggests they should go say goodbye to Anna before they depart the castle.
Julian thinks Perry likely does not know he finished his awakening, then dismisses the idea. Perry suggests Julian should try to be friendlier with the other demons in the kingdom.
Perry expresses her worry that Julian will not be able to find his aid.
Julian grabs Perry's hand and commands her to come with him to the castle.
A crowd outside the castle cheers, welcoming Julian and Perry back upon their return.
Julian and Perry walk hand in hand through the castle corridors as they arrive back. Perry tells Julian to let go of her hand while they are in the hall.
Julian ignores her request and asks Perry what kind of things she likes to have.
Perry tells Julian she has no interest in gems or jewelry after he offers them.
Julian asks if Perry likes broccoli, and she confirms that she does not like it.
Perry asks Julian why he keeps pestering her with so many questions about her preferences.
Julian stands with his back to Perry, confessing he wants to keep her from leaving.
Perry looks confused and asks Julian for pardon, unsure of what he just said.
Julian tells Perry that if he fills the castle with her favorite things, she might stay.
Perry tells Julian she is not going anywhere, assuring him of her presence and loyalty.
Julian mumbles, calling Perry a liar, clearly not fully convinced by her simple reassurance.
Perry leans in close to Julian, questioning why he is being so persistent with her.
Julian asks Perry when she will make a promise to him, looking at her expectantly.
Julian commands Perry to promise him right now that she will never leave his side.
Julian and Perry stand together in the room as she prepares to give her word.
Perry looks at Julian with wide eyes, seemingly caught off guard by his intense demand.
Perry reaches out and touches Julian's lip, a quiet moment of intimacy between the two.
An official reports to the king that the Demon Dukes are currently on the move.
The king reads a report, wondering why the Dukes have been investigating Butler Perry's past.
An official sweating nervously tells the king he was unable to find more information out.
The king tells the officials he does not understand but expects them to discuss things.
A flashback shows Julian as a boy standing alone near the ruins of a castle.
The king tells the room their objective is met and to investigate the doll's focus.
The official bows to the king as he prepares to depart from the king's study.
An aide asks the king if he is feeling all right, noting the creak of the door.
The aide asks the king if it is safe to send Perry on a tray.
The king sips tea and remains silent, seemingly deep in thought about the king's journey. The king worries that Perry might be a hindrance to Julian's difficult upcoming journey. The aide worries about Julian's explicit feelings for Perry while he fidgets nervously about.
The king places his teacup down and argues that those feelings are a reason.
The aide notes that while they are in danger, it might be better without Julian. The king smiles and remarks that he highly doubts Julian would ever agree to that.
The king admits he cannot protect Julian forever, acknowledging that he is all grown up.
The aide pushes up his glasses, arguing that Julian still needs protection after his awakening. The king scoffs and remarks that the doll is the one needing protection, not Julian.
Perry hits a blonde man on the head while the king watches them from afar.
The king says his son could easily destroy the doll at any time he wishes. The aide asks the king in shock if he intends for Julian to kill Perry.
The king remarks that it would be a huge relief if he let her go.
The king sighs and remarks that raising children is truly an incredibly difficult, thankless task.
Julian bites his finger while standing near Perry, a strange habit for a new king.
A small, glowing, magical flame ignites on a fingertip as a voice demands a soul oath.
Perry, with long white hair and gold eyes, looks toward the speaker in confusion.
Julian, the boy with red horns, looks at Perry and specifies that the oath is never to leave him.
Perry stares intently into Julian's golden eyes, creating a moment of charged silence between them.
Julian's golden eyes are shown in a close-up as he addresses Barry.
The camera pans across the towering spires of the royal castle during a golden sunset. Perry turns to Julian, struggling to find the right words to address him.
Perry tells Julian she does not want to swear the oath he is asking for.
Julian stares at Perry, clearly taken aback by her sudden refusal to comply.
Perry clarifies that she refuses to swear that specific oath to him.
Julian expresses shock, noting that he has never heard Perry refuse him anything before.
Julian tugs at Perry's hand as he asks her if she really means her refusal. Julian stares at Perry, remarking that her refusal feels much more unpleasant than he expected. Julian dismisses her previous response as unpleasant, insisting that the oath must be on her soul.
Perry looks at Julian, insisting that there are many things in life more important than an oath.
Perry stands in her room, telling Julian she is no longer the child who failed to awaken. Julian stands flustered in the middle of his room, questioning why Perry is acting this way.
Perry knocks on the door, telling Julian she has brought a suitcase and money for his trip.
A pile of gold coins sparkles brightly, indicating the wealth brought for the journey.
Perry holds a bag of money while Julian, with crossed arms, remains focused on her.
Julian interrupts the conversation, stating that the trip is not the most important matter right now.
Perry fumbles with her clothing, remarking that they might have to leave as early as tomorrow.
Julian relents, telling Perry that she can always swear the soul oath at a later time.
Perry stands by the suitcase, internally wondering why Julian is staring at her and if she raised him poorly.
Julian stands up, telling Perry that if she is finished packing, they should leave now.
Julian glances back at Perry, stating they are going to meet an old friend. A heavy dungeon door creaks open, revealing a set of dark stone steps leading into the depths.
A prisoner with horns sits in the dark, chained cell and reacts in surprise to the noise.
The prisoner lashes out, shouting that he should be released and warning of his father's wrath.
Julian stares at the prisoner, coldly asking what his father could possibly do now that he has lost his title.
The prisoner flinches in the dark, looking up at his visitors and asking who they are.
The prisoner recognizes Julian, asking him directly if he is the one standing before him.
Julian's intense, glowing eyes are shown as he fixates on the prisoner, calling him Ref.
Julian kneels before the prisoner, threatening to gouge out his eyes if he looks at Perry again.
The prisoner looks at Perry, confused, while she stands by with her arms crossed.
Julian coldly reminds the prisoner that he just threatened to rip his eyes out.
Julian slashes the prisoner with dark energy, causing him to cry out in sudden agony.
The prisoner clutches his chest in pain, begging to know what his captors want from him. Julian looks down at the prisoner, questioning his own motives while Perry watches from behind.
Julian shrugs, smiling as he tells the prisoner he has no specific goal and just came to visit.
The prisoner stares in disbelief as Julian expresses satisfaction that Ref cannot find him.
The prisoner asks what Julian means, looking terrified as the reality of his situation sets in.
Perry looks at Julian as he addresses her, and she confirms she is listening to his command.
A dark, ominous message floats in the air, granting the Night Witches permission to enter the dungeon.
Julian grins, remarking that it would be a shame to waste such a fine snack.
The prisoner rattles his chains and begs for help as Julian and Perry walk away.
The prisoner cries out, pleading with Julian to remember their past friendship.
Julian walks away from the cell, his shoes clicking against the cold stone floor.
Julian leans into the prisoner's space, looming over him with an intimidating expression.
Julian reflects that Perry taught him that being a pushover is not the same as being a friend.
Julian sits with a smug expression as Perry stands watchfully behind him in the dungeon.
A bubble notes curiosity about the outcome once the Night Witches drain a demon's energy.
The scene shifts to the exterior of the castle under the moon, asking about dungeon access.
An official confirms the request for the Night Witches to enter the dungeon for His Majesty.
Julian rests his chin on his hand, looking contemplative as he touches his lip.
A slap is heard as Perry strikes a man for his comment, while another man looks on.
Wine is poured into a glass as an unknown speaker asks what is happening. The narrative explains that Demon Duke Shurka is searching the kingdom for his son, Ref.
Julian scoffs, calling the unseen Duke a tenacious bastard while looking off to the side.
Perry strikes the men again, scolding them that the wine mentioned is not sweet. The men squabble over why they were hit while Julian watches them with a wine glass.
Julian remarks that the men are very close for childhood friends, noting his own past friendships.
One of the men expresses irritation, denying that they are close at all to Julian. Julian dismisses the issue, suggesting they let Duke Shurka do whatever he wants to know. The men worry that their involvement in bringing Ref to the castle is widely known. Julian pours more wine, coldly asking exactly when Shurka entered the Demon Kingdom.
A man reports that Shurka is alone, likely because Julian and Perry killed his guards.
Julian tells his subordinates that there is something important he needs them to do. Julian commands Henry to keep him in the castle, noting that Perry is the key.
Julian orders the men to start spreading specific rumors throughout the kingdom for his purposes.
The subordinates look confused, asking Julian exactly what kind of rumors he expects them to spread. Julian commands them to spread lies about Ruff being near death and in terrible condition. The subordinates warn that this will draw Shurka to the castle, but Julian remains unmoved. Julian demands they spread rumors even crueler than those regarding the Night Witches themselves. Wine is poured once more into a glass, marking a quiet moment in the room. A man warns Julian that drinking too much wine is detrimental to his overall health. A thought bubble expresses the speaker's inability to stop thinking about a woman named Julia. Julian sits alone in a dark room, looking down while holding his glass of wine.
A cloud-shaped bubble questions the point of swearing on one's soul amidst constant incidents.
The sun rises over the castle, casting a bright and serene light over the grounds.
Perry stands before a large, ornate wooden door, noting it is her first time waking Julian. Perry hesitates at the door, wondering if she can still toss Julian around as she used to. Perry enters the room and sees Julian standing there, causing her to stop in surprise. Julian smiles at Perry, asking her if his presence in the room is strange. Julian gestures for Perry to come into the room, maintaining his calm, friendly demeanor.
A voice greets Perry happily, calling her Madam Butler and wishing her a good morning. Perry stares blankly, clearly taken aback by the sudden greeting she just received.
A woman named Anna is buried under a large stack of clothing, asking what is wrong. Perry notes Anna's predicament and explains she is clearing out Julian's old pre-awakening clothes. Julian stands in his room, asking Perry why she has not yet washed his face.
Anna laughs, telling Perry that Julian has been waiting for her to arrive for ages.
Julian stares intently at Perry as she stands near him, creating a tense, quiet moment.
Julian touches a wash basin, noting that the sensation of being washed no longer hurts him. Perry wipes Julian's face with a cloth, asking him to clarify what he wet. Perry looks closely at Julian, observing him with a focused and analytical expression.
Perry wonders internally if Julian's skin has become tougher as a result of his awakening.
Perry pinches and stretches Julian's cheeks to test his skin while he looks on curiously.
Perry gasps in realization, staring at Julian as she processes the physical change in him.
Perry pulls away while Julian notes that he is clearly no longer a small child.
Julian beams with a bright, satisfied smile, looking completely happy in Perry's presence. Julian asks Perry to fetch his breakfast, and she questions if he will go himself.
Julian notes it is busy outside due to his banquet and decides to avoid it.
Perry observes that Julian sounds like an adult now, marking a shift in their dynamic. A spread of fine dishes is presented for the upcoming celebratory banquet. Guests and staff gather in the grand bustling hall for the Anant. The atmosphere in the castle is lively and busy as preparations for the banquet conclude.
A pair of polished shoes steps onto the grand staircase, signaling an arrival. The Demon King stands at the top of the stairs, inviting everyone to celebrate Julian's awakening.
Perry stands amongst the crowd of demons and staff as they toast to the occasion. Perry glances around the room, noting the chatter and murmurings of the crowd. A demon maid happily offers food to Perry, who declines while wondering who called her name.
A hand reaches out to grab Perry's shoulder.
Julian smiles and offers a piece of food to Perry, insisting that she tried.
Julian firmly commands Perry to eat, dismissing her initial hesitation.
Perry complies, eating the food, while Julian acknowledges her agreement.
Perry warns Julian not to drink too quickly, fearing he might get drunk.
A demon interrupts, questioning why one would drink if not to get drunk.
A drunken demon offers Julian more wine, noting he is an adult now. Julian reluctantly agrees.
Julian commands the demon to pour him a glass, causing the onlookers to gasp.
Demon guests rush to pour drinks for Julian while Perry observes his newfound maturity. Perry encounters Butler Henry in the rowdy hall and asks for his assistance.
Perry asks Butler Henry to stop Julian from drinking, but he sighs at the futility.
Julian continues to socialize and drink, surrounded by laughing and chatting demons.
Perry tries to intervene, but the crowd ignores her, calling out to her instead.
A crowd of demons pressures Perry to drink, forcing her to realize the situation.
Perry grabs a nearby wooden barrel, fed up with the surrounding demons.
Perry consumes the contents of the barrel in a single rapid gulp. Perry tosses the empty wooden barrel aside with a casual flick.
The crowd of demons stares in shock as the barrel clunks and rolls across the floor.
Perry asks everyone to enjoy the rest of their night as Julian grabs her arm.
A cool breeze blows through the night sky, set against a bright full moon.
Julian asks Perry if she is all right, to which she replies by asking the same.
Perry rests her head in her hand, remarking that she feels like a doll.
Julian turns toward Perry, his expression shifting as he listens to her words. A close-up reveals Julian's golden eyes as he softly tells Perry that he knows. Julian and Perry turn toward each other on the balcony under the moonlight. Julian tenderly touches Perry's face, telling her he constantly worries about her. Julian pulls Perry into an intimate embrace, confessing his deep concern for her well-being. Julian and Perry share a quiet, moonlit hug on the balcony.
Perry suggests Julian get fresh air to sober up, but he denies being that type.
Julian questions if his father's claim about him being too attached to Perry is true.
Julian looks at Perry and asks her why being attached to her is wrong.
Perry watches Julian as he mentions his mother's struggle with his father's own attachment.
Perry acknowledges that Julian's mother must have been a very strong woman.
Perry looks at Julian, her expression thoughtful as he speaks of his past. Julian smiles softly at Perry while the moon shines brightly above them.
Perry gazes forward, her expression calm and composed as they stand together.
The curtains shift slightly near a window in the dimly lit, elegant room.
Julian stands before his father, firmly telling him that he does not want his gift.
Julian asks his father for permission to leave tomorrow, with Perry standing silently behind him.
The Demon King, seated at his desk with a butler nearby, cryptically promises a helpful gift. The Demon King smirks, staring intensely while hoping his upcoming gift will not be boring.
A blue-haired man with horns, a white-haired woman, and a butler stand before the Demon King.
The butler whispers into the Demon King's ear as the others stand by in silence. The Demon King announces that his gift has arrived and orders the butler to fetch it.
The blue-haired man with horns flinches visibly when told he should bring the white-haired woman along.
The white-haired woman stares forward, her expression neutral and attentive to the ongoing conversation.
The Demon King, shown in a close-up profile, asks how the white-haired woman addresses the man.
The white-haired woman glances at the blue-haired man, who stands with his back toward her.
A close-up of the white-haired woman's eye reveals her focus as she contemplates the naming question.
The blue-haired man glances back as the white-haired woman moves closer to him in the room.
The Demon King, seen from behind his desk, suggests the man should take the throne soon.
The white-haired woman looks toward the blue-haired man, softly whispering his name in the quiet room.
The blue-haired man clenches his fist in frustration, curtly dismissing the woman and the butler.
The white-haired woman bows her head respectfully while holding a book, accepting the dismissal quietly.
The blue-haired man stands in the doorway, the heavy door creaking open as he departs.
The blue-haired man smiles knowingly, acknowledging that the white-haired woman is also quite observant.
Under the moonlight, the blue-haired man and the white-haired woman walk through the forest.
The pair continues walking as a rustling sound draws their attention to the nearby bushes.
The white-haired woman stares toward the source of the noise with a curious expression. The blue-haired man confirms that the mysterious gift they were given is, in fact, alive.
The white-haired woman suddenly reaches out and grabs a man with purple hair by the head.
The white-haired woman firmly grips the purple-haired man's hair as he protests their treatment. The white-haired woman casually flings the purple-haired man aside, causing him to shout in surprise.
The blue-haired man watches as the purple-haired man groans on the ground, calling him Zerka.
The blue-haired man, looking pained, holds his own arm while facing the fallen man.
The purple-haired man shouts in indignation, demanding to know why they are treating him this way.
The white-haired woman innocently asks who he is, having no idea of his true identity.
The purple-haired man looks bewildered, wondering how anyone could fail to recognize a demon duke.
The blue-haired man and the white-haired woman stand together, unmoved by the man's angry outburst.
The purple-haired man flinches as the blue-haired man mentions that Cardell is waiting for him. The purple-haired man reacts in horror upon realizing his son is being held for torture.
The white-haired woman calmly notes that having energy drained by witches is indeed a torture.
The purple-haired man lunges forward in a rage, declaring his intent to kill his captor.
The blue-haired man stands composed, inviting the enraged man to follow him to their destination.
The castle spires stand tall under the bright full moon and the dark night sky.
The blue-haired man sits in a chair looking back toward the butler in the study. The blue-haired man questions his father about the significance of the man named Jerpat.
The blue-haired man stands by as the purple-haired man is dragged in, shouting to be released.
The purple-haired man scowls, looking deeply frustrated and humiliated by his current captive status.
The butler, looking concerned, asks the Demon King what has been done with the son, Ref. The butler holds a blade to the purple-haired man's throat, warning him to mind his words. The purple-haired man glares, questioning how they dare treat him with such blatant disrespect. The blue-haired man observes the scene as the butler confronts the captive Duke Zerka.
The blue-haired man mocks his own gift, remarking that Zerka does not seem useful at all. The purple-haired man grinds his teeth, his jaw tightening in a fit of silent rage. The purple-haired man lunges at his captors, overwhelmed by madness and a desire for revenge. The blue-haired man and the white-haired woman stand together, watching the purple-haired man's attack.
The blue-haired man's golden eye glows with intense predatory power as he prepares to act.
A sudden, powerful strike lands, accompanied by a heavy thud and a cry of pain.
The young master's boot steps forward, standing firmly before the purple-dressed woman. The young master warns that one should not attack whomever they please.
The young master stands behind a purple-dressed woman, his presence looming over the room. An unseen hand reaches out as the young master questions what is happening.
The elf-like man with glasses slams his hand down, asking if the young master is all right.
A man with dark hair notices glowing demonic energy pulsing around the butler Perry's neck.
Perry adjusts the brooch at her collar, calmly assuring that everything is all right.
The young master with red horns looks at the others, dismissing the threat to Perry. The young master with red horns smiles warmly, asking the woman if she is all right.
Perry gazes forward with a calm, stoic expression.
A man with dark, shoulder-length hair and small horns kneels on the floor, identified as the Demon Duke. The Demon Duke is instructed to follow the young master to see his son. The young master with red horns stands in profile, his expression cold and resolute.
The young master with red horns stands in the room, repeating the instruction to follow him.
An older demon with long dark hair and red horns notes that his son is being merciful.
The young master with red horns retorts that his father should wait to see his true intentions.
A potion bottle sits on a library shelf, catching the dim light.
A hand picks up the blue glowing potion bottle with a distinct clack.
The young master gestures toward the bottle, signaling for it to be brought to him.
The young master with red horns drinks the potion, his expression unreadable. The older demon looks at his son, remarking that he truly takes after Julia. The empty potion bottle is tossed aside, rolling across the floor with a clunk. The young master touches his throat, murmuring that he would not have it any other way. A heavy iron door creaks open to reveal a prisoner held in chains within a dungeon. A blonde woman stands in the hallway calling out to the young master and Perry. The group enters the dungeon, walking past the blonde woman and her companion.
The young master tilts his head, coldly ordering the guests to leave them be.
The blonde woman insists she has only had a little bit, but the young master glowers at her. The blonde woman and her companion scurry away in fear as the young master dismisses them.
The group rushes forward as the older demon, Ref's father, cries out in Aram.
Ref's father embraces his son, weeping as the young master observes with a cold demeanor. The young master asks Perry if she agrees that those who are locked up are not innocent.
Ref's father yells in shock, demanding to know what his son could have possibly done.
The young master steps toward the prisoners, causing the older demon to flinch in fear. The young master remarks that the prisoner failed to realize his own weakness before trying to kill him. The young master leans in close to the older demon, his expression dark and menacing.
Ref's father cries out in disbelief, insisting that his son would never commit such acts.
The young master dismisses the older demon's denial, stating that it does not matter anywhere. The young master reveals that the son embezzled funds to hire assassins, shocking the older demon.
The older demon looks up in despair, his eye narrowing as he realizes his son's situation.
The young master calls them all bastards while a red, smoky aura begins to manifest around him. Perry watches with concern, realizing the young master is using his demonic powers.
The young master looks at the prisoner, scoffing at the situation.
The young master says that hopelessness is the best way to break someone's spirit. The young master stabs the prisoner, who cries out in pain as blood spills onto the floor.
The young master stands over the scene as Perry watches the aftermath. A mysterious thought bubble ponders the nature of the potion the young master consumed. Perry wonders if the young master consumed a water potion of absorption.
The young master steps forward, his blade drawn, looming over the kneeling prisoner.
Perry asks the young master if he truly intends to absorb the prisoner's demonic powers as well.
The black-haired man with horns asks Julian about the side effects of the absorption potion.
Julian, standing in a dark, cobweb-filled dungeon, dismissively states he is completely fine.
The silver-haired woman looks at Julian and asks if he fears losing his destructive powers.
Julian places a hand on the man's shoulder, reassuring him not to worry about the situation.
The man looks down at Julian's boots, trailing off as he begins to speak hesitantly.
The man expresses his desire for Julian to show him a little more consideration.
Julian holds the woman's chin, lifting her face toward his while they stand together.
The woman's eye reflects Julian's face as she coldly remarks that she is doing enough. Julian turns away as the woman tells him that whatever she does is never enough.
A foot swing, signaling the beginning of a physical movement or a sudden shift.
Julian looks contemplative, wondering if his father will allow him to depart on his trip. A knock sounds as someone announces to the king that Julian has arrived.
The door creaks open as the king instructs Julian to come inside the room. Julian stands before his father, noting that the king's gift took a long time. The king looks at Julian and asks him what he did with the gift.
Julian smiles and reveals that he successfully extracted all of the target's demonic energy.
The king tells Julian he is like his mother, but Julian rejects the comparison. The king asks what Julian intends to do with the now powerless individuals in the dungeon. Julian expresses his intent to discard them in the forest, deeming them useless without power.
Julian tells his father that he has already discarded the packaging of his gift.
The king smiles and calls Julian a cheeky bastard, then asks for Chuck. Chuck arrives, reporting to the king and Julian that he has come as ordered. A dark vertical texture fills the screen, marking a transition or a moment of tension. A command is issued to release Zerka and Ref from the dungeon into the woods.
The scene shows the two men lying on the ground, powerless and defeated after the event. A narrator notes that the entire sequence of events was meticulously orchestrated by Julian.
The king orders that rumors be spread about how they attempted to kill his son. Chuck bows to Julian, confirming he will carry out the king's command as ordered.
Julian smiles at his father, asking if he is finally permitted to leave.
The king asks why Julian is in such a hurry, noting his desire to abdicate.
Julian acknowledges the king's desire for him to eventually take the throne instead. The king stands with his back turned while Julian lingers, ending their tense meeting.
The king waves from the window, promising to hold down the fort while Julian leaves.
A view of the vast, purple-hued castle grounds under a vibrant, swirling twilight sky.
Julian and the woman stand at a gate, questioning if they should abandon him. Julian sighs in frustration, wondering why Leon is taking so long to prepare.
The woman fumbles with her satchel, grabbing an object as they wait to depart.
The woman holds a small, ornate scroll in her hand as they wait for Leon.
A voice observes that Julian is unusually attached to the woman, calling her Madam Butler.
The man with glasses tells the woman to stop frowning or she will get wrinkles. The woman worries that Julian will forget about her during his upcoming long trick.
The man with glasses slumps, urging the woman to be careful on her journey.
The woman rummages through her belongings as she prepares to hand something to the man.
The woman offers a magic scroll to the man, noting his inability to use magic.
The woman explains the scroll's connection to the castle, then mentions it aids escape. The man with glasses touches his face, asserting his strength in case of emergencies.
The woman asks the man to tell Leon to get ready, noting Julian's coldness. The palace towers rise into the sky, signaling the start of the trio's journey.
The woman looks up in surprise as Leon finally appears and greets them both.
Leon beams with a happy, radiant smile, looking excited to join the group's journey.
The boy asks Perry if she knows it is 9 in the morning.
Perry asks what Henry told her, and the boy replies that they must leave.
The man with horns tells Leon to gather his things, noting witches should be nocturnal. The man with horns says to leave the heavy bags, then jokingly says his are heavy.
The man with horns sits on a horse, ready to depart as Perry and Leon watch.
The man with horns looks over his shoulder as he prepares to ride away.
Perry stares at the man with horns and internally notes he appears quite manly.
A portrait shows the man with horns looking sternly while holding the horse's reins.
The man with horns asks why Perry is not mounting her horse while she stands silently.
Perry explains that she has never ridden a horse before, looking at the yavel.
Perry steps into the stirrup, preparing to mount the horse for the first time.
Perry sits on the horse but is confused as to why the animal is not moving.
The man with horns asks if Perry has never ridden a horse while she remains seated. Perry looks at the man with horns and confirms that she has never ridden one.
The man with horns gestures for Perry to get on the horse behind him instead.
Perry looks at the man with horns, still seated on her own mount, and says nothing.
The man with horns holds out a hand as a blue flame flares to life. Perry decides she will ride a summoned magic beast instead of the horse. Leon shouts in surprise that Perry has summoned a divine beast for them. The man with horns tells Perry that he does not think that will be necessary.
A close-up shows the man with horns holding out his hand towards Perry. The man with horns reaches toward Perry, inviting her to sit on his horse.
Perry stares at the man's outstretched hand with an expression of intense focus.
A grunt sounds as the scene transitions to a view of the forest trees.
The man with horns tells Perry to hold his waist to prevent her from falling.
Perry thinks to herself about how embarrassing it would be to fall off the horse. The man with horns remarks that he is surprised Perry cannot ride as Leon watches.
Perry replies that there are many things she cannot do while they ride together.
Perry stares at the back of the man with horns and declares that she cannot die.
The man with horns teases Perry about not being ready to die yet.
Perry asks the man with horns to clarify if he is the one she should call master.
Perry asks the man with horns why they are not moving, feeling confused.
The man with horns looks ahead with a determined expression, preparing to ride.
A hand pulls on the horse's reins, signaling the start of their tourney.
The man with horns and Perry ride together into the forest toward Delcale.
Leon calls out from behind, asking the man with horns to wait for him.
The horses gallop and trot along the dirt path, kicking up dust behind them.
Leon asks if there is a festival happening in Delcaon as they continue riding.
Leon excitedly explains that the Loca Flower Festival is perfect for draining energy.
Perry wonders why Leon is so excited, feeling nervous about the upcoming trip. An establishing shot shows the busy, colorful city of Delcaon full of people.
The man with horns looks at Perry with a soft, content expression as they travel.
The man with horns holds Perry close to him as they sit together on horseback.
Perry thinks that she hopes everything goes well during their time at the festival.
The scene shifts to a wide view of the city of Delcon, bustling with crowds. An aerial shot shows the lively streets of Delcaon filled with shops and people.
A young demon couple giggles together while a man in the background smokes a cigar. The man with horns and Perry arrive, walking past a couple in the noisy crowd.
Leon expresses excitement while Perry and the man with horns look on, unimpressed.
Leon asks if he can go off on his own, but the man with horns refuses.
The woman with silver hair looks down, disappointed, as the blonde boy appears dejected behind her.
A man with horns walks through the bustling, decorated city, appearing composed and indifferent.
The woman with silver hair agrees to accompany the man with horns on his journey.
The woman with silver hair gestures to the man with horns, asking him to watch Leon.
The festival atmosphere comes alive as food sizzles and crowds fill the city streets below.
The woman with silver hair queues in the crowd, planning to purchase local festival treats.
The woman with silver hair walks through the busy market, unaware of being followed closely.
A man approaches the woman with silver hair, attempting to initiate conversation with her alone.
The man persists, assuming the woman with silver hair is solitary and inviting her over.
The woman with silver hair glances sideways, her sharp eyes reflecting her rising internal irritation.
A man asks who the woman with silver hair is, while the man with horns intervenes.
The man continues to pester the woman with silver hair, making suggestive remarks about her.
The woman with silver hair feels the man's hand on her arm, looking visibly uncomfortable.
The woman with silver hair firmly identifies her companion as her master to the man.
The man with horns appears behind the woman, having just dragged the blonde boy along.
The woman with silver hair and the man with horns realize Leon is missing nearby.
The blonde boy lies defeated on the ground, having been dragged by the man with horns.
The man with horns stands tall as the blonde boy collapses, causing a public spectacle. The man who harassed the woman scoffs, belittling her claim regarding her supposed master's status. The woman with silver hair uses her magic to forcefully snap and disable the man's arm.
The woman with silver hair demands the man show respect, citing her master's distinguished lineage.
The man with horns approaches the woman, questioning why she has taken so long here.
The street clears as the woman and the man with horns stand over the defeated men. The woman with silver hair shares a quiet, weary moment with the man with horns.
The man with horns remarks that the woman should have listened to his request earlier.
The woman and the man with horns enjoy a meal together while Leon follows behind grumpily.
The man with horns instructs the blonde boy to investigate the background of the harassing man. The blonde boy turns away, heading off to complete the task assigned by his master. A cup containing a pink liquid and flower petals sits on the table, shimmering softly.
The blonde boy stares at the woman with silver hair, noting she did not need gifts.
The blonde boy asks the woman with silver hair if she has secured lodging for them.
The woman with silver hair expresses confusion, revealing that she does not require any sleep.
The man with horns reacts with visible annoyance, his grip tightening around his mug's handle.
The woman asks the man with horns about his drink while the boy lingers nearby. The woman with silver hair questions the absence of local festival drinks at the castle.
The man with horns replies with indifference, suggesting the delicacy might be too difficult to preserve.
The woman with silver hair deflects, noting her nature as a doll makes eating redundant.
The man with horns rests his chin on his hand, offering a rare, gentle, knowing smile.
The man with horns decides they should leave, and the woman stands up to follow. The man with horns playfully pokes a skewer toward the mouth of the silver-haired woman.
The woman with silver hair eats the offered food, privately finding his childish behavior endearing. The man with horns smiles broadly while feeding the woman with silver hair a skewer.
The man with horns watches the woman with silver hair intently while holding the skewer.
The woman with silver hair chews, acknowledging that the food provided is indeed quite delicious.
The man with horns eats a bite himself, looking content and pleased with the meal.
The woman with silver hair maintains her stoic expression, lost in her own quiet thoughts.
Several locals watch the pair from a distance, whispering amongst themselves about the unusual scene.
The woman with silver hair gazes forward, deep in thought about her current situation.
The man with horns shows a youthful, toothy grin that contrasts with his usual stern demeanor. The man with horns and the woman with silver hair walk away into the evening.
Perry stumbles as a hand reaches toward her, catching her off balance.
A small dagger hits the ground with a soft plop, discarded in the confusion.
Julian, the man with horns, grips his head and looks visibly dizzy and strained.
A view of the bustling city streets under the night sky sets the scene.
Perry watches with concern as Julian leans forward, clearly suffering from some sudden affliction.
Julian touches his forehead, complaining of feeling hot and itchy while looking disoriented.
Perry wonders if Julian is experiencing an allergic reaction to something he encountered.
Perry reaches out to steady Julian, asking him how he is feeling as he falters.
Perry suspects that something Julian ate at the festival may have been poisoned. Perry descends into a moment of dark, frantic internal worry regarding Julian's sudden illness.
Perry fumbles through her belongings to find something to help Julian with his pain.
Perry hands a small glass vial containing a clear liquid to Julian's shaking hands.
Julian reaches out, his hand trembling as he accepts the relief offered by Perry.
Perry firmly grabs Julian's wrist to steady his hand as he tries to take the medicine.
Perry gazes at Julian with intense, unblinking eyes, her expression one of focused concentration.
The blonde boy runs over, calling out Madam Butler in a loud, surprised voice.
The blonde boy complains about Perry wandering off, asking if he can go play.
The blonde boy pauses, tilting his head in confusion as he notices Julian's strange state.
Perry tells the blonde boy that Julian's condition is likely a reaction to his food. A discarded mug with small pink flower petals inside rolls on the ground.
The blonde boy smirks confidently, his eyes glinting with a mischievous, knowing expression.
Perry glares at the blonde boy, asking why he is smirking like a total creep. The blonde boy shrieks in delight, calling the beverage a type of love potion. Perry stares at the blonde boy, shocked to realize she was completely unaware of the effect. Perry grabs the blonde boy by the collar in frustration, demanding to know why he didn't warn her.
The blonde boy looks at Julian with a grin as Perry holds him in place. Perry exhales a weary breath, her face obscured in a moment of exasperated silence.
Perry lifts Julian into her arms, looking at the blonde boy to ask for the inn's location.
The inn stands under the moonlight as a voice explains Julian will recover in 3 hours.
The blonde boy sparkles with excitement, asking to go play now that they have lodging. The blonde boy zooms away, leaving Perry behind to grumble about wishing she had brought Anna.
Julian sits up in bed, looking at Perry as she stays close by his side.
Julian looks at Perry with a flushed face, asking her to stay with him forever.
Perry gazes off to the side, repeating the word forever in a soft, quiet tone.
Perry's eyes close tightly, a look of profound emotion crossing her features.
Perry promises to stay by Julian's side, her expression filled with a gentle resolve. Perry pulls Julian into a warm, comforting hug, reassuring him that everything will be all right.
Julian looks at Perry with wide, vulnerable eyes as she pats him soothingly.
Perry gently pushes Julian away, needing a moment of space as they sit on the bed.
Julian droops his head, his expression shifting into one of dejected, quiet sadness.
Julian notes that Perry's distance confirms she eventually intends to leave him behind.
Perry looks at Julian with wide eyes, admitting she cannot promise to stay forever.
An illustration depicts Julian and a woman in silhouette, foretelling his spiritual awakening.
Julian sits on the edge of the bed as Perry watches him from stool.
Perry frowns, troubled by the intrusive thought of Julian being with another demon.
Perry's eye widens, a sudden realization striking her as she processes her own complex emotions.
Julian gently holds Perry's face and asks if he can kiss her, leaning in close.
Perry stares blankly, wondering what exactly she is feeling in this sudden, intimate moment.
A narrative box reveals Julian's true mission is to find his fated aide and lover.
The grand castle looms under the night sky as a magical breeze sweeps across the scene. The dialogue laments that Leon is unreliable and that sending him on the mission was a mistake. In a grand, dimly lit room, a man with horns stands by a window as a man with silver hair observes, noting that Julian has become calmer since Perry arrived, though he expresses distrust toward Leon.
A man with horns looks at his reflection in a mirror, affirming his trust in his son and the doll.
The man with horns holds a cigar, looking on as the man with silver hair gestures with his hand near his face. The man with silver hair adjusts his glasses, looking visibly uneasy or anxious.
The man with horns glances over his shoulder, sarcastically remarking on the other man's point about Julian's youth.
A hand reaches out as the man with horns notes that the man with silver hair has incomplete knowledge of the situation.
The man with horns, sitting at a desk with paperwork, remarks that the subject is already aware of his own feelings.
The man with horns and the man with silver hair discuss whether the current situation is rooted in love, with the man with silver hair expressing uncertainty. The man with horns scoffs while tapping his cigar, stating there is little difference between love and the urge to possess. A finger slides across a document as the man with horns orders the man with silver hair to leak false information. The man with silver hair, looking distressed, reports evidence that Perry is a dragon, prompting the man with horns to order a search. A document is signed with a quill, referencing the pact that limits intervention from others in the demonic world.
The man with horns looks on with a sharp, calculating gaze, confident he holds the key to force their action. A desolate castle landscape is shown as the man with horns orders the dissemination of rumors regarding a dragon meddling in the realm. The man with horns smirks at the man with silver hair, who looks nervous while holding a document.
The man with horns muses on the nature of love, questioning when it became such a beautiful sentiment.
Perry stands in a dimly lit room, staring toward the window as shadows cling to the drapes.
A close-up of Perry's eye reveals her intense, reflective state of mind.
Perry sits on a bed, embracing Julian, who holds her face in a quiet, intimate moment.
Under the light of a full moon, leaves drift through the light sky.
Julian and Perry share a gentle, tender kiss, their faces illuminated by a soft, ethereal light.
A moment of profound romantic connection passes between Julian and Perry.
A silent, empty window stands as a backdrop to the quiet atmosphere of the room.
A hand squeezes the fabric of a garment, pulsing with the weight of raw, nervous emotion.
Perry's eye widens, reflecting a demon horn in the pupil as her heart races.
Julian sits on the edge of the bed, a trickle of blood dripping from his nose as he looks disoriented.
Perry looks at Julian with wide, concerned eyes, noticing his nosebleed and asking if he is okay. The exterior of the building is shown under the moonlight as a panicked voice cries out for Julian.
Julian blinks and stirs on the bed, his expression hazy as he grips the bedding.
Perry stands by the bedside, looking down at Julian with a mixture of worry and tenderness.
Julian rubs his eyes, noting that Perry has stayed awake to watch over him.
Julian sits on the bed, looking at Perry, who sits beside him while he reminds her that she does not need to sleep.
Julian offers a gentle, warm smile to Perry, his expression reflecting a deep, soft affection.
Perry and Julian embrace warmly, the physical closeness conveying a sense of mutual comfort and security. Perry gazes forward with a calm, stoic expression while held in Julian's embrace.
A sudden, blurred movement signifies a shift in the room's energy.
Perry walks toward the closed door as Julian sits on the bed, calling her name.
Julian looks distressed, sitting on the bed and asking Perry what is wrong.
Perry stands tall in her dress, looking back at Julian, who remains seated and vulnerable on the bed.
Perry speaks with a detached, melancholy tone, identifying herself as a hollow doll who naturally feels cold.
Perry walks away, her bare feet visible on the floor as she announces her intention to find Leon.
A door creaks open as Julian remains alone in the room, watching her depart.
A blonde boy grins at a young woman in the hallway, his expression masking a hidden intent. The blonde boy recoils, clutching his face as someone strikes him in a sudden, sharp confrontation. The blonde boy winces in pain, his demeanor shifting as he realizes who is confronting him.
The blonde boy scratches his head, nervously laughing and claiming he was just hungry while speaking to Perry.
Perry and the blonde boy walk down a quiet stone street, discussing their whereabouts.
The blonde boy sings to himself, cryptically mentioning a drink to Perry.
Perry looks ahead with a stoic, unreadable expression as she continues walking with the blonde boy.
Perry's eye widens as she reacts with surprise to something unseen.
The blonde boy taunts Perry, remarking that it is too bad she failed.
The scene shifts to the exterior of a building under a sunset sky.
Julian looks intently at Perry, stating that her departure means she intends to leave.
Perry reflects on the necessity of maintaining a lighthearted demeanor to hide her true feelings.
The scenery turns to a bright sky. Perry contemplates that Julian will soon forget her.
Perry experiences a physical throb, perhaps a manifestation of her internal emotional strain.
Perry suggests packing, prompting the blonde boy to ask if they are leaving already.
The blonde boy protests, shouting that the festival still has 3 days remaining.
The blonde boy rambles about how the festival is perfect for finding a partner.
The blonde boy clenches his fist, excitedly mentioning that the fireworks are a romantic draw.
With sparkling eyes, the blonde boy enthusiastically insists Julian could find a lover tonight.
Perry considers the blonde boy's words, admitting his logic appears to be valid.
Perry relents, agreeing they will depart tomorrow, to the blonde boy's visible delight.
Perry asks if she can step out again, but the blonde boy sternly refuses.
Perry knocks on a wooden door, announcing to Julian that she is entering. Perry peers through the slightly open door, and Julian greets her by name.
Perry flinches, visibly startled by Julian's sudden presence or words.
Julian, shirtless and showing his horns, turns his head to look back at Perry.
Julian moves to put on a white shirt while standing among floral decorations.
Perry admits to herself that she expected Julian to still be asleep.
Julian instructs Perry to prepare for breakfast once she has finished washing up.
Perry opens the door, finding the blonde boy sitting on the floor outside.
Perry internalizes her anxiety, wondering if the blonde boy noticed her flinch.
Perry sighs and walks past the confused blonde boy as the scene progresses. A table is set with a variety of dishes for breakfast.
Someone pours a carrot cream stew, prompting a complaint about the meal. The blonde boy and Perry bicker while Julian eats, complaining about the feared.
Julian pauses his meal, glancing up with a stern, observant expression. The blonde boy yells at Perry, asking if her mood is related to yesterday's events.
Julian calmly confirms to Perry that he was indeed aware of the previous situation.
Perry looks confused, questioning Julian about what exactly he is referring to.
Julian replies with a single word, hinting at the nature of their shared secret.
Julian claims he is old enough to understand such matters and to get married.
Perry stares at Julian, clearly taken aback by his bold and unexpected statement. The blonde boy rests his chin on his hand, looking thoughtful as he ponders.
Julian and Perry offer conflicting responses, with one saying yes and the other no.
A tense, chilling atmosphere fills the room, creating a sense of impending doom. Perry insists that while nothing should have happened, something actually did occur.
Julian scowls, stating that something has happened that can never be undone.
The group moves through a bustling, crowded street filled with festival-goers.
Julian and the blonde boy whisper to each other, questioning if what they see is real.
Perry keeps her gaze forward, ignoring the boys' secretive discussion.
The blonde boy whispers to Julian, confident that they are not talking about yesterday.
Someone shouts to get the woman as Perry walks down the street.
Perry bumps into a woman with long red hair in the middle of the crowd.
Julian looks on, startled by the sudden collision occurring in front of him. The red-haired woman falls to the ground, confused about what just happened. Perry realizes the woman might be trampled by the surrounding crowd. Perry reaches out and grabs the collar of the woman's shirt.
The silver-haired woman grabs the red-haired woman by the collar to lift her up.
The red-haired woman struggles, demanding that the silver-haired woman release her immediately.
A man with small horns accuses the silver-haired woman of holding a thief and pickpocket.
A close-up of the silver-haired woman's eye reflects her intense and focused state of mind.
The red-haired woman continues to struggle, shouting at the silver-haired woman to let her go.
The man with small horns points and demands the return of his stolen money.
A group arrives, demanding that the silver-haired woman release their sister immediately.
A chaotic rush of people pushes forward, leaving the man with small horns bewildered.
The silver-haired woman tosses the red-haired woman aside, calling the situation too chaotic.
As she prepares to step forward, she contemplates using force to quiet the crowd.
A blue-haired boy clenches a wooden club, looking visibly anxious and determined.
The silver-haired woman glances toward the side, her expression unreadable and calm.
The blue-haired boy cries out as his body is suddenly lifted into the air.
The silver-haired woman looks on with indifference, wondering if all festivals are this chaotic.
The silver-haired woman decides she can no longer tolerate being among the noisy rabble.
A man with large horns smirks, instructing his companion to kill the group. The silver-haired woman denies being a demon, identifying herself simply as a doll.
The man with large horns cruelly remarks that he would have killed them regardless.
The blue-haired boy shouts at the monsters to release his sister while lying proud.
The red-haired woman begs for the blue-haired boy to stop provoking them.
The silver-haired woman observes the blue-haired boy, admitting he possesses significant courage.
A narrative thought notes that while demons grow through awakening, this boy looks adolescent.
The man with large horns asks the silver-haired woman what she is observing. The man with large horns questions if she likes the boy and if he is useful.
The man with large horns scoffs, stating the boy's demonic power is too weak to train.
The man with large horns glares, asserting the boy is not even a true demon. The red-haired woman frantically begs the blue-haired boy to stop his reckless behavior.
The silver-haired woman and the man with large horns watch as the boy denies being a demon.
The man with large horns tilts his head, skeptically asking if the boy claims to be human.
The man with large horns threatens to kill them all unless the boy's origin is revealed.
The man with large horns warns the silver-haired woman he will spare her if she enters.
The man with small horns pleads his innocence, but the man with large horns demands silence.
The silver-haired woman realizes the man with large horns intends to kill them all. The man with large horns muses on whether the boy is truly grown up or something else.
A close-up reveals the reptilian-like pupil within the eye of the man with large horns.
The man with large horns offers a cold, polite smile while flowers bloom in the background.
The silver-haired woman reflects on the nature of the man with large horns and his changes.
The silver-haired woman wonders why she is fixated on the events of the previous night.
The blue-haired boy yells that they are humans, causing him to be magically tossed aside.
The man with large horns questions if any human could ever withstand raw demonic energy.
The man with large horns rhetorically asks why greedy humans never stood a chance against demons.
The man with large horns addresses the boy as Leon, causing him to flinch in fear.
The man with large horns mocks the group for their claim of being human. The blonde man watches the interaction with a smug and calculating expression.
The man with large horns steps forward, finding the situation deeply interesting.
The man with large horns prepares to strike as the boy protests that they are weak demons.
A hand reaches out through the air, signaling the man with large horns' intervention.
A mysterious shadow consumes the screen as a desperate voice calls out to wait.
The blonde man tenderly holds the blue-haired boy, his posture protective and intimate.
The blonde man asks the blue-haired boy if he would be willing to be his lover.
Perry thinks to herself that he is acting out again during a sensitive time.
Perry's eye widens in surprise as something unseen occurs before her.
A flash illuminates the street, revealing the group standing near the collapsed red-haired woman and the blue-haired boy.
The blonde man smirks, confirming his realization that the boy is not actually human.
The blue-haired boy looks up, seemingly channeling glowing, vine-like energy from his hands.
The blue-haired boy stares in panicked realization as the glowing vines manifest around him.
Perry expresses her shock, shouting out in disbelief at the sudden turn of events.
A flashback depicts the blue-haired boy explaining how humans once relied on the otherkin to survive.
Perry observes the blue-haired boy as he contemplates how otherkin descendants hide in the demonic world.
The man with large horns stands over the fallen group, remarking that the boy must be a fairy.
The blue-haired boy flinches, desperately shouting that they are merely demons, not fairies. Perry looks at the blue-haired boy with confusion, noting the contradiction in his recent claims. Perry sarcastically remarks that the boy has a very slippery tongue for contradicting himself.
The blue-haired boy challenges Perry, asking if she intends to rip his top out. The man with large horns tells the group that he heard otherkin had infiltrated the demonic kingdom.
The blue-haired boy looks down, admitting he did not expect to encounter one like this.
The man with large horns turns to Perry, calmly asking her what they should do now.
Perry's eyes narrow as she asks the man with large horns if he is truly asking her.
Perry watches the man with large horns as she wonders how he obtains such information so quickly.
Perry internally decides she does not want to treat the otherkin poorly, recalling their past kindness.
Perry observes the man with large horns, thinking that a fairy's powers could be useful to him.
Perry tells the man with large horns that they should hear the otherkin side of the story.
The blue-haired boy gulps nervously, pointing out that many people are watching their confrontation.
Perry sternly demands that the blue-haired boy provide a simple yes or no answer.
The blue-haired boy mumbles a hesitant negative response to Perry's questioning. The man with large horns addresses the boy by name, asking him to listen.
The man with large horns commands the blue-haired boy to take care of those watching them.
The blue-haired boy shouts at the man with large horns, demanding to know what he did.
The group walks through the festival, with the blue-haired boy pleading for an explanation.
The blond man looks smug, whistling to himself while ignoring the others.
The man with large horns explains that he cast a memory-altering spell on the observers.
The blue-haired boy looks irritated, firmly stating that his name is Meal.
The blond man shrugs, dismissively claiming that he possesses an excellent memory for such things.
Neil grumbles that the blond man only listens to people when he can drain their energy.
Meal gasps in shock, shouting that the blond man is a night witch.
Meal touches his forehead, feeling a strange sensation after the blond man's interaction. Meal looks at Perry, embarrassed as he describes feeling his energy being pulled away. The man with large horns scoffs at Meal, calling him slow-witted and stupid.
Meal recoils in anger, while the man with large horns orders them to follow him inside.
The group arrives at a door, the scene marked by the clacking of shoes. The red-haired woman looks down, visibly anxious and sweating.
Meal and the red-haired woman ask why they were brought to this location.
The man with large horns dismisses the question, stating it was done for Perry's sake.
The man with large horns tells Perry that she is free to do as she pleases.
The red-haired woman flinches as the man with large horns implies she could be killed.
The man with large horns smiles coldly, giving them the choice between life and death.
The group stands together while the red-haired woman looks on in palpable fear.
The red-haired woman's eyes widened in terror at the looming threat.
Meal asks if they are being hired, to which the man with large horns replies they will be slaves.
Meal shouts in protest, indignantly refusing to become a slave despite their status as vagrants.
The red-haired woman nervously asks what will happen to them if they refuse to comply.
Perry's focused eyes reflect her intense and calculated assessment of the tense situation.
A magical manifestation of blue energy surges forth as Perry delivers a lethal ultimatum. Perry stares at the group, coldly stating that allowing them to live is a future threat.
Meal and the red-haired woman react with visible terror, asking what Perry truly is. Perry ignores the question, impatiently demanding an answer so she can attend the festival fireworks.
A crackling sound emanates from the blue energy as Meal experiences a sudden, painful flinch.
A sharp web-like fracture appears in the air, prompting Miel to wonder if his body broke.
Perry touches her chest, feeling the flickering power, and decides to proceed with the situation.
The red-haired woman reassures Meal, telling him that everything is going to be all right.
Rosina bows low, introducing herself while Julian and Perry stand watchfully by her side.
Perry bows slightly, formally identifying herself as the butler to her master, Julian.
Julian stands with his arms crossed, introducing himself as the son of the Demon King.
A decorative header announces the presence of the Demon King with star-patterned accents. Meal gulps nervously as he is told there are 3 specific rules he must follow.
Perry holds up 2 fingers, appearing calm and authoritative as she addresses the group.
Perry's eyes widen slightly, shifting her gaze as the conversation continues to unfold.
A serene, cloud-filled sky indicates a shift in the atmosphere following the tension.
Standing outside a building, Perry suggests to Julian that he should take Meal along.
Julian stares at Miel, who points at himself in confusion, while Perry dismissively says, just because. Perry internally contemplates that Miel would make a strong aid, but decides to remain subtle.
Perry flashes a polite, professional smile while maintaining her composed and butler-like demeanor.
Julian asks Perry if she has a preference for this type while telling the others to get their belongings.
Miel looks nervous as the red-haired woman stands behind him in the background.
Perry manifests blue fire in her hand, warning Miel that her fire goblins will be watching him.
Perry glances toward Meal, who looks confused, while Julian steps forward behind her.
Julian steps closer to Perry, putting a hand on her shoulder and suggesting they swap rooms.
Perry turns to look at Julian, questioning why he would make such a suggestion. Perry's eye twitches, reacting with a sharp flinch to Julian's unexpected proximity.
Julian grins and holds his hand out, claiming that is simply the nature of their relationship.
An elf observes from the sidelines, internally noting Julian's abnormal attachment to his butler.
Perry stands in a garden of thorns, looking composed while reflecting on the abnormal degree of attachment.
Julian's eye glows with a yellow, reptilian glint as he flashes a sinister grin. Julian and Perry stand together, bathed in a sharp, singular beam of light. The group of otherkin stands together in a courtyard, engaged in a quiet discussion. Perry stares at the group, internally struggling with how to send them to the Demon King's castle.
A blonde man expresses concern that if Miel leaves, they will be left without a guard.
Perry's expression flashes with sudden realization as he listens to the blonde man.
Julian sits in a chair, arms crossed, asking Perry if she wants to perform the soul pledge.
Julian beams at Perry, showing his fangs as he eagerly asks if she wants to proceed. Perry points toward Miel, suggesting that a soul pledge with the otherkin might prevent them from running.
Julian breathes out a sharp sigh, his face partially obscured in shadow. A dark circular thought bubble declares that the idea of a soul pledge is not good.
Julian looks on with a chill in his eyes, explaining that a soul pledge is a once-in-a-lifetime bond.
The blonde man turns his head rapidly, blurting out a question about whether they are getting married. Perry stares at the blonde man with a blank expression, while he insists the pledge is for soulmates.
Perry looks on, her face pale and showing clear signs of stress and confusion.
A large floating question mark appears above a small, chibi-like rendering of Perry.
Perry's eye widens as she reacts with shock to the sudden implications of the conversation.
Julian clutches his head in frustration as the blonde man gasps in the background.
The story reflects on a profound, life-changing pledge made between two destined partners.
A man with horns rests his head in his hand, appearing visibly distressed. The woman with long white hair questions the man about his apparent mental stability.
The man with horns smirks, his expression shifting into one of dark amusement. The man with horns retorts with a sharp, pointed question about his own sanity.
The man with horns looks on with a confident, slightly predatory golden-eyed gaze.
The woman with white hair sighs, indicating they will address the situation at another time.
A young child with blue hair watches from the window, claiming he heard nothing.
The woman with white hair questions the butler about a bag she previously possessed.
The woman with white hair displays an artifact, noting it will assist their journey. The woman with white hair sternly warns the group to avoid trouble like fire goblins.
A scrap of paper is torn in half as the woman with white hair calls for Rosina.
The young child with blue hair bites his thumb as a flash of light occurs. The young child with blue hair, the woman with white hair, and a man stand together.
The man with blonde hair asks the woman with white hair if she trusts them.
The woman with white hair admits they are not trustworthy but will prove useful.
The young child with blue hair asks why the otherkin reside in the demonic world. The young child with blue hair grits his teeth, clearly agitated by his own question.
The man with blonde hair explains that the middle world is currently in chaos.
A text bubble explains that humans have been oppressing and killing otherkin in the Empire.
The young child with blue hair clenches his fist, showing visible signs of inner turmoil.
The young child with blue hair notes that this history dates back to his grandfather. The young child with blue hair recalls the tragedy of humans hunting them for resources. The young child with blue hair states that only elves and dwarves fight humans equally.
The man with horns sits in silence, observing the group's conversation with intense focus.
The woman with white hair thinks to herself that she is glad she met Cardell.
The woman with white hair reflects that only Julian or a dragon could kill her.
The woman with white hair announces they should leave to watch the coming fireworks display.
The man with blonde hair complains that he is hungry, while the woman ignores him.
A hand gestures, releasing a glowing, ethereal bird of energy into the air. The young child with blue hair watches in surprise as the glowing bird flies forth.
The woman with white hair states she is placing a protective spiritual power on them.
A close-up shows the man with horns stepping forward with a serious, focused expression.
The group arrives at the waterfront, remarking on the crowd and their lucky seating.
The man with blonde hair jokingly asks the woman where Master Julian has gone.
The man with blonde hair notices two people nearby and calls out to them.
The man with blonde hair and the woman with white hair glance at the newcomers.
A purple-haired woman with a fan appears with two demons, demanding their current seats.
Lady Jane, holding a fan, reiterates her demand to take the group's current seating.
The man with blonde hair and the woman with white hair look on, feeling a chill.
The man with blonde hair and woman with white hair express excitement for the firelocks.
Lady Jane scoffs behind her fan, clearly displeased with the group's lack of compliance.
The man with blonde hair asks for the woman's attention as they stand by the wire.
Lady Jane brandishes a fan, warning the woman she better move aside as requested.
The woman with white hair stares coldly at Lady Jane, stating she refuses to move.
Lady Jane stares back, clearly irritated and taken aback by the woman's bold refusal.
Lady Jane demands to know how they dare defy her, assuming they are mere mistresses.
Lady Jane glares, commanding the woman with white hair to know her proper place.
The woman with white hair snorts, asserting that she is far better looking than her.
Lady Jane trembles with rage, calling the woman with white hair arrogant for her defiance. The purple-haired demon woman yells for the others to get the intruders out of sight. The horned man, serving the lady, obediently responds to her command with a grim look.
The blonde man smugly tells the butler to move while the white-haired woman looks annoyed.
The horned man stands before the white-haired woman, confused as to what she is doing. The horned man prepares to strike, threatening to make her beg for forgiveness for this. The white-haired woman flicks her finger, splashing the horned man with a sudden wave of energy.
The purple-haired demon woman screams in alarm, demanding someone stop the white-haired woman immediately.
A bold red graphic displays the word crush, signaling a sudden and violent impact.
The blonde man mockingly tells the butler to handle herself, laughing as he attacks her.
The horned man hits the ground with a thud, his eyes spinning in dazed defeat. The white-haired woman claps her hands, coldly telling the horned woman to get lost now.
The purple-haired demon woman asks the white-haired woman what the difference is between them. The purple-haired demon woman angrily questions if she thinks she can treat her like this.
The white-haired woman sharply turns around, questioning who the demon is calling lowly.
The purple-haired demon woman feels a sudden bone-chilling cold as she stands behind the man.
The black-haired man with horns calmly warns the purple-haired woman to leave before he kills her.
The blue-haired boy observes, noting the demons are stubborn and the woman is acting strange.
The white-haired woman tells the blue-haired boy to talk nicely as blue energy pulses.
The blue-haired boy groans, questioning if the white-haired woman is siding with the demons now. The black-haired man explains that power decides everything in the demonic world to the group.
The black-haired man states that losing things is natural if you lack power, disclaiming defense.
The white-haired woman stares ahead, silently confirming that his harsh words are the truth.
A dark blue surface ripples slightly, creating a sense of deep, quiet transition.
Light bubbles drift upward in the deep water, signaling a quiet, reflective moment.
The white-haired woman offers a snack to the black-haired man, ignoring the other's presence.
The black-haired man takes a bite of the skewer from the white-haired woman's hand.
The black-haired man smiles, telling the white-haired woman that the food is delicious.
The black-haired man twitches, seemingly interrupted by a sudden realization or feeling.
The white-haired woman gazes toward the side, reacting with surprise to something unseen. The white-haired woman internally reflects on the strange tingling sensation linked to her past memories. The blonde man signals that the fireworks are starting, capturing everyone's sudden attention.
The white-haired woman focuses intently, observing something small and spark-like inside her eye.
Bright fireworks burst into the night sky, accompanied by a wish for everything to explode.
The group sits together on mats along the water, watching the display under the night sky.
A sudden pop sounds as the white-haired woman looks at the black-haired man in surprise.
The white-haired woman hears a voice asking to be excused, while another tells them to get lost. A pink-haired woman cries while the black-haired man and white-haired woman sit nearby on the ground.
The black-haired man asks if he did something wrong, wondering if he should have cursed her.
The white-haired woman looks frustrated as she asks if he has any intention of marriage.
The black-haired man smiles and tells the white-haired woman that he is going to marry her.
A chibi-style version of the couple looks shocked while discussing the man's actual age. The white-haired woman glares at the black-haired man, questioning why he acts like a child.
The black-haired man shrugs, noting that he is on the younger side for a demon.
The white-haired woman grins, thinking about how he has been smiling much more lately.
The white-haired woman recalls how he used to always be frowning or throwing a tantrum. A close-up shows the black-haired man's eyes, conveying a soft, changed expression.
The white-haired woman holds a small child in her arms, looking down at him gently.
Fireworks continue to burst in the night, linked to the events between her and Julian.
The white-haired woman touches her chest, feeling a lingering sensation from the interaction.
The white-haired woman thinks to herself that her chest aches, pondering the source of pain.
Julian grabs Perry and calls her name, his eyes wide with a mix of alarm and intensity.
Julian looks at Perry and asks why she was not responding to his calls earlier.
Perry stares back at Julian with a blank, unresponsive look as he holds her.
A close-up reveals Perry's eyes, which are dilated and reflecting a golden, unnatural light.
Perry replies that she was lost in thought, while fireworks illuminate the night sky behind them.
Julian grips Perry and asks what she is doing, noting she seemed to miss the entire event. Julian gazes at Perry, remarking that she looked like an empty doll just a few moments ago.
The blue-haired boy interrupts, asking if she was empty, asserting that no soul is stronger than hers. Perry looks at the blue-haired boy in surprise, questioning if he is truly able to see souls.
The blonde man leans in to whisper to the blue-haired boy, asking just how strong her soul is.
The blue-haired boy remains focused, internally marveling that he has never seen a soul like hers. The blue-haired boy asks Miel how old he is, suggesting he appears to be about 500 years old.
The blue-haired boy inquires about Rosina's age, noting she is Miel's sister, but Miel clarifies she is not a fairy.
The blue-haired boy glares at the blonde man, telling him to stay away from his sister. Perry chuckles, internally noting that the boy knows he can act rudely toward the blonde man.
Perry playfully pats the blue-haired boy's head, prompting him to shout in annoyance at being treated like a child. Julian observes the interaction, silently remarking that the boy has quite a temper.
Perry glances toward the side, reacting with a subtle internal shock. Julian bumps his head against Perry and reaches out to hold her hand while they sit on the ground. Perry asks Julian what he is doing, feeling the weight of his head against hers.
Julian leans his head on Perry's shoulder, and they watch the fireworks together in a quiet, intimate moment.
Julian gently strokes Perry's hair with his hand. Perry strokes Julian's head and remarks that he is exactly the same as when he was a little boy. Julian looks at Perry with a soft expression, telling her that she remains the same as well.
Julian reflects on how he used to curse and attack her, yet she never changed, which continues to amaze him.
Julian continues to rest his head on Perry, finding her unchanging nature deeply unsettling yet impressive.
Perry looks on, her expression unreadable as she processes Julian's admission.
Perry touches Julian's head and confesses that she misses the days when he was small enough to be carried.
Julian stares intently and tells her that he is still capable of holding her now.
Julian grabs the back of Perry's head, asserting that he wants her to do more than just hold him.
Julian looks at Perry and declares his desire for her to belong to him completely.
Perry remains silent, her lips parted as she listens to Julian's demand.
Perry reminds Julian that she is his butler, but Julian counters that this is not what he meant.
Perry places a hand on Julian's chest and asks what she truly means to him.
Julian stands before the water as fireworks burst, telling Perry that she is his master. Julian stares at Perry and asks if he is not the one who is meant to bring about her death. Perry's eye twitches, her expression shifting as she reacts to his chilling question.
Perry and Julian turn their backs to each other, both looking away as fireworks continue to light the sky.
Perry rises to her feet, informing the group that she will be the first to return.
Perry walks away, leaving Julian behind as she exits the scene.
The blue-haired boy and the blonde man watch from the ground as Perry departs.
The blonde man lunges at the blue-haired boy and covers his mouth to silence him.
A flashback shows Perry and Julian standing together in silhouettes, representing their complex, destined bond.
A close-up shows Julian's golden eye, signifying his demonic and intense nature.
Julian watches Perry walk away, his face partially obscured in shadow while she stands tall in the distance.
A caption explains that while demons are often cruel, they are entirely devoted to their soulmate once found.
Julian stands with a shadowy figure behind him, while Perry walks away in the distance.
Julian arrives at a room and calls out to Perry, who is standing ahead of him.
Julian is out of breath, looking exhausted as he calls for Perry. Julian stares ahead with a look of distress, appearing deeply troubled.
The hem of a dress ripples as someone steps away on the tiled floor.
The woman stands alone, asserting she is there to find his soulmate, not his tantrums.
The woman insists she is only his master, while the horned man looks on silently.
A foot steps forward as the man reminds her she is his butler and possession.
The horned man continues walking, telling her that he needs her for his own purposes. The woman looks down, internally lamenting that she is nothing more than a hollow doll.
She thinks of how she was not born into this world like the others were.
The woman gazes ahead, noting that the more he acts this way, the harder it gets.
The horned man stands before the woman, claiming she is necessary for his return home.
The woman states that she is the only one capable of killing him without dragons. The horned man gazes at her, professing his willingness to do anything, even to kill.
The woman gazes at the moon through a window, questioning his persistent behavior.
The woman reacts with a start, visibly unsettled by the man's intense, demanding presence.
The horned man looks at her with golden eyes, questioning why she insists on leaving.
The horned man covers his face, pleading with her not to leave him all alone.
The woman tells the young master she is not leaving yet, but must return home. The horned man wipes a tear, confessing he does not know how to be liked.
The horned man reaches out, begging her not to go and refusing to let go.
The woman stands tall as the horned man bows his head in desperate, quiet grief.
The woman flinches as the horned man forcefully grabs her hand to bind her there. Glowing red energy pulses between them as the horned man begs her to stay forever.
A dark, swirling energy surrounds them as he declares he will never let her go.
The horned man holds her close, their souls entwined in a tense and fated embrace.
The woman taps the horned man on the shoulder, feeling surprised by his sudden proximity. The horned man hugs her tightly, an expression of quiet intensity on his face. The woman exhales deeply, feeling the heavy, suffocating weight of his overwhelming demonic presence. The horned man smirks while holding her, declaring that they are now officially soulmates.
The woman thinks that she should have refused his request as she walks away.
She stands in a quiet street, feeling that despite her resolve, she cannot help flinching.
The woman's eyes widen in internal reflection, feeling a strange sense of relief inside. A spectral ghost floats above her as she recalls the contract bound under the name Perry. She wonders if she truly wants to abandon Julian enough to find the legendary dragon. Perry stops walking, her expression suddenly filled with surprise at an unexpected arrival.
A blonde man and a blue-haired boy approach Perry, calling out that they found her. The blonde man greets Perry while the blue-haired boy watches her with intense curiosity.
The blonde man touches his chin, asking Perry if she had gotten married to Fine. Perry stares at the blonde man, her expression stoic and unreadable in the soft light.
The blue-haired boy observes Perry, noting her soul remains identical but carries a new pledge.
Perry raises her hand, observing the strange mark that has appeared on her skin. A magical red aura swirls around Perry and the blonde man as they stand together.
The blonde man looks down, watching the faint magical particles drifting into the air.
The blonde man gasps in sudden alarm, realizing he can sense the master's energy signature.
Perry stands before the two men, asking them what a pledge actually signifies to them.
The blue-haired boy looks thoughtful, muttering to himself about the nature of the soul.
The blue-haired boy exclaims in shock, realizing that Perry has formed a union of souls.
Perry stares ahead, her eyes dark with a mixture of confusion and dawning realization.
Perry asks the blonde man if the pledge was made without her explicit, free consent.
Perry asks the blonde man if he thinks Master Julian has truly lost his mind. The blonde man sighs, telling her this is a serious mistake that cannot be undone.
The blonde man smiles enigmatically, noting that demons observe two specific types of marriage.
The story reflects on a profound, life-changing pledge made between two destined partners. A man with horns rests his head in his hand, appearing visibly distressed.
The woman with long white hair questions the man about his apparent mental stability.
The man with horns smirks, his expressions shifting into one of dark amusement. The man with horns retorts with a sharp, pointed question about his own sanity.
The man with horns looks on with a confident, slightly predatory, golden-eyed gaze.
The woman with white hair sighs, indicating they will address the situation at another time.
A young child with blue hair watches from the window, claiming he heard nothing.
The woman with white hair questions the butler about a bag she previously possessed.
The woman with white hair displays an artifact, noting it will assist their journey.
The woman with white hair sternly warns the group to avoid trouble like fire goblins.
A scrap of paper is torn in half as the woman with white hair calls for Rosina. The young child with blue hair bites his thumb as a flash of light appears.
The young child with blue hair, the woman with white hair, and a man stand together.
The man with blonde hair asks the woman with white hair if she trusts them.
The woman with white hair admits they are not trustworthy, but will prove useful.
The young child with blue hair asks why the other kin reside in the demonic world.
The young child with blue hair grits his teeth, clearly agitated by his own question.
The man with blonde hair explains that the middle world is currently in chaos.
A text bubble explains that humans have been oppressing and killing otherkin in the Empire.
The young child with blue hair clenches his fist, showing visible signs of inner turmoil. The young child with blue hair notes that this history dates back to his grandfather.
The young child with blue hair recalls the tragedy of humans hunting them for resources.
The young child with blue hair states that only elves and dwarves fight humans equally.
The man with horns sits in silence, observing the group's conversation with intense focus.
The woman with white hair thinks to herself that she is glad she met Cardell.
The woman with white hair reflects that only Julian or a dragon could kill her.
The woman with white hair announces they should leave to watch the coming fireworks display.
The man with blonde hair complains that he is hungry, while the woman ignores him.
A hand gestures, releasing a glowing, ethereal bird of energy into the air.
The young child with blue hair watches in surprise as the glowing bird flies forth. The woman with white hair states she is placing a protective spiritual power on them. A close-up shows the man with horns stepping forward with a serious, focused expression.
The group arrives at the waterfront, remarking on the crowd and their lucky seating.
The man with blonde hair jokingly asks the woman where Master Julian has gone.
The man with blonde hair notices two people nearby and calls out to them.
The man with blonde hair and the woman with white hair glance at the mute cars.
A purple-haired woman with a fan appears with two demons, demanding their current seats.
Lady Jane, holding a fan, reiterates her demand to take the group's current seating.
The man with blonde hair and the woman with white hair look on, feeling a chill.
The man with blonde hair and woman with white hair express excitement for the firelocks. Lady Jane scoffs behind her fan, clearly displeased with the group's lack of compliance.
The man with blonde hair asks for the woman's attention as they stand by the war.
Lady Jane brandishes a fan, warning the woman she better move aside as requested.
The woman with white hair stares coldly at Lady Jane, stating she refuses to move. Lady Jane stares back, clearly irritated and taken aback by the woman's bold refusal.
Lady Jane demands to know how they dared defy her, assuming they are mere mistresses.
Lady Jane glares, commanding the woman with white hair to know her proper place. The woman with white hair snorts, asserting that she is far better looking than her. Lady Jane trembles with rage, calling the woman with white hair arrogant for her defiance.
The horned man expresses his inability to trust how Perry truly feels about him. Perry tells the horned man to eliminate everyone, including Miel and Leon.
Perry suggests he should kill her as well since she caused his loss of face.
The horned man stares at Perry with a focused, intense, and predatory golden gaze.
Perry looks at the horned man, confused by the strange things he is saying.
The horned man gently touches Perry's face and claims he could never kill her.
The horned man seems surprised by her submissive response, labeling it an unexpected reaction.
Perry wonders about the significance of the horned man's strange recent behavior and statements.
Perry notices a mysterious cracked mark on her own skin and begins to wonder. Perry gazes at the glowing, magical crack on her skin, lost in deep thought.
Perry brushes her hand over the mark, questioning why the horned man is acting strangely.
The horned man looks at Perry, wondering when she began to exhibit this behavior.
Perry claims she only noticed it recently and needs to see a master doll craftsman.
Perry brushes her skin, feeling the strange, magical mark pulsing with a burning sensation.
Perry winces as she experiences a sudden, painful, and mysterious burning sensation on her body.
The horned man demands that Perry go to their room and wait for Anyar. Perry asks the horned man in confusion when he intends to go to bed tonight. A pile of discarded clothes lies abandoned on the floor of a quiet, empty room.
The blonde man, Leon, stands in a room holding a hairbrush, looking visibly pleased.
Leon bursts into the room where the horned man is, shouting about hunting for game.
Leon freezes and looks shocked, seemingly realizing he made a major social blunder here.
Leon trembles in fear, realizing his sudden outburst has terrified his master, the Horned Man. The Horned Man ignores Leon's fright and abruptly demands that Leon bring him a map.
The Horned Man sits calmly on a sofa as Leon nervously presents him a map.
A map is spread out, showing various regions and terrain as they search for information.
A text box explains that the doll craftsmen are located in a region currently at war.
Leon explains to the Horned Man that they cannot visit the region due to the war.
Leon asks the Horned Man why he is suddenly so interested in finding doll craftsmen.
The Horned Man stares intensely at the map, his golden eyes filled with deep, silent focus.
The Horned Man believes that Perry is not a doll that can be harmed normally.
A spectral, shadowy dragon-like entity looms behind Perry as she holds a flickering blue flame.
A text box notes that if something harms Perry, it must be her own spiritual powers.
The Horned Man calls for the blue-haired fairy Miel to come to him immediately.
Leon wonders aloud why the Horned Man would call for the fairy he usually hates.
The Horned Man crushes the map in his hand, feeling humbled by his own frustration.
Miel arrives, rubbing his eyes while complaining about being woken up from his sleep.
Miel yawns, visibly exhausted, and asks the Horned Man why he was summoned so suddenly.
The Horned Man asks Miel if he truly possesses the ability to see people's souls.
The Horned Man stares at Miel, claiming that there are strange fractures on Perry's body.
Miel touches his chin, looking at the Horned Man with curiosity and asking for more.
The Horned Man looks on as Miel questions if it is normal for dolls to break.
Leon observes the tension, asking the Horned Man if his butler, Perry, is actually hurt.
The Horned Man insists that Perry is damaged and needs to be fixed right away.
Miel pauses to ponder the Horned Man's words, looking troubled and deep in thought. Miel tells the Horned Man he saw Perry's soul earlier, prompting him to ask for details.
A text bubble reveals that Perry's soul has been cruelly chained to a doll's body.
The silhouette of a woman appears bound by thorny vines, representing her trapped, fractured state.
The Horned Man frowns, clearly concerned and telling the others that Perry must be careful.
Miel explains that while humans and demons have red blood, fairy blood is light.
A sword blade is shown stained with fresh blood, highlighting the reality of their physical forms.
A glass of spilled wine serves as a metaphor for the leakage of one's soul.
The blue-haired boy and the Horned Man stand by, observing the aftermath of Viver.
The Horned Man stands in the room, his expression neutral as he awaits a response. Perry looks on with a calm expression, her silver hair catching the light as she waits.
The blue-haired boy and the blonde man look toward the Horned Man as he speaks.
The Horned Man's eyes narrow, an intense, golden glint appearing as he focuses on something.
An ancient, detailed map of the land is spread out before the group for analysis.
An advertisement displays a collection of adult comic covers for those seeking external content.
The Horned Man asks the others if they know the location of the human mages.
The blonde man begins to explain the history of the human mages to the group.
The blonde man points to a spot on the map, noting the former magic tower's location.
A ruined landscape with blue spirits is shown, rumored to be the work of Cardell.
The blonde man points out the location of the prestigious academy filled with human mages. The blonde man tilts his head, questioning why demons would prioritize human mages over themselves.
The Horned Man stands with his arms crossed, listening intently to the ongoing discussion.
Perry stands gracefully, her long dress flowing as she remains a silent observer.
The Horned Man declares they will travel to the human realm early the next morning.
The blue-haired boy looks visibly distressed and panicked upon hearing the sudden travel news. The blue-haired boy struggles with the announcement, clearly overwhelmed by the thought of leaving. The blue-haired boy stands frozen, his heart pounding at the prospect of the journey. The blue-haired boy feels a physical reaction, clutching himself as his anxiety spikes. A flashback shows the blue-haired boy in a dark, fiery place, pleading not to return.
A flashback shows the blue-haired boy cowering in a group, terrified of being taken.
A close-up captures the blue-haired boy's face, his eyes wide and filled with sudden fear.
The blue-haired boy flinches, his eyes shimmering with tears at the memory of his trauma.
A flashback reveals men in suits intimidating the boy, causing him to tremble in fear.
A sudden, sharp sound marks the blue-haired boy's emotional break as he snaps back.
The Horned Man and the blonde man turn around, startled by the noise and reaction. The blue-haired boy touches his face, looking shell-shocked as he comes back to reality.
Perry approaches the group, wondering why the boy did not return after his bedtime.
Perry addresses the men, suggesting the boy needs to speak with the master. Perry informs the group of the command to depart for the human realm tomorrow.
The blue-haired boy falters, his movements shaky and uncertain as he tries to speak.
The blonde man looks at the boy with concern, asking him what is the matter.
The blue-haired boy's shirt drops to the floor, leaving him standing in the room. The blue-haired boy is revealed to have a glowing red magic seal on his shoulder.
The blue-haired boy stands exposed, revealing numerous scars across his back and arms.
The blonde man flinches in shock, staring at the sight of the boy's severe scars. The blue-haired boy explains that the humans who marked him are responsible for these wounds. The blue-haired boy trembles, explaining that he will be tracked the moment he arrives. The blue-haired boy droops, voice trembling as he fears being captured and killed again.
The Horned Man looks at the boy, questioning why he brings up the nature of demons.
The blonde man looks at Perry, remarking that humans cannot replicate the magic of dragons. The Horned Man's eye glows with a piercing, golden intensity as he stares ahead.
The Horned Man offers to take care of the problematic seal for the boy.
The blue-haired boy looks stunned by the sudden, intense offer from the Horned Man.
The group looks on in silence as the Horned Man approaches the vulnerable boy. The Horned Man explains that a demon's destructive power is the only way to break it.
The Horned Man asks the boy to make a choice regarding his own fate.
The blue-haired boy gnaws his lip, realizing he has no other choice but to comply.
The blonde man tells the teal-haired boy that the latter must work to destroy his feel.
The horned man, standing with arms crossed, confirms he can remove the seal, but for a price.
A moment of resolute determination as the speaker accepts any cost required.
The Horned Man stands over the kneeling teal-haired boy and demands he beg for the favor.
The horned man stares at the teal-haired boy and warns him his body cannot withstand his power.
The Horned Man informs the teal-haired boy that a new contract and seal must replace the old one.
A hand places a pen down, and the horned man offers the teal-haired boy the chance to dictate terms.
The blonde man remarks to the white-haired woman that the teal-haired boy is reluctant to choose his master.
The teal-haired boy reacts with surprise upon hearing the mention of slaves.
The white-haired woman shrugs, admitting she also lacks knowledge about the situation.
The teal-haired boy asks if a contract implies specific conditions.
The horned man asserts that the only condition of the contract is absolute obedience.
The teal-haired boy recalls being forced by humans to commit atrocities in the name of obedience.
The white-haired woman reflects on her past, feeling that humans never treated her as a living being.
The white-haired woman questions the horned man if his demand for obedience implies the same suffering.
The horned man stares at the white-haired woman in silence. The teal-haired boy flinches. The horned man tells the teal-haired boy that he should become his aide instead.
The teal-haired boy expresses shock at the request, while the blonde man and white-haired woman look on.
The white-haired woman praises the teal-haired boy while he demands to be treated like an adult.
The horned man asks the teal-haired boy why he wants Miel to be his aide.
The white-haired woman wonders how the horned man knew about her unspoken thoughts.
The Horned Man prompts Miel for an answer regarding his offer. Miel hesitates, gulping before agreeing to the arrangement.
The horned man notes that the white-haired woman would have been disappointed if Miel refused.
The horned man hands a pen to Miel, telling him to draw whatever seal he desires.
Miel stands in profile, holding the paper.
Miel remarks that he has not seen this kind of task in a long time.
Miel muses that this practice is a common way of life for fairies. Miel explains that fairies are born, live, and die within the confines of the forest.
Miel notes that he understands the grief of those who become fugitives to leave the forest.
Miel asks the white-haired woman if she knows the fairy language. The blonde man and the horned man stand by a window as the former asks who taught Miel the language.
Miel explains to the white-haired woman that a fairy taught him, though that person is likely dead now.
The white-haired woman thinks to herself that the incident happened a long time ago.
Miel asks if he is permitted to include numbers in the seal, and the white-haired woman agrees.
The Horned Man steps behind the bare-chested Miel to initiate the sealing process.
Red energy surges across the scene.
A glowing seal appears on Miel's back as the blonde man complains about his hair being ruined.
Miel winces in pain as the mark is burned onto his skin.
The Horned Man dismisses Miel's pain, calling him a painee.
Miel slims forward after the painful sealing process.
The white-haired woman reaches out to steady the staggering Miel.
The white-haired woman pats Miel, offering comfort and care.
The white-haired woman notices a cut inside Miel's mouth and expresses concern. The blonde man grooms his hair while the horned man asks what else is needed.
The horned man tells the blonde man to help Miel as he is feeling exhausted.
The white-haired woman sighs in the presence of the horned man.
The horned man asks the white-haired woman why she wanted to go to the middle world.
The white-haired woman looks surprised as the horned man questions her about a hidden wound.
The horned man reminds Perry that he witnessed her condition, and she confirms she is fine.
Perry insists she is strong enough, but the horned man firmly tells her to rest.
The horned man notes that Perry needs rest as Leon and Miel observe the tense exchange.
Perry laments that at this rate they will leave in the morning without any sleep.
The horned man frowns with a look of deep, focused concern as he listens. The horned man decides to sleep in her room, leaving the blonde man, Leon, shocked.
Perry points out the single bed, but the horned man suggests Leon sleeps on the floor.
The horned man insists on staying despite Perry's belief that nothing good will come of it.
Perry questions why the horned man is being stubborn when he requested the shared room.
The horned man repeats that she is sick and must rest in the shared space.
The horned man tells Perry that she should keep her distance from him for now. Perry looks at the horned man, confused and asking him for the reason why. Leon shouts that if they do not sleep now, they will not get any rest.
The horned man tells Perry to leave with him while Leon smiles in the background.
Leon and Miel look at each other, with one asking the other if they are happy.
The scene shifts outside to a sunny day as a character decides to look around.
The horned man insists that Perry get some rest while they are in the hall.
The horned man stares at Perry with an intense, serious expression on his face.
The horned man suggests they return inside together, his voice echoing in the hallway.
Perry gazes through the window, contemplating the situation while surrounded by lush green plants.
Perry asks the horned man if she is his soulmate and if the bond is permanent.
The horned man denies this, reminding Perry that she swore upon her own soul.
Perry suggests an alternative arrangement to their current situation, looking at the horned man.
The horned man agrees to be her partner as long as their agreement remains intact. Perry explains that if the agreement breaks or a true soulmate appears, things will change.
The horned man expresses his desire for Perry to treat him only as a butler.
The horned man stands as Perry mumbles that she will be his forever if they agree.
Perry finishes her thought by adding that the arrangement lasts until a true soulmate appears.
Perry looks at the horned man with a small, knowing smile on her face. Perry thinks about how the horned man will eventually need to marry someone else.
The horned man stands by the window, stating that Perry is his true soulmate. The horned man smiles at Perry, claiming she is his even if she never agreed.
A bird chirps loudly near the window, filling the quiet space with morning sounds.
The horned man lies asleep in the bed, resting peacefully under the soft blankets.
Perry walks outside, questioning if assassins have been following them since the festival ended.
The scene shifts to the exterior wall as Perry wonders who might be targeting them.
Perry suspects they might be servants of the disgraced Duke or enemies of Julian.
Perry thinks to herself that whoever they are, she must remain vigilant and prepared.
Perry stands her ground as shadowy figures emerge, holding a flickering blue flame for defense.
Perry smirks with a grin as she prepares to confront the shadowy individuals.
Perry stares at the blood left on the ground, asking the figures for their identity.
Perry summons magical blue wolves to subdue the hooded men as she demands answers.
One of the injured hooded men groans in pain, clutching his side as he collapses.
Perry realizes something is wrong, noticing the silence of the attackers during the fight.
Perry realizes the men are not refusing to speak because they choose to stay silent.
Perry hovers over one of the attackers, looking closely at him with a serious expression.
Perry realizes the attackers cannot speak because they lack tongues and functional vocal cords.
A map sits on a table and someone notes that these attackers are agents of Pandora.
The group sits around a table as Leon explains Pandora is a brutal information guild.
Meal remarks that he has heard of them, explaining they act as an information guild.
The white-haired woman learns that Pandora is an information guild involved in various dark activities. The horned man suggests the guild was targeting the white-haired woman, not the blonde man.
The white-haired woman expresses confusion, insisting she has done nothing to warrant such attention.
The white-haired woman informs the others that one of the attackers is watching them.
As leaves rustle, the blonde man asks if those individuals are truly following the woman.
The horned man reveals that the group specifically targeted the white-haired woman while alone.
The horned man steps forward from behind the curtains, looking serious after the conversation.
The blonde man notes the attackers locked weapons and showed no intention of suicide.
The horned man stares intently, his eyes glowing as he asks for their current location.
The white-haired woman pauses, looking hesitant as she prepares to answer the horned man. The white-haired woman explains that her fire goblins caused the attackers to bleed to death. The horned man stands and asks the group if they can locate the guild. The horned man explains he must meet the guild before traveling to the middle world. The horned man says the guild must pay for attempting to harm the white-haired woman.
The white-haired woman recalls a past event, thinking her current companion is changed.
The horned man sips tea as he calls out to the white-haired woman, Perry.
The blonde man and the teal-haired boy laugh, teasing Perry about her recent outburst.
Perry questions if the horned man can read minds, to which he coldly denied it. The horned man smiles, telling Perry he does not need magic to understand her.
Perry kneels to comfort the young boy, showing a gentle side of her character.
The horned man and Perry sit together at the table, engaged in serious conversation.
Perry gazes forward in a moment of quiet, intense contemplation during their discussion.
Perry turns her head, looking surprised or suddenly struck by a realization.
Perry wonders if she is facing the same treatment she once gave to others.
Perry reflects on how the horned man knew her thoughts while the others bicker.
Perry looks at the others, still puzzled by the horned man's mysterious insight.
The horned man asks Perry if they have any robes available for their mission.
The blonde man confirms he has his own robe, and the group prepares to leave.
The scene shifts to the bright, open sky above the city as the day continues. A view of the city's architecture serves as the setting for their upcoming journey.
A black bird with red eyes watches over the rooftops as the shortcut begins. The group walks along a forest path, discussing how long the teal-haired boy stayed.
Perry notices the teal-haired boy's youthful appearance despite his decade-long tenure in hiding. The horned man offers to carry Perry if she becomes tired on their trek. Perry walks onward, thinking about how she arrived in this strange, chaotic, demonic world. A caption appears over a hazy background, emphasizing her confusion about her current situation.
The teal-haired boy points toward their destination as they emerge from the forest path.
The four cloaked figures reach their destination, standing together at the edge of town.
The blonde man and the horned man stand together, looking ready to infiltrate the area. The group arrives at a building marked as the branch office for the guild. The horned man instructs the blonde man to stay outside and maintain a lookout.
The blonde man grins, wishing the others luck as they proceed into the building.
The group walks into the dim, tavern-like interior of the guild's local branch office. A man with horns smirks, noting that some noble figures have arrived at the location. The man with horns asks why such respectable people are visiting this part of woods.
The horned man tosses a bag of coins onto the table with a loud thud.
The man with horns grabs the money, suddenly changing his tone to be helpful. The horned man, with Perry behind him, prepares to ask about the guild's services. The horned man repeats his request for services while the guild member listens closely.
The man with horns wears a sneer, clearly showing his disdain for the new visitors.
The story begins in a rustic wood-paneled establishment as a command is issued to follow. A figure calls for others to head in a specific direction inside the building.
A long-haired woman in a dark-hooded cloak pauses to take a sip of tea.
The woman in the cloak gestures, inviting the trio of newcomers to take a seat.
A horned man in a dark cloak speaks, stating he only requires confirmation of their service.
The woman in the cloak smiles, remarking that her organization, Pandora, accepts all requested tasks. The horned man scoffs, boasting that his group never refuses or fails to complete a job. The woman in the cloak questions if they truly never fail, and he confirms his claim. The woman in the cloak asks the identity of the person they call the Demon King's son. The horned man answers affirmatively, noting that some people have taken an interest in his butler.
The woman in the cloak asks why that particular matter should be of concern to him.
The horned man explains he is one of the demons interested, though his motives remain different. The woman in the cloak observes the situation and asks what exactly has captivated his interest. The woman with white hair intervenes, stating their master did not come here for casual conversation.
The woman in the cloak looks up from her tea, showing mild interest at the interruption.
The woman in the cloak places her teacup down, noting the gentleman has brought interesting company. The woman in the cloak claims to possess significant information, enough to identify the Demon King's son. The woman in the cloak snaps her fingers, taunting the group about her knowledge of his heritage.
A turquoise-haired person in a cloak flinches in response to the sudden reveal.
Several assailants emerge from the shadows, causing the group to alert their master to the threat.
The horned man touches his collar with a sigh, complaining about the nuisance of the attack.
One of the hooded assailants is struck by a sudden, violent burst of force, causing blood.
The woman in the cloak looks on, stunned, and asking how such an attack could happen.
The group reacts as a sudden crash echoes, and the horned man tells the others to stay back. The woman with white hair calls out to the turquoise-haired person, asking them to come closer. A sudden blow lands on the turquoise-haired person, who gasps in pain as they are struck. The turquoise-haired person winces in agony, clutching their side while gasping in distress. The group stands in tense silence as the turquoise-haired person struggles with the sudden physical impact. The woman with white hair remarks on her companion's poor fighting skills, comparing them to past encounters.
The turquoise-haired person struggling on the floor yells at the others to stop talking and help.
The woman with white hair conjures a blue flame, telling the others to stop.
The woman with white hair explains that they should not intervene until they reach the middle world. The horned man gazes at the woman with white hair, telling her to set aside her duties.
Surrounded by roses, the horned man asks her to trust him and let him handle it.
An assailant stands over the turquoise-haired person, questioning what they are doing while they falter.
The woman in the cloak screams for the assailants to kill them while claiming she cannot move.
The woman with white hair whispers that she trusts him, but begs him not to kill her. The horned man flashes a gentle smile, thanking the woman with white hair for her trust.
A sudden, powerful crack of energy erupts, leaving the group stunned by the unknown force.
A massive shockwave of red energy ripples through the room, causing a violent physical reaction.
A single glowing golden eye opens in the darkness, marking a surge of terrible power.
Blood pools on the floor as the mysterious destructive energy begins to manifest in the room. The horned man holds a glowing object while the woman with white hair looks on in shock. An unseen force of destruction begins to hiss, creating a terrifying atmosphere within the room.
The woman with white hair looks on with a focused, silent expression as the energy manifests.
A shout rings out from the shadows, demanding that the group surrender immediately.
The turquoise-haired person is held captive by an assailant, gasping for breath while being threatened.
The turquoise-haired person looks distraught, asking if they appear okay while the group watches.
A blade is pressed against the turquoise-haired person's neck with a demand for everyone to freeze.
The woman in the cloak bellows, threatening to kill the captive if the group does not surrender. A burst of blue magical fire flares to life in her room. The woman with white hair slaps the blue flames into the turquoise-haired man's hand.
The woman with white hair apologizes to Master Julian, unable to stop performing her butler duties.
The woman with white hair and the horned man stand over the turquoise-haired man as blue flames drift. The woman with white hair urges the turquoise-haired man, Meal, to leave and find ointment. Meal, the turquoise-haired man, insists on leaving the dangerous situation with the group. The woman with white hair demands to know who sent the assailant who is pleading for mercy. The woman with white hair calls out the assailant for lying, noting all branches are connected. The female assailant trembles, begging for time to investigate the matter for the woman with white hair. The woman with white hair scoffs at the female assailant for attempting such a clumsy stunt. The woman with white hair maintains her cool demeanor, surrounding the female assailant with blue flame. The female assailant screams as the rustic building is shown from an exterior view at sunset. The woman with white hair glares intensely at the female assailant during their interrogation. The woman with white hair mocks the female assailant, offering to do a better job torturing her.
The woman with white hair and the horned man stand together, sharing a silent, mutual look.
The woman with white hair ignores the horned man, who presses her about their shared oath. The horned man looks at the woman with white hair, bitterly remarking on their temporary bond.
The horned man reminds the woman with white hair that they are soulmates for the time being.
The woman with white hair gasps as the turquoise-haired Meal suddenly falls ill from stress.
Meal, the turquoise-haired man, laughs nervously while admitting the reality of the situation hit him.
The woman with white hair asks the female assailant if she is finally ready to talk.
The woman with white hair coldly informs the female assailant that the spirits she killed are watching.
The woman with white hair looms over the seated female assailant, demanding the identity of her master.
The female assailant trembles in terror, her face pale as she continues to shake. The female assailant murmurs incoherently as the group watches her fall into a state of shock.
The female assailant cries out that if she reveals her client, Pandora will surely kill her.
The woman with white hair bluntly warns the female assailant that silence will lead to death.
A new man arrives at the scene, reporting to the woman with white hair that he has brought the person.
The newcomer, an elderly man with a small horn, is identified as the branch manager.
The room is shown in disarray, with furniture overturned and tea spilled across the floor.
The elderly branch manager looks on in confusion and shock, asking who the group is.
The group explains they are simply a client who was attacked by the branch's people first.
The woman with white hair and the horned man nod in agreement with the explanation.
Meal, the turquoise-haired man, watches the woman with white hair, intimidated by her boldness.
The female assailant quivers in silence, unable to offer any further response.
The woman with white hair stands tall, her silhouette illuminated in the room.
The woman with white hair mutters about the demon dukes, a dragon, and Julian's butler, Perry.
A spotlight reveals the woman with white hair as the name Perry is spoken aloud.
Meal, the turquoise-haired man, asks the horned man why she is speaking about a dragon.
The horned man pats Miel, the turquoise-haired man, on the shoulder and tells him to go.
The woman with white hair and the horned man agree that they have learned enough today. The group walks through the town under a purple night sky, reflecting on the day's events.
A blonde man joins the group, teasing them for not asking for his help sooner.
The horned man dismisses the blonde man, noting his help would have made no difference.
The horned man tells the woman with white hair that he is surprised she just realized his distaste. The group discusses the likelihood of the demon dukes hiring assassins to keep Perry in check. The woman with white hair ponders why the female assailant mentioned a dragon. The blonde man expresses disbelief at the idea of reclusive dragons teaming up with demon dukes.
The group walks down a street at night with the blonde man urging them to investigate further.
The woman with white hair worries that if their theories are correct, the dragons will target her.
The man with horns stares ahead, his expression solemn and focused.
A subtle turn captures the man with horns as he shifts his gaze.
The woman with white hair and the horned man stand together as their companion calls out to Master Julian. The woman with white hair listens as the man with horns denies having spoken yet. The man with horns admits his trepidation regarding what the woman with white hair might say.
The woman with white hair expresses concern about the man with horns potentially meeting the dragon. The man with horns looks thoughtful, resting his chin on his hand while surrounded by roses.
The woman with white hair gazes forward with a composed and steady expression.
A close look at their cloaked forms standing together on the tiled ground.
The woman with white hair smiles, expressing her confidence that Julian is aware of the situation.
The man with horns offers a gentle, subtle smile while looking to the side.
The woman with white hair remarks on their current status as temporary soulmates.
The woman with white hair clarifies that her assistance is limited until he finds his true match.
The woman with white hair insists that the man with horns must actively seek his true soulmate.
The man with horns acknowledges the instruction, addressing her as Perry.
The man with horns questions if he remains her soulmate for the time being. The woman with white hair clarifies that it is only a temporary bond, leaving the man confused.
Neil, the turquoise-haired man, looks on as he questions the commotion happening nearby.
A man with horns confronts the group, demanding they stop interfering with his lady's business.
The blonde man scoffs, criticizing the horned man for his failure to act like a true demon.
Tensions rise as the horned man and the blonde man exchange heated words while Miel looks on nervously. The woman with white hair sighs, observing the group with a weary expression.
The group stands together in the evening, with the woman with white hair and the man with horns in the back.
Meal, the turquoise-haired man, looks startled and distressed.
A man with horns shoves Meal, complaining that he cannot sense any demonic energy from him. The blonde man places a hand on Meal's shoulder, telling him not to interfere. The woman with white hair stands nearby, telling Meal there is no need to hide his role as Julian's aide.
The woman with white hair leans in to whisper a harsh insult to Miel while covering her mouth. The woman with white hair gives a thumbs up to Miel, who looks bewildered by her change in attitude. A speech bubble contains the muffled, indecipherable murmur of the woman with white hair's insult. Miel cries out in frustration, clenching his fist as he reacts to the situation. The blonde man and the woman with white hair pat Miel's head, teasingly calling him a blubber. Miel is visibly upset and confused as to why the woman with white hair is petting his head. The group stands together as the woman with white hair clears her throat, calling the others fools. The man with horns points, announcing that Lady Jane demands an audience with them. The man with horns looks on with a sharp, piercing gaze. A hand reaches out to grab the woman with white hair by her cloak.
A man with horns threatens to kill the woman with white hair if the others attempt to resist.
The woman with white hair easily crumples the blade held against her, leaving the man stunned.
The group behind the attacker looks on in complete shock as the weapon is rendered useless. The woman with white hair strikes the attacker, sending him flying with a powerful blow.
The woman with white hair brushes off her hands, asking Master Julian if she should handle the rest.
The woman with white hair and the man with horns converse, deciding against using spiritual powers.
The woman with white hair, the man with horns, and their companions stand in a tense standoff.
The blonde man glances to the side, realizing the true identity of the demon before him.
Lady Jane, a purple-haired woman with horns, stands surrounded by thorns and roses.
The blonde man recognizes the woman as Jerry, the Night Witch.
The woman with purple hair introduces herself as Jane, asserting her presence.
Jane dismisses the blonde man's attempt at familiarity, offended by being treated as an equal.
The blonde man asks the woman with white hair why the daughter of a demon is among them.
The purple-haired demon woman interrupts the group, demanding they mind their own business.
The dark-haired horned man stares coldly at the purple-haired demon woman.
The dark-haired horned man and the purple-haired demon woman stand in close proximity.
The white-haired woman flinches in reaction to the scene.
A close-up reveals the intense, glowing golden eye of the dark-haired horned man.
The white-haired woman watches as the dark-haired horned man engages with the purple-haired demon woman.
The purple-haired demon woman insists she cares nothing for the dark-haired horned man's status.
The white-haired woman looks on with a steady, watchful gaze.
A blonde man and his companion react in shock, calling the situation reckless.
The dark-haired horned man bluntly refuses the advances of the purple-haired demon woman.
The purple-haired demon woman twitches with annoyance at his rejection. The purple-haired demon woman tries to entice the dark-haired horned man with marriage and a title.
The purple-haired demon woman vows she will not forget the dark-haired horned man's refusal.
The dark-haired horned man warns the purple-haired demon woman about the consequences of attacking his people.
The white-haired woman questions if this is how demons typically conduct their marriage proposals.
The group observes as the purple-haired demon woman explains her behavior is fueled by strength.
The blonde man remarks that he and his companion remain single due to strength standards. The purple-haired demon woman calls the white-haired woman a brat.
The dark-haired horned man mutters the word brat in contemplation.
The white-haired woman wonders if the dark-haired horned man is simply an immature person.
The white-haired woman considers the harsh reality of their world where the victor rules.
The purple-haired demon woman asserts her status as a noble daughter to justify her actions.
The dark-haired horned man and the white-haired woman walk forward together.
The purple-haired demon woman is identified as the heir of Demon King Cardell.
Flowers frame a dark, elegant cloak worn by the dark-haired horned man.
The purple-haired demon woman is stunned to learn the man is Master Julian.
The purple-haired demon woman tries to remind Julian of their childhood friendship.
A gloved hand trembles as the purple-haired demon woman tries to jog his memory.
Julian dismisses the notion of past friendships, claiming he has no such memories.
The purple-haired demon woman blushes in frustration as Julian forgets their history.
The white-haired woman suspects Julian was cast out for his delayed awakening.
Julian orders the purple-haired demon woman to leave as he grows tired of her.
The purple-haired demon woman grits her teeth in fury as she starts to object.
The purple-haired demon woman screams for the group to stop as they walk away.
The white-haired woman laments Julian's lack of childhood friends.
The white-haired woman glances at Julian with a gentle expression.
The purple-haired demon woman shouts in indignation, demanding respect.
Julian leans down to tell the white-haired woman she is his soulmate.
The white-haired woman accepts the label of temporary soulmate with a smirk.
The purple-haired demon woman stares in disbelief at the interaction.
The blonde man and his companion look on, confused by the concept of soulmates.
The purple-haired demon woman is shocked to learn Julian has a soulmate.
Julian remains stoic, ignoring the chaotic energy surrounding him.
The purple-haired demon woman strikes out with a surge of dark energy. A wave of energy crackles through the air, threatening to strike the group.
The white-haired woman recognizes the dangerous demonic energy of a night witch.
Dark energy surges forward like a whip toward the group.
Julian pulls the white-haired woman into a protective embrace.
A bright flash erupts, signaling a magical shift in the standoff.
The white-haired woman watches intensely as the battle escalation begins.
The white-haired woman embraces Julian, the dark-haired horned man, as she glances behind them.
A magical rush of energy erupts, signaling a powerful and sudden shift in the environment. The white-haired woman and Julian stand before a towering tree, puzzled by its presence.
Meal, the turquoise-haired man, peeks from behind the tree and asks if they are okay.
The group gathers near the tree as Julian praises Meal's work, leaving Meal looking flustered.
Meal reacts with alarm to the white-haired woman's aggressive declaration of intent to destroy Jane.
A blonde man steps forward, his appearance marked by a sudden, focused movement.
Jane, the purple-haired demon, is held close by the blonde man in a mock romantic gesture.
Jane looks up, her expression dazed and swirling with disorientation as her eyes lose focus.
The blonde man holds a glowing red orb of energy, tauntingly thanking Jane for her contribution.
The blonde man flashes a pair of glowing reptilian slit eyes, revealing his true predatory nature.
The white-haired woman sighs, remarking on the blonde man's obsessive focus on gathering spiritual energy.
The white-haired woman notes Jane's weakness, expressing surprise that a demon noble could be defeated.
The blonde man shrugs dismissively, suggesting his superior strength is the reason for their success.
The blonde man explains he belongs to a distinct and rare lineage of night witches.
A blonde woman, Leah, joins the blonde man, winking as they boast of their noble heritage.
The white-haired woman observes that Julian and Leah are the sole survivors of their fallen family.
The group discusses their travel plans, prioritizing reaching the middle world to stay on schedule.
The white-haired woman and Julian look on as the blonde man dismissively questions Jane's identity.
The blonde man shrugs, admitting he drained Jane's recent memories, finding them rather flavorless.
The blonde man reminisces about his past meals, noting that while Jane was dull, others were fun.
The sun shines brightly over a quaint, picturesque village, marking their arrival at a new destination.
A horse trots through the village as the group questions why two of them are sharing a mount.
The white-haired woman clings to Julian on horseback, sparking chatter about her inability to ride solo.
The group rides through the town, snickering and whispering about the odd pairing of their companions. The blonde man makes a teasing comment, prompting a swift physical correction from Julian.
Julian glares with intense glowing eyes, firmly ordering the group to continue without any further delay.
The group acknowledges the command and a hand pulls the reins to urge the horse forward.
The horses gallop through the stone streets, leaving the town behind as they hasten their pace.
Julian and the white-haired woman ride together at a steady, focused gallop.
The group races toward their destination, noting how much has transpired over the past few days.
The white-haired woman smiles softly, her eyes reflecting the journey ahead.
Meal, the turquoise-haired man, pants heavily, visibly exhausted by the group's relentless pace. The group finds the remains of a fallen traveler lying on the ground, bloodied and abandoned.
The white-haired woman expresses frustration, wondering why public safety in Delcone has become so dire.
The blonde man kneels to search the fallen body while Julian watches with a stoic expression.
The white-haired woman stares ahead, her expression suddenly sharp with realization. A hand holds up a golden, intricate pocket watch, its hands ticking rhythmically.
The white-haired woman identifies the watch while Julian observes the markings of Demon Count Gurk.
The blonde man links the emblem to the noblewoman who harassed them the previous night.
The white-haired woman stares intensely at the watch as Meal sits on the ground, weary. The white-haired woman pauses, her eyes widening in a moment of sudden surprise. The white-haired woman slams the watch against a tree, shattering it instantly. Meal cries out in shock, clutching his head at the white-haired woman's sudden, violent outburst.
A hidden piece of parchment flutters out from the broken watch, drifting toward the air.
The white-haired woman holds the recovered document as the group gathers around in confusion. The white-haired woman examines the note, confirming it contains coordinates and descriptions of their group.
The white-haired woman notes that her own name is specifically highlighted on the list. Julian sighs, suggesting the trap is the work of Jane or possibly the elusive Gurk.
Julian declares that if Gurk were truly behind this, he would have approached them personally.
The white-haired woman stands alongside the dark-haired horned man in a garden setting.
The white-haired woman internally reflects on her relief that she is the current target. The turquoise-haired man notes that the white-haired woman often faces bizarre and unusual circumstances.
The dark-haired horned man muses that he is likely the reason the demon is attacking.
The blonde man expresses skepticism about the dark-haired horned man's options in the situation.
A bouquet of roses lies abandoned on the ground, surrounded by thorny, dark imagery.
The white-haired woman looks on with a focused and serious expression.
The setting shifts to a grand palace under a dark, dramatic, and ominous sunset sky. The white-haired woman crushes a small, ornate object in her hand with sudden intensity. The white-haired woman stares at the floor as she questions the sudden turn of events.
The group stands together in a field, questioning the responsibility of parents for their children.
The white-haired woman rummages through a bag while the others watch her actions closely.
The dark-haired horned man asks the white-haired woman what she is doing as she searches.
The white-haired woman assures the dark-haired horned man while holding a large golden map.
The white-haired woman summons a magical blue flame, declaring her intent to teach a lesson.
The dark-haired horned man calls out to the white-haired woman in alarm as she prepares.
The white-haired woman rides a massive spectral blue bird into internships, promising return.
The dark-haired horned man tries to stop the white-haired woman, insisting on joining her.
The white-haired woman refuses the dark-haired horned man's help, dismissing the others as deadweight.
The dark-haired horned man watches helplessly as the white-haired woman departs without him. The white-haired woman glides through the bright blue sky atop her magical bluebird.
The blonde man whispers to the dark-haired horned man about the white-haired woman's coldness.
The dark-haired horned man gazes toward the horizon with a somber and pensive expression.
The white-haired woman approaches a grand, towering structure enveloped in her magical blue aura. The white-haired woman arrives at the palace gate, met by two guards holding long spears.
The white-haired woman stops before the guards, who demand she identify herself immediately.
The guards demand that the white-haired woman identify herself and explain her presence.
The white-haired woman explains she is here because a demon count's daughter left an item.
The guard flinches in shock as the white-haired woman mentions the name of the lordship.
The white-haired woman smiles brightly while holding up a damaged, antique pocket watch.
The guards whisper to each other, realizing the watch belongs to the noble Lady Jane.
A guard clears his throat, apologetically addressing the white-haired woman as my lady. The white-haired woman responds to the guard's formality by denying her status as a lady.
A formal announcement is made to alert that a guest with the watch has arrived. A steaming cup of tea is set down on a table as the host expresses excitement.
A smiling, bald man with horns and a mustache welcomes his visitor to the room.
The host invites the white-haired woman to sit, leaving her confused by his warmth.
The white-haired woman stares at the host, wondering why he has prepared tea for her.
The host asks the white-haired woman if she successfully dealt with the future king's butler.
The host wipes his brow while the white-haired woman listens to his commentary on dragons.
The white-haired woman looks on with a blank expression as the host mentions a dragon.
The white-haired woman wonders internally if the demons genuinely believe she is a dragon.
The host asks if the job was completed, noting the absence of wings on the butler.
The host expresses relief and excitement, wishing he had hired the white-haired woman sooner.
The white-haired woman reflects in her tea, hoping the host's superiors are satisfied.
The host mentions that notifying the Demon Duke will result in a sizable reward.
The white-haired woman questions if the Demon Dukes are also involved in the current situation. The host is annoyed that the white-haired woman is unaware of the simple facts involved.
The host sips his tea, mocking the white-haired woman for her apparent lack of knowledge.
A massive dragon is shown looming over a castle, symbolizing the broken pact between species. A rolled parchment tied with a red seal rests in the center of the frame.
The host expresses sympathy for the white-haired woman having to endure interactions with foolish nobles.
The host offers the white-haired woman a small souvenir, sliding it across the table toward her.
The white-haired woman asks what it is, and the host explains it describes her target.
The host twitches as he hands over the piece of parchment, his expression tense and uneasy.
The white-haired woman inspects the parchment, which lists physical traits like silver hair and pale skin. The host feels a sudden chill, his face showing visible alarm as he stares off panel. The white-haired woman introduces herself as Perry, a butler serving the Demon King's castle.
A close-up shows the white-haired woman's eyes as she smiles and claims to be a doll.
The host jumps back in shock, frantically calling out to see if anyone is nearby.
The white-haired woman summons blue flames and warns the host that calling for help is unwise.
The host recoils in terror, crying out as he realizes he is face-to-face with a dragon. The host panics, exclaiming his surprise at the dragon's powers, while the white-haired woman denies being one.
A blade suddenly appears at the white-haired woman's neck, held by an unseen hand.
A dark-haired horned man emerges from the shadows, threatening the white-haired woman's life if she moves. The dark-haired horned man reiterates his lethal threat to the white-haired woman as he holds his blade.
The host complains about the assassin's slow arrival, fretting that the white-haired woman might have injured him.
The dark-haired horned man keeps the blade at her throat, claiming his presence alone is insufficient.
The white-haired woman appears headless as the dark-haired horned man continues his assault.
The dark-haired horned man prepares his sword, the metallic sound echoing in the room.
The dark-haired horned man's eyes glow with intensity as he realizes the situation is unusual.
The white-haired woman calmly pats the dark-haired horned man, wondering aloud how he arrived so quickly.
The white-haired woman smiles serenely, repeating that her resilience is due to being a doll.
The dark-haired horned man remains on guard, repeating her statement in stunned disbelief.
The door to the room is suddenly blasted open, causing a massive explosion.
The dark-haired horned man gasps as the white-haired woman looks toward the newly created opening.
Julian enters the room and the white-haired woman identifies him by name with surprise.
A mysterious shadow looms in the doorway, cast across the floor of the palace room. Julian's face twitches in frustration as he surveys the scene of the confrontation.
A voice from the darkness demands to know which of the local worms committed this act.
The white-haired woman points at the dark-haired horned man, calling him a worm.
Red energy fills the room as Julian prepares to unleash his power against the assassin.
The dark-haired horned man grimaces, caught off guard by the sudden shift in energy. The white-haired woman watches the scene, noting that the force being released is destruction itself. The host screams in frustration, concerned about the high cost of the furniture being destroyed.
Blood drips onto the floor from the dark-haired horned man's blade as the battle continues.
The dark-haired horned man staggers, his movement hampered by the overwhelming power in the room. The dark-haired horned man faces Julian, who stands surrounded by a menacing red aura.
A close-up of a reptilian eye reveals the true, monstrous nature of the entity present.
The dark-haired horned man shudders in terror, feeling the weight of the power Julian wields. The dark-haired horned man swings his sword, attempting a desperate final attack.
The dark-haired horned man points his blade at the white-haired woman, threatening her life again.
Julian falters, his confidence shaken by the assassin's direct threat against the woman. The white-haired woman remains calm, goading Julian to proceed despite the blade at her neck.
Julian clenches his fist tightly, the red energy pulsing with his agitation.
Julian releases a sudden burst of energy, his expression hardening as he prepares to act.
The white-haired woman calls out to Julian, her eyes wide as she awaits his next move. The host cheers for Julian, encouraging him to kill the white-haired woman without hesitation.
The host continues to demand the white-haired woman's death, identifying her as a target for the Demon Duke.
The white-haired woman muses on how the assassin intended to kill a dragon when they cannot kill her.
A hand forcefully grabs a blade, interrupting the threat directed at Perry.
Perry maintains a calm, composed expression as she catches the incoming blade.
The assassin with horns looks on in complete shock at the sudden interception. Perry exerts pressure, causing the blade to shatter instantly in her grip. Perry's golden eyes fixate on the broken weapon with a focused, analytical gaze. Perry swiftly flicks her wrist, discarding the remnants of the shattered sword.
The bald host cries out in sudden pain, startled by the unexpected violence.
A piece of the broken blade slides through the air, causing the host to gasp.
The host collapses onto the floor, and Perry commands Julian to bind him. Julian descends from the shadows above, ready to confront the stunned assassin.
Perry keeps her composure while the assassin watches her with wary eyes. The assassin lunges forward with a desperate cry, intent on killing Perry.
Perry effortlessly deflects the attack, sending the assassin crashing into the wall.
Perry and Julian stand victorious over the defeated host and the restrained assassin.
Perry stands serenely, her expression unbothered by the chaos she just quelled. Perry steps out to a balcony, noting the assassin had tried to act independently. Two men arrive at the palace entrance, calling out to Perry and Julian. One of the newcomers asks if Perry handled the entire confrontation by herself. Perry briefly acknowledges their arrival before ordering them to take the prisoners away. One of the men complains about having to work immediately upon his arrival. Perry instructs the man to lead the way, despite his reluctance to return.
The horned man glances toward the exit while dragging the captured assassin oar.
Perry watches the scene unfold, her expression reflecting a quiet, lingering thought.
The horned man gently approaches Perry, asking if she is physically unharmed. Perry confirms she is perfectly fine, her tone remaining calm and steady.
The horned man looks at Perry with a trace of lingering concern.
Perry reassures the others that she is completely unhurt after the battle. The man with green hair remarks that Perry lacks any detectable spiritual energy.
The horned man breathes a sigh of relief upon hearing that Perry is safe.
The horned man lifts Perry into his arms, signaling it is time to depart.
Perry protests slightly, insisting she is capable of walking under her own power.
The horned man admits his anxiety, explaining that he was genuinely worried for her.
Perry stares at the horned man, feeling her heart skip a rhythmic beat. Perry internally questions why she feels so strange while being held by him.
The horned man carries Perry away from the palace as they exit the seam.
Standing outside, Perry asks the horned man about the location of their horses.
The horned man hands a bag to Perry, clinking with the sound of belongings. The horned man admits he forgot the luggage because he was focused on her.
Perry looks on with a soft, thoughtful expression after hearing his confession.
The green-haired man arrives, joyfully announcing that he retrieved all of their things. The horned man places a hand on Perry's chest, citing their soul pledge connection.
Perry reflects on the power of the soul pledge and envies his unique ska.
Perry summons a massive spectral blue bird of flame for their departure.
The palace erupts into flames, a destructive consequence of the earlier conflict.
Perry and the horned man watch as the blue energy swirls into the sky.
The green-haired man screams in distress as the magical fire begins to spread.
Perry wonders internally why she feels an uncharacteristic sense of happiness right now.
She contemplates this strange emotion as the wind whisks them away from home.
The horned man speaks, satisfied that their attackers received their just punishment.
Perry gazes into the horned man's eyes, capturing his image within her own.
A dark-haired horned man stands in a sunset-lit forest, thinking about Julian finding him.
The dark-haired horned man stands in the woods, facing the silver-haired woman.
A close-up of the silver-haired woman shows her with a serious, focused expression.
The dark-haired horned man speaks the silver-haired woman's name with a somber tone.
The silver-haired woman fidgets with her hands, looking nervous in the forest setting. The silver-haired woman points toward a blue spectral bird, mentioning its strange behavior.
The dark-haired horned man tilts his head, listening to the silver-haired woman's comment.
The silver-haired woman asks if the dark-haired horned man is hiding his poor health.
The silver-haired woman reflects on her hope that her internal feelings would simply disappear.
The silver-haired woman and the dark-haired horned man stand together in the woods.
The silver-haired woman's golden eyes widen as she realizes her true feelings are surfacing.
The silver-haired woman realizes her own emotions are unimportant, as the horned man calls her.
The silver-haired woman replies to the dark-haired horned man, confirming she is all right.
The dark-haired horned man pouts, looking at the silver-haired woman with a frustrated expression.
The silver-haired woman reminds the dark-haired horned man that he agreed to use her name.
The dark-haired horned man looks concerned, insisting the silver-haired woman is still his master.
The spectral blue bird flies above as the silver-haired woman urges the horned man forward.
The dark-haired horned man asserts that the silver-haired woman is his temporary soulmate, not Butler.
The dark-haired horned man looks intensely at the silver-haired woman, his expression resolute.
A close-up shows the dark-haired horned man's hand clenched into a tight, frustrated fist. The silver-haired woman turns and walks away from the dark-haired horned man.
The dark-haired horned man stands behind the silver-haired woman as blue energy dissipates.
The moon shines brightly over the dark trees, marking the arrival of night. A campfire crackles in the night as the silver-haired woman suggests setting up camp.
The silver-haired woman rises to scavenge for food and the horned man follows her.
The dark-haired horned man thinks about Julian's silence and his discomfort being alone.
The silver-haired woman and the dark-haired horned man walk together through the forest.
The silver-haired woman asks the dark-haired horned man if he truly hates her.
The silver-haired woman stands with her back to the dark-haired horned man, questioning his words.
The dark-haired horned man stares at the silver-haired woman with glowing, intense eyes.
A speech bubble asks the silver-haired woman if she remembers what happened just now.
A grand illuminated mansion stands silhouetted against the dark night sky and full moon.
The woman with purple hair flinches as a chandelier is flung across the room. A fallen chandelier lies on the floor while a voice curses a lowly, unnamed cretin. The purple-haired woman stares in shock, her hand pressed against her face.
A distorted image of the purple-haired woman smirks, mocking the silver-haired woman's beauty. The purple-haired woman shatters a mirror in a fit of sudden, violent rage.
The purple-haired woman stands by the shattered mirror, breathing heavily as a servant watches.
The purple-haired woman scowls, wondering how Julian could ever choose a mere butler.
A group of shadowed figures stands near a child, discussing how he survived to awaken.
The purple-haired woman stands with her back to the camera, recalling rumors of a failure. The purple-haired woman smirks, vowing to seduce him and become the next demon queen.
The dark-haired horned man and the silver-haired woman walk together, hiding their true pledge. The purple-haired woman screams at the green-haired attendant, demanding he pow.
The purple-haired woman orders the green-haired attendant to locate Julian and his group.
The purple-haired woman hits the green-haired attendant over the head with a heavy pitcher.
The purple-haired woman yells at the cowering green-haired attendant to stop hesitating.
The purple-haired woman smiles menacingly, planning to learn more about the silver-haired woman. The green-haired attendant explains that the office they need is currently closed down.
The purple-haired woman explodes in anger while a newcomer arrives with an urgent report.
The dark-haired horned man is winded and startled, asking why someone entered without knocking. A purple-haired woman with red horns stands in the room hearing news of a fire. The purple-haired woman with red horns stands in the room hearing news of a fire.
The dark-haired horned man bows and informs the lady that the Demon King's son caused it. The purple-haired woman grits her teeth in a sudden flash of anger.
The dark-haired horned man looks hesitant, asking if he should capture and bring him back.
The purple-haired woman snaps, asking him if that is even a question worth asking.
The purple-haired woman pauses and changes her mind, deciding to address the situation differently.
The purple-haired woman commands that the woman be ignored and directs him to find Julian.
The purple-haired woman muses that the damage to Gert Castle might be useful to her.
The purple-haired woman resolves to replace the butler when she becomes the demon queen.
The purple-haired woman demands that everyone leave the room immediately.
A document lies on a table near an ornate writing utensil.
Beneath the full moon, a voice asks if she likes him.
The silver-haired woman stands in the forest while the dark-haired horned man watches her.
The silver-haired woman closes her eyes and confirms she does as his butler.
The dark-haired horned man squeezes his hand in frustration, reminding her he is her butler. The dark-haired horned man grabs her hand, asking if her behavior is from using powers.
The silver-haired woman insists that it is nothing for him to worry about.
The dark-haired horned man warns her that she will damage herself at this rate. The dark-haired horned man notes that a fairy said her soul could leak out.
The silver-haired woman steps away, stating that it will only weaken, not kill her.
The dark-haired horned man stares with intense, glowing eyes at the silver-haired woman.
The dark-haired horned man asks her if she really wants to die that badly.
The silver-haired woman internally reflects on her past desire to die, which has now changed. The silver-haired woman walks away, her expression pensive and melancholic.
The silver-haired woman tells the dark-haired horned man that her survival depends on him.
The dark-haired horned man questions why she looks into the distance, wishing for death.
The silver-haired woman replies that she is not like other living beings. The dark-haired horned man reaches out and grabs the silver-haired woman's hand.
The dark-haired horned man pulls the silver-haired woman into a warm, protective hug.
The dark-haired horned man embraces her, telling her she is more than a mere butler.
The silver-haired woman recalls her parents' happiness and wishes to share that with him.
The silver-haired woman remembers her parents' happiness and wishes to share that with him.
The dark-haired horned man places his hands on the silver-haired woman's shoulders.
The silver-haired woman asks the dark-haired horned man to promise her one thing. The dark-haired horned man readily agrees to grant her any wish she has.
The dark-haired horned man listens as she asks him to let go of his feelings.
The silver-haired woman stands face to face with the dark-haired horned man under the moon.
The dark-haired horned man closes his eyes in silent, somber agreement.
Water drips steadily in a dark, cavernous space.
A man stands in the cavern, gulping as he surveys the surroundings.
A massive red dragon hangs from the cavern walls, observing the small man. The red dragon tilts its head, questioning if a dragon broke an ancient agreement.
The man maintains his composure, claiming that is what people are currently saying. The man tells the red dragon that people suspect the new butler is a dragon.
The man nervously clears his throat, explaining how easily a dragon can mask their presence. The red dragon blinks its massive eye, causing the man to flinch in fear.
A magical light swirls, revealing a man with reddish hair and a regal cloak.
The red-haired man smiles condescendingly, mocking the magical powers of the Gibbons.
The brown-haired man with small horns questions the red-haired man's carelessness with light magic.
The red-haired man asks for respect regarding his age while the brown-haired man observes him.
The red-haired man contemplates that the brat Cardell must be behind the current situation.
The brown-haired man identifies himself as the aide, which the red-haired man acknowledges with interest.
The brown-haired man notes that his master has been too busy ruling to visit him.
The red-haired man complains that the younger-looking man behaves like a stubborn old person.
The brown-haired man internally questions if this dragon truly helped his master find a soulmate.
The red-haired man smirks, noting that the master remained very obstinate even while he slept.
The red-haired man casually mentions it has been a few hundred years since they met.
The brown-haired man looks toward the red-haired man who seems deep in thought.
The red-haired man smiles and waves his hand while reminiscing about the passage of time.
The red-haired man sneers, suggesting a few centuries is nothing compared to thousands of years.
The red-haired man chuckles, musing that he may have acted too human lately.
The red-haired man notes that the demon kingdom is in chaos because of his actions.
The red-haired man snaps his fingers, his expression shifting to a sly, pleased grin.
A dining room table is illuminated by a sudden, magical burst of light.
The red-haired man invites the others to sit at the grand formal dinner table.
The dark-haired man with horns scoffs at the red-haired man's perceived lack of heart.
The red-haired man asks if the dark-haired man wants him to confirm the butler's nature.
The dark-haired man confirms that the demon dukes suspect the butler is a dragon.
The red-haired man absent-mindedly eats a grape while pondering the situation.
The red-haired man points at the dark-haired man, demanding he explain the situation clearly.
The brown-haired man groans, warning the others not to expect him to lie.
The brown-haired man solemnly nods while stating that the master's butler is not a dragon.
The dark-haired man explains that the dukes believe the silver-haired woman is a dragon. The red-haired man wonders about the mention of blue flames and fire goblins.
The red-haired man's eye twitches as he questions the true nature of the woman.
The dark-haired man reveals the woman is a doll found in a collapsed tower.
The red-haired man muses that humans are always up to trouble, noting his return.
The dark-haired man explains they have spread rumors about the butler being a dragon.
The red-haired man asks if the butler is really a dragon, seeking clarification.
The red-haired man fumbles with his robes as the dark-haired man dismisses the possibility.
The red-haired man tosses a magical artifact to the brown-haired man, instructing him to catch.
The brown-haired man stares at the glowing, mysterious artifact in his hands.
The brown-haired man listens as the red-haired man explains how to summon him.
The red-haired man instructs the brown-haired man to use demonic energy for the summons.
The red-haired man flashes a wide, menacing grin at the others present.
The red-haired man offers dewdrops to the small fairy, Miel, in the forest.
The trio sits around a campfire, the silver-haired woman offering a drink.
The green-haired man inspects a cooked skewer, feeling suspicious about their knowledge of fairies.
The silver-haired woman stares into the fire while the green-haired man watches her.
The green-haired man worries about indigestion while the dark-haired man addresses him.
The green-haired man drops his drink in shock at the mention of a weigh-in.
The green-haired man, startled and drooling, asks if they are actually getting married.
The silver-haired woman coldly rejects the idea of marriage, insisting she is not interested.
The dark-haired man glares, insisting they must proceed because they are soulmates.
The silver-haired woman maintains a stern expression, repeating that she lacks any interest.
The green-haired man sits by the fire, wondering why they are discussing such a pledge.
The silver-haired woman looks stoic, her face framed by sharp, thorn-like shadows. The narrative explains the complexity of divorce and the gravity of demonic marriage vows. The sunrise paints the sky, marking the serious weight of vows and divorce. Master Julian, appearing with horns, questions the suggestion to take things slowly. The woman with silver hair reminds him that marriage is not his to decide.
The silver-haired woman proposes that they start by becoming a couple first.
Julian blinks in confusion, asking the silver-haired woman if she truly means a couple.
Julian frowns, voicing his fear that couples can break up and she might leave.
Perry, the silver-haired woman, insists on a proper order, noting she lacks patience. Julian retorts that Perry did not raise him, asserting his own independence.
Perry narrows her eyes, questioning his dismissal of her influence.
Perry asks who taught him to eat broccoli, reminding him of her role.
Perry asks who taught him to recognize bullies, referencing a past time he was tied up.
Perry asks who attacked his friend's family for him, prompting Julian's quiet realization.
Perry declares herself the one who raised him, while Julian accepts a piece of fruit.
Julian speaks with his mouth full, struggling to deny Perry's claim of raising him.
Perry and the blue-haired boy tell Julian he should not talk while EO.
The blue-haired boy looks on with an attentive expression, listening to the conversation.
A campfire crackles and flares, casting a warm light on the surrounding woods.
Perry walks away, her silver hair catching the light as she moves gracefully.
Perry spots Miel alone on a path and calls out to her.
Perry asks about Julian's location, and Miel confirms that he is sleeping.
Perry tells Miel to get some sleep, stating she will check the perimeter instead.
Miel speaks with hesitation, expressing her concern to the woman acting as a butler.
Perry asks Miel what she is worried about, seeking the source of her concern.
Meal asks if Perry is truly in love with Master Julian, causing a wind effect.
Meal repeats her question about Perry's genuine love for Master Julian.
Meal stands before Perry, awaiting an answer to her question about love.
Perry stares forward, processing the gravity of the question asked of her.
Perry admits she should acknowledge the truth of her feelings.
Perry stands beside Julian, who has his arm rested on her shoulder.
Perry thinks that Julian's feelings for her are more obsession than actual love.
Perry contemplates that when Julian matures and finds his true soulmate, he will change. Perry plays with a strand of her long, silver hair in a moment of quiet thought. Perry continues to thoughtfully twirl a lock of her hair while reflecting.
Perry looks ahead, musing that controlling one's own feelings is a difficult task.
The blue-haired boy gives a thumbs up, insisting he can stay awake all week.
The blue-haired boy sighs about raising another child while Perry sits nearby.
The blue-haired boy asks Perry if she is truly just a doll. The blue-haired boy questions why a doll would be made intricate enough to have a soul.
Perry wonders if she was created simply to be a fighter, noting her combat skills.
Perry mentions she killed her creators, startling the blue-haired boy.
The blue-haired boy flinches, manifesting blue flame on his hand while asking for more info.
Perry conjures a blue spirit bird, explaining it is a soul that cannot pass on.
Perry explains that spiritual power can reveal what a spirit looked like while alive.
Perry tells Meal that spiritual power is essentially the power of one's own soul.
The blue-haired boy looks shocked to learn that everyone possesses this hidden power. The blue-haired boy groans, frustrated that accessing this power is not so simple.
The blue-haired boy admits that his attempt to use the power is failing.
Perry smiles slightly, finding the boy's struggle to use his power amusing.
Julian appears suddenly behind Perry and Miel, asking what they are doing.
Meal jumps in surprise as Julian appears, catching the pair off guard.
The horned man smiles, remarking that the silver-haired woman looks awake for having just slept.
The silver-haired woman, the horned man, and the green-haired man confirmed they were just chatting.
The horned man smirks, suggesting they were likely gossiping about him behind his back.
The silver-haired woman laughs, questioning if the horned man feels he was the topic.
The horned man stares at the green-haired man, causing the latter to flinch in silence.
The horned man confronts the green-haired aide, sharply asking if he has anything to say. The green-haired aide declines to respond, looking down in a moment of pained reflection.
The green-haired aide wonders internally if he should really dismiss his conflicting emotions. The group travels through a bustling border marketplace in the demonic world, seeking supplies.
The silver-haired woman notes the abundance of soldiers, planning to offer bribes for passage. The group acknowledges the vast selection of goods while the green-haired aide feels sick.
The silver-haired woman questions if this is really how the horned man wants to leave.
The horned man states he has his aide and soulmate, so he has no reason.
The silver-haired woman calls herself a temporary soulmate and asks him to release her hand.
The horned man insists on holding her while she finds the physical contact quite uncomfortable.
The silver-haired woman clutches a note, reminding the group they must hurry before sunset.
The silver-haired woman consults the list, determining what essential items they need to acquire.
A merchant offers various human disguise potions, and the woman requests one without side effects.
The silver-haired woman demands a horse, though the merchant claims he does not sell them.
The silver-haired woman bluntly tells the merchant that he should start selling them right now.
The silver-haired woman offers a bag of coins, promising to pay whatever price is asked.
The green-haired aide holds a crate, lamenting his new role as a manual laborer.
The silver-haired woman warns Meow to be careful as they need the potions for travel.
The silver-haired woman tells Meow to adjust quickly, noting Leon would find her exhaustion funny.
The green-haired aide questions why she is discussing the Night Witch, who is currently absent.
Leon appears with a magical blue flame, greeting the group and the fairy, Meow.
The silver-haired woman corrects the green-haired aide, telling him to refer to Meal as an aide.
Leon dismisses the nagging while the group gathers, wondering if they knew of his arrival. The horned man cuts off the conversation, signaling that they have talked quite enough already.
The silver-haired woman notes that travel is prohibited, requiring a bribe to leave safely.
Leon suggests that paying is a waste, proposing he just drain the guard's energy instead. The silver-haired woman sarcastically praises Leon for his genius, while the aide calls it theft.
The group reviews the plan. Leon will drain the guard's energy while Julian provides payment.
The horned man approaches a guard standing near a gate who is smoking a cigarette.
The guard looks at the horned man, asking what he wants from him.
The horned man holds up a gold coin, explaining he has something to give the guard. The horned man stands before the guard, repeating his intent to deliver a special item.
The guard scoffs at the horned man, noting he looks like a rich young man.
The guard warns the horned man that this exchange will definitely come at a price.
The guard mocks the small amount of money offered, asking if that is all there is.
The guard tells the horned man that the payment is insufficient and demands Ekerl.
The guard smirks, suggesting the silver-haired girl seen earlier would be a sufficient payment.
The silver-haired woman watches from a distance, hidden behind the stone wall in silence.
The horned man reacts swiftly, grabbing the guard and slamming him against the table.
The guard hits the ground with a heavy thud, gasping in confusion at the sudden attack.
The horned man commands Leon to take care of Meal while he handles the situation.
The silver-haired woman approaches as the horned man stands over the defeated guards.
A guard yells in anger, threatening the horned man with death for striking a guard.
The horned man stands over the guard, asserting his superior status and demanding respect.
The guard flinches in pain, clutching his face as he acknowledges his defeat.
The silver-haired woman identifies the horned man as Julian, son of Demon King Cardell. The group of guards denies receiving any reports of their arrival while shouting in confusion.
The silver-haired woman remains calm, stating they will simply use force to proceed forward.
The silver-haired woman commands Leon and the fairy Miel to approach them immediately. A cheerful blonde man, Leon, arrives and greets the group by calling them his darlings.
The green-haired aide, Miel, feels nauseous and looks unwell while remaining silent.
A guard recognizes Meal, questioning if he is the fairy bastard who crossed over previously.
The silver-haired woman stares at the guards while the green-haired aide and Leon stand behind.
The guard sneers, asking if the Demon King really hired a fairy to be his aide. Meal looks terrified as the guard cackles, declaring it preposterous to hire a fairy aide.
The silver-haired woman strikes the guard, silencing his mockery with a sudden, forceful blow.
The silver-haired woman addresses Miel while the guard she struck sits dazed on the ground.
Meal remains silent and visibly shaken while the blonde Leon watches him with concern.
The silver-haired woman gently brushes Meal's face, asking what the guards did to him.
The silver-haired woman asks if the guards are worthless assholes for mistreating Mia.
The silver-haired woman lifts Meal's chin, maintaining eye contact as he nods in response.
The silver-haired woman smiles and suggests the best solution is to beat the guards up.
The silver-haired woman suggests using the guards' bodies to grow trees as a final solution.
Meal gulps in fear, realizing the brutal fate awaiting the guards for their behavior.
The silver-haired woman explains that the demons will die if he follows her instruction.
The silver-haired woman tells Meal that he is no longer in the fairy forest.
The silver-haired woman asserts that Miel must act like a citizen of the demonic world.
Meal fidgets with his hands, visibly anxious after the silver-haired woman's dark directive.
A glowing, magical light shines from Meal's hands as he prepares his power.
Meal stares forward with a focused, intense expression while his magic begins to surge. Magical vines wrap around the guards, causing them to crackle and snap in alarm.
A guard screams in pain as the magical vines slither over his hands.
The guard looks around in terror as he is bound by the growing vines. Julian steps forward, walking past the guard who sits captured on the ground. Julian declares that Perry belongs to him, marking his territory in the silence.
Julian kneels beside the captured guard, whispering something to him while Perry watches.
Julian asks Perry what she would like him to do to the bard. Perry notes she dislikes amputating limbs, but refuses to be treated like an object.
The guard falters in fear as Julian and Perry discuss his fate before him.
Perry asks Julian if it is all right for her to take care of this.
Leon and Meal observe as the guards are transformed into trees standing guard.
Julian steps over a discarded weapon as he moves closer to Perry.
Meal stands by a tree, contemplating his new status as a citizen of the demon world.
Meal grits his teeth, accepting the harsh reality of his situation and the demon kingdom.
Meal smiles blankly, seemingly losing his sense of self as he drifts into silence.
Perry stands calmly, observing Meal as he turns his back on his former self.
Perry gazes ahead with a look of doom, feeling the weight of the moment.
Julian looks at Perry with intense, glowing eyes, calling her name softly.
Perry tells Julian she has apologized many times, questioning his treatment of the guard.
Perry apologizes again, stating she would not have acted if she knew about the goblins.
Perry sighs, asking Julian how many more times she must apologize for her actions. Julian presents his 3 conditions, including restrictions on Perry's use of her powers.
Perry looks aghast, shocked by Julian's demands regarding their soulmate connection.
Julian laughs, confirming that he belongs to her as well as she belongs to him.
Perry begins to speak, but Julian grabs her, stopping her sentence mid-breath.
Julian kisses Perry, a tender moment captured amidst a backdrop of elegant, blooming flowers.
Leon interrupts the couple, loudly announcing their public display of affection to everyone nearby.
Julian commands Leon to be quiet and confirms that everyone has secured their human disguise potions.
Julian drinks his potion, the glass vessel held firmly to his lips as he swallows.
Leon consumes his potion, seemingly unbothered as the magical transformation takes hold of his appearance.
The blue-haired boy drinks his potion, looking hesitant as the liquid settles within the glass vial.
The group arrives at their destination, and the blue-haired boy looks on in amazement at the sight.
Julian smiles with a confident, knowing look as he prepares for their next steps.
A sweeping view of the middle world is revealed as their intended destination of travel.
Julian maintains his steady, composed expression while he processes their arrival at the new location.
A grand, sprawling city view serves as the backdrop for their arrival in the middle world. Julian informs the silver-haired woman that they must now track down the elusive dark mage.
Perry stares at Julian, clearly confused and concerned by his sudden mission to find a mage.
Julian shares a fleeting, subtle smile while looking ahead, maintaining his air of calm mystery.
Julian pulls Perry close to him, reassuring her that he will handle the situation personally. Julian warns Perry that she is not to use the fire goblins until they locate the dark mage.
Perry expresses her lingering worry about a small crack while Julian stands protectively beside her. Leon questions why Julian is specifically seeking a dark mage when so many exist in the human world.
The blue-haired boy looks visibly shaken and haunted by the memory of the brand on Perry's body.
The group travels on horseback through a wooded area with the blue-haired boy looking visibly distressed.
Perry looks at the blue-haired boy with a mix of concern and questioning, noticing his strange behavior.
The blue-haired boy appears dazed, struggling to stay focused as they continue their journey on horseback.
Leon notices the blue-haired boy's struggle and suggests that they should stop for a break.
The blue-haired boy loses his balance and begins to fall from his horse, causing general alarm.
A dark, shadowy mist surrounds the blue-haired boy as Leon reaches out to save him from falling.
Leon questions why the blue-haired boy is so upset and confused by the mention of the dark mage.
The blue-haired boy rages, blaming the dark mage and the slave merchant for his dramatic past. The blue-haired boy scowls, declaring that the slave merchant and dark mage are working together.
Perry approaches the blue-haired boy, who flinches as the dark, shadowy aura still lingers around him.
Perry tells the blue-haired boy that he is allowed to kill them, but only after their work is done.
Perry reassures the blue-haired boy that once the mission concludes, he can exact his revenge.
The blue-haired boy stares at Perry, stunned by the cold, calculated permission she has just given him.
Perry asks the blue-haired boy if he still feels mercy for the humans who enslaved his people.
The group arrives at a settlement, and Leon questions if they truly needed to travel on horseback.
The blue-haired boy explains that they must appear as customers to blend in with others. Leon smiles slightly, accepting the logic, though he remains silent after the brief exchange.
Perry reflects with relief that Leon isn't a night witch focused solely on draining people's energy.
The blue-haired boy calculates that the journey to their destination will take about a week. Leon asks how long the travel will take on horseback, looking to the blue-haired boy for answers. The blue-haired boy tosses a rolled-up map to Julian, signaling he is ready to show the way.
The blue-haired boy points to a specific location on the map indicating their final destination.
A merchant confronts the group, demanding to know who they are as they enter his establishment.
Julian dismisses the merchant's hostility, sarcastically remarking on his poor hospitality toward paying customers.
The merchant asks Julian which family he belongs to, while another man cowers in the background.
The merchant smirks, realizing that the group has come to purchase the items they specialize in. The merchant invites the group to follow him, confirming they are the only source for his goods.
The merchant leads the group into a prison area, showcasing a young boy from the Golem tribe.
The merchant glances at Julian, highlighting the captive's potential as a future bodyguard.
The merchant boasts about the golem boy's strength, but Julian sighs, uninterested in this particular commodity.
Julian crosses his arms and firmly instructs the merchant to lead the way to the real merchandise.
The group gathers while a mysterious whisper wonders what Master Julian is thinking about.
The silver-haired woman resolves that the corrupt guard will not leave the area alive.
Julian advances, causing the green-haired aide to flinch nervously as the scene intensifies.
A dark, sudden movement occurs as Julian moves to confront the guard directly. The guard is thrown, letting out a pained scream as the struggle begins abruptly.
Julian holds the guard down, demanding to know the origin of the illegal magic tool.
Julian gazes coldly at the guard, taunting him for his inability to speak properly.
The terrified guard rushes to confess he bought it from a dark mage named Emmett.
Julian shoves the guard aside, dismissing his plea for mercy with a sharp command.
The dazed guard drops a map, prompting Julian to ask for the location of Emmett.
The guard shakily points to the map, revealing the location of the dark mage.
Julian scans the area while heavily armed guards arrive at the entrance in haste.
The guards call out, demanding to know who has intruded upon their territory.
Julian stares intensely at the newcomers, his eyes glowing with an ominous, dark power.
Julian commands the green-haired aide Miel to take charge of the situation at hand.
Miel hesitates, wondering internally how he should proceed with the violent task aired.
The silver-haired woman places a calming hand on Miel, reassuring him that it is okay.
Miel smiles, appearing comforted by the silver-haired woman's presence and gentle guidance.
Miel nods to the woman, seemingly accepting his new role in this dangerous environment.
Glowing magical energy surges from Miel's hand, signaling his intent to use his powers.
Miel looks determined, his eyes hardening as he focuses his magical energy for combat.
Vines erupt to trap the guards, who scream in shock as they are ensnared.
A sickening sound of cracking bone echoes through the air as the trap closes.
The magical vines lock around the guard's foot, rendering him unable to move or escape.
Miel requests that the silver-haired woman, his Madam Butler, help remove the restraint devices.
The silver-haired woman snaps the restraints open, freeing the young hostages from their bindings.
The young animal-eared captives stare at the woman, looking nervous and frightened.
The silver-haired woman prompts the children, asking if their powers have finally returned to them.
Miel and the silver-haired woman watch as the children dash away toward safety.
A blonde man notes that the area is clear as the group prepares to leave.
A narrative thought reflects that humans are the truly weak ones for bothering the otherkin.
Julian walks up the bloody stairs while the blonde man observes the slaughterhouse atmosphere.
Julian confirms that he has successfully taken care of the slave merchants for the group.
Meal feels a sense of pride, noting that Julian is finally acting like a demon.
Meal asks why the silver-haired woman is smiling, to which she replies she is happy.
A peaceful sky appears, shifting the narrative to a flashback of a simpler life. A humble, quaint house stands in a field, representing Emmett's former life of peace.
Emmett appears looking weary and middle-aged while holding a piece of white cloth. A narrative box explains that being a dark mage was never a very lucrative job.
A painting illustrates the hierarchy of magic towers, which only hired light-aligned mages.
Emmett, lacking necromancy talent, is forced to use voodoo-like dolls to scrape by.
A portrait depicts Emmett with his wife Sarah and daughter Anna, who later died.
A dark, thorny barrier surrounds Emmett as he resolves to stay strong for Anna.
Emmett kneels to comfort his daughter, vowing to do anything to support her life.
Emmett tenderly braids his daughter's hair, showing the love he has for his child.
Thorny vines appear again as a narrative box notes that another tragedy struck.
A dark ink spill represents the moment Emmett's young daughter suddenly collapsed.
A broken picture frame lies on the ground, surrounded by scattered, desperate coins.
Emmett, now with a monocle, works in his shop to produce illegal magic tools.
A final thought emphasizes that Emmett did not care who he sold to for money.
A young girl stands alone, representing the daughter Emmett would do anything to save.
Emmett wipes his face with a cloth, looking weary and emotionally drained.
A close-up reveals Emmett's tearful, expressive eye, showing his deep, hidden sorrow.
Emmett continues cleaning, wiping white cloths in the peaceful field near his home.
Perry and her companions approach Emmett while he works on the laundry.
Emmett stops his work, looking anxious as the group confronts him in a space.
Emmett nods, acknowledging the group as he focuses his attention on them. The silver-haired woman confirms that she is the creator of the doll, Perry.
The black-haired man informs Emmett that the group has a specific job for him.
Emmett refuses the work, stating he is no longer active and suggesting they leave.
The black-haired man coldly asserts that this is not a request, but a command.
Emmett stares in shock, wondering who these powerful intruders truly are. The black-haired man grabs Emmett by the throat, asserting his dominance over him.
The silver-haired woman threatens to leave Emmett paralyzed if he refuses to cooperate.
The blonde man jokes that he won't eat Emmett because he doesn't look tasty.
Emmett looks terrified, asking the group what they want him to do for them.
The black-haired man commands Emmett to fix Perry while she stands beside him.
Perry introduces herself as the young master's butler and reveals she is a doll.
Emmett is stunned, amazed by the intricate craftsmanship of such a realistic doll.
Emmett notes her natural movements and lively eyes, marveling at her human-like appearance.
Emmett expresses his doubt, claiming he cannot fix a doll of such perfect quality.
A threat hangs in the air, warning that the village will be destroyed otherwise.
The black-haired man stares intensely, his eyes glowing with a menacing, dark intent.
Emmett flinches as he nervously asks the group which part of her is broken.
Perry slips the collar of her dress down to show the physical crack on her.
Emmett looks at the crack on Perry's body while the black-haired man watches closely.
Emmett ponders the damage, closely observing the area where Perry's magic is failing.
The sun shines through the window, illuminating the quiet room where they stand.
The black-haired man scolds Perry for undressing in front of the others in their bay.
Emmett asks the silver-haired woman what exactly she is made of inside. Perry admits she has no idea what materials compose her artificial body. Perry reveals she killed her own creators, leaving her with no one to ask.
Emmett sighs, deciding to use standard materials since her origins are a mystery.
The black-haired man impatiently asks Emmett how long the repairs will eventually take.
Emmett explains that testing materials will take a month and require a trip.
Emmett casts a nervous glance, feeling the pressure of his forced employment.
The black-haired man and Perry watch Emmett as he contemplates the repair process.
The black-haired man gestures with his fingers, signaling he is ready to proceed.
The black-haired man tells Emmett that he only needs to say the work. A blade slashes across Perry's skin, testing her durability and internal composition.
The wound on Perry's arm begins to fade as she heals from the cut.
Emmett asks if Perry is capable of eating food like a normal person.
Emmett asks if Perry experiences menstrual cycles, causing a moment of awkwardness.
A note reveals that she lacks biological functions like defecation, saliva, or tears.
Emmett concludes she is definitely not made of the standard materials for dolls.
Perry cheerfully reveals that she was originally created at a magic tower. Emmett yells in frustration, asking why she waited until now to tell him.
The blonde man complains of hunger, suggesting he could devour someone nearby soon.
The silver-haired woman looks distressed, clearly unhappy with the blonde man's crude remark.
The black-haired man asks Emmett if there are any neighbors he dislikes new pie.
The scruffy man lists several people, then asks the questioner why they are asking. The silver-haired woman instructs the blonde man to stop eating others' life force and to return with food.
The silver-haired woman admits she feels a little worried.
A hand touches the window, creating a subtle, tense atmosphere.
The blue-haired man stares intensely, his eyes glowing with an ominous light.
The silver-haired woman embraces the blue-haired man from behind, comforting him.
The silver-haired woman remarks on the sadness in the house and reflects on her potential repair. The silver-haired woman tells the blue-haired man that he is not obligated to kill anyone for his kin.
The blue-haired man looks down, his expression drooping with a sense of dejection.
A narrative thought reflects that the blue-haired man must act like a demon and remain unwavering.
The blue-haired man asks the silver-haired woman if she will be disappointed in him. The silver-haired woman responds to the blue-haired man, asking why she would be disappointed. The blue-haired man looks at the silver-haired woman with a soft, questioning expression.
The blue-haired man looks at the silver-haired woman with a small, gentle smile.
The silver-haired woman gently pats the blue-haired man, noting he is too kind for his own good.
The scruffy man asks the silver-haired woman to show him the affected area once more.
The silver-haired woman pulls down her collar, revealing a web of cracks on her skin.
The scruffy man touches the cracked area on the silver-haired woman's skin.
The silver-haired woman observes the scruffy man as he examines her, remarking that it just feels like something is on top.
The scruffy man ponders the damage, tilting his head while noting the silver-haired woman likely noticed the same. The scruffy man and the silver-haired woman check different areas, finding that nothing is the source of the issue.
The scene shifts to a picturesque sunlit view of a quiet roll house in the countryside.
The scruffy man notes that even after 22 treatments, the ointment has had little effect.
The scruffy man questions what could have caused the cracks to form on her body.
The silver-haired woman hesitates, cryptically telling the scruffy man that he really does not want to know.
The blue-haired man stands behind the silver-haired woman, dismissing her concerns by calling them battle scars.
The scruffy man expresses confusion, arguing that a powerful doll should be able to regenerate from injuries.
The silver-haired woman tells the scruffy man to stop questioning and focus on fixing her quickly.
The scruffy man agrees, suggesting they test all available ointments before considering a trip to the capital.
A sudden loud slam echoes in the room as a door is forcefully closed.
The blonde man enters the room excitedly, announcing his return while holding a basket of food.
Text boxes indicate that the bread in the basket was purchased, while the other items were received as gifts.
The blue-haired man and the silver-haired woman look at the scruffy man, who holds a small bottle of medicine.
The blonde man explains that the locals were so charmed by his appearance that they gave him gifts.
The silver-haired woman insists they eat, as it has been a long time since their last meal.
A loud, audible growl comes from the scruffy man's stomach.
The scruffy man admits with embarrassment that he has not had a proper meal since his family passed away.
The scruffy man stares blankly, telling the silver-haired woman that everyone eventually dies.
The scruffy man looks down, his expression somber as he contemplates his own mortality.
The silver-haired woman comforts the scruffy man, explaining that all life forms die and are reborn in new forms.
The scruffy man looks up, his expression unreadable and stoic. The scruffy man smiles genuinely at the silver-haired woman.
Shimmering particles of light drift upward, creating a magical and ethereal atmosphere.
The silver-haired woman coughs while watching the scruffy man, hoping he meets his loved ones in the future.
The blonde man leans in to tell the scruffy man he should shave his beard to look better.
The silver-haired woman forcefully shoves the blonde man, pinching him to make him stop teasing.
The blonde man smiles nervously, swearing that he is not trying to eat the scruffy man.
The scruffy man looks at the blonde man with an intense, skeptical gaze.
The silver-haired woman smacks the blonde man on the head, telling him to stop talking nonsense.
A hand draws a sword from its sheath with a sharp metallic sound.
Perry towers over Emmett as she steps toward him, creating an immediate, imposing atmosphere. Leon grabs Emmett by the throat with a blade, coldly commanding him to hold still.
Emmett looks on with a bewildered expression as Leon continues to hold him by the throat.
Perry, with a cheerful smile, casually comments that she should easily be able to shave Emmett's beard.
Perry looks away, deciding that she should perhaps perform the shaving task somewhere else instead. Perry guides Emmett to a different location, gesturing for him to come with her immediately.
Emmett is instructed to keep his eyes closed while Perry completes her work on him.
Emmett stands with his back turned, thoughtfully scratching his chin after the procedure is finished.
Julian, Perry, and Miel gather around a table, watching as Leon marvels at Emmett's transformation.
Emmett appears clean-shaven and handsome, standing amidst a background of soft, blooming floral patterns.
A search results page displays links to read free comics online on the Like Manga platform.
The Like Manga website interface highlights the latest release of the series, The Tyrant's Tranquilizer.
Perry looks directly ahead with a stern expression, firmly refusing Leon's persistent request for something.
Leon persistently asks Perry for a favor, but she firmly repeats her refusal to him.
Julian comments that while Emmett is handsome, he thinks Julian himself is a bit more so.
Perry pushes Julian away, telling him to shut up unless he wants to die immediately.
Perry notes that Leon is likely to cause trouble in his room, courtesy of Emmett.
Perry contemplates staying close to Emmett or guarding Leon's door to prevent further issues tonight.
Perry mutters about Leon having too much energy, pointing toward the door in frustration.
A close-up shows a pale hand reaching out in the dim atmospheric lighting of the room.
Perry asks Julian why he is taking so long while he embraces her from behind.
Julian leans in close to Perry, his presence looming over her as she stands still.
Perry feels Julian's breath tickle her, intensifying the intimate and tense atmosphere between them.
Julian murmurs to Perry, asking what she had been discussing with Leon just before. Perry flinches as Julian holds her, explaining that Leon wanted to eat Emmett after his transformation.
Julian stares intently, asking Perry if she truly finds Emmett to be a handsome man.
Julian faces Perry, asking if she thinks Emmett is handsome, repeating what Leon had claimed. Julian smiles brightly, claiming he has no opinion on the matter of Emmett's physical appearance.
Julian asks Perry for her honest opinion regarding how she feels about him personally. Julian stands close to Perry, looking down at her as they occupy the quiet hallway.
Perry looks up at Julian, acknowledging that he is both handsome and remarkably tall.
Julian asks Perry if he is still the knife intended to end her life.
Perry stares silently, her expression unreadable as she considers Julian's provocative question.
A hand reaches out toward Julian, marking a significant, quiet moment between the two characters.
Perry tenderly cradles Julian's face, calling him her temporary soulmate amidst falling flower petals.
Julian stares ahead as Perry touches his face, noting their precarious bond could shatter any time. Julian and Perry embrace in the hallway, reflecting on the hope that their genuine feelings remain. A variety of medicinal bottles and syringes lie scattered on a table in the room.
Emmett works at his desk while Julian stands behind Perry, who sits comfortably nearby.
Villagers bustle around Emmett's home, jokingly asking if he has already found a new wife.
Julian touches his lip, thinking it should be obvious to everyone that they are a couple.
Emmett explains his findings regarding the substances while Julian and Perry listen from the side.
Emmett looks troubled, stating that the substances used can only be found in the capital.
A door bursts open, signaling a sudden and noisy arrival into the row. Leon enters the room, enthusiastically greeting Emmett and asking if he is finished with his work. A door swings open rapidly, creating a sense of urgency and swift movement within the room.
Perry blocks Leon, sternly warning him to stay away from Emmett after he tries to approach.
Meal drags an exhausted-looking Leon away, apologizing for failing to stop him from rushing in.
Perry smiles to herself, thinking it is fine because Meal is not strong enough to stop Leon.
Leon pouts, complaining that he lacks the time to properly look at Emmett's handsome face.
Perry strikes the blonde man, questioning why he is clinging to Emmett and reminding him of the restraining order.
The scruffy man with a beard holds up his hands, unbothered by the chaos unfolding around him.
Emmett asks if they must go to the capital, worrying if the haughty light mages will sell items to a dark mage.
The blonde man dismisses Emmett's concerns, telling him that money solves everything, and addressing the silver-haired woman as Madame Butler. The blue-haired man confirms they have the money and asks Emmett if he needs anything else for their trip. Emmett notes that traveling by horse to the capital will take them 3 weeks of nonstop riding.
The blue-haired man explains to Emmett that they cannot afford to wait 3 weeks for the journey.
Emmett looks surprised as he realizes they will arrive at their destination in just 1 minute. The scene shifts to the bustling, sunlit architecture of the capital city. The group suddenly teleports into the city square with a magical pop, appearing out of thin air. Emmett looks at the group, confused by their appearance and initially mistaking them for nobles. The blue-haired man smirks, arrogantly telling Emmett that they exist on a higher plane than mere humans.
Emmett stares blankly, realizing he will get into trouble if he keeps questioning them, then notices a local festival.
The blue-haired man grabs Emmett's hand, initiating a sudden magical movement.
The pair twirls across the cobblestone street as they prepare to move through the city. The blonde man enthusiastically grabs the silver-haired woman's hands, pulling her into a dance.
Perry slaps the blonde man away, rejecting his advances and asking if he truly thinks he is handsome.
Perry harshly critiques the blonde man, telling him he has a crooked nose and is not particularly attractive. Perry continues her insults, telling the blonde man he is only slightly better than average and lacks the stature to brag.
The blue-haired man pulls the silver-haired woman close to him, looming over her while they stand among blooming flowers.
Perry flinches as the blue-haired man questions why the blonde man would pine after his belonging with such mediocre looks. The blue-haired man thinks internally about his complicated status as Julian's thing and his perception of Julian as a weapon.
The blonde man scoffs, demanding to know who the blue-haired man thinks he is to insult him.
The blonde man starts to declare his identity as the Demon King, but the blue-haired woman quickly covers his mouth, claiming he is her lover. The blue-haired woman calls the others a pair of pests and addresses the blue-haired man as Master Julian. The blue-haired woman scolds the blue-haired man, asking if he has lost his mind by threatening war with such a careless reveal. The blue-haired woman explains that the demon man was likely trying to make the blue-haired man his soulmate after playing with him.
A thought bubble explains that an oath with a soulmate results in both parties sharing half of their lifespans.
The blue-haired woman looks shocked, questioning the revelation that they have already shared half of their lifespans. The blue-haired woman confirms that they are currently sharing the exact same amount of life.
The blue-haired man stares down at the blue-haired woman, musing that he is unsure if the lifespan was originally granted to him or her.
A dark, empty space displays a promotional link for a manga reading option.